Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Let's see if there is another place. Oh my goodness, where is the hearing? Yeah, yeah. I really don't. I guess I could do this. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do, 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 do. Wah, wah. Hold on. Good morning, easily distracted. It's so nice of you to come along. Seeing as we just got started, here we are now. Hi, KMS, I think you're really cool. What am I doing up so early? Well, I'm pulling myself together. That's one thing. And I'm trying to find. It hasn't started yet. What's the problem? What's the problem? Oh wait. Do 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 do. Wow, everybody's late. Hello. Good morning, Mind Truth. How are you? How are you? Let's share a little screen. What? Oh, I know, right? I'll pull my ear. Comes the time we have to say so long. Doodly doo 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 doo. Hi, hi, I'm gonna tickle you. Tickle, 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 tickle. Let's see, let's make Thriller big. Okay, go away. I don't care. How do you get rid of it? Oh, fuck's sake. Oh, Jesus Christ on a cracker. Okay, just go. Just go, okay? Just go. It's not. Okay. Okay. No. Okay. 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 Anyway, well, we'll just talk then. Good morning. Had a refreshing trip. I did not. I did not have a good trip yesterday. I'm just going to be real. Keep it 100. Did not have a good trip. Did not have a good trip. But I've learned. I learned a lot, and well, I went on some psychotropic drugs. Um, and it was just the wrong day to do it. There was a lot of triggers that I wasn't ready for, and there was kind of a lack of. Well, I guess I had expectations, and I need to stop having expectations. I think that's the storyline here, folks. I think that's the headline. Sometimes those are most instructive. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was instructive, Mind Truth. Thank you. It was instructive on a lot of levels. A lot of levels. Um, I think sometimes, sometimes I feel like, oh, you know what? I need to go to our thing. What am I doing? Why isn't this started yet? Why is everybody late? What's going on? Like even C-SPAN is not in the. Oh, here we go. I'll start with C-SPAN, but they fuck. Shut up. Shut up. Here we go. All right, we'll start with C-SPAN and see where we end up. Da, 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 da. Anyway, yeah, I don't know the way to do where I'm not good at interpersonal skills sometimes. I know it might seem surprising to you that I'm not good at interpersonal skills, but I really suck at it sometimes. And not in a way that I mean. but in a way that my actions are interpreted always through a certain lens. And I'm like, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair to judge my actions through a certain lens all the time. Um, that's not what loving someone is, right? Like, that's not what loving someone is. I don't know. Anyway, so it was, I don't know, it was eye opening. That's for sure. It was eye opening. And I'm going to microdose because I think that's probably better for me. And I certainly won't do it on days when I'm going to have like a ton of triggers, but I didn't know that was going to happen yesterday. But it did. But no, highly recommend. It was good. I mean, there were parts of it that were really good. Hi, Samuel. And then there were parts of it that were not good at all. Not good at all. But c'est la vie. I also would, if I was going to do that big a dose, I would probably like go to the mountains or go to the beach with a friend. Because doing it alone was also really hard because, I don't know, it was just a combination of a lot of things. So, yeah, it wasn't as successful as I hoped it would be. But that's okay. Again, I learned. And now what I need to do is make decisions for myself because I don't know how to communicate any more strongly than I do. So I'm pretty straightforward. I think you know me by now. You guys probably know me better than some. So let's bake. There's no sound yet. Sorry, I'm smoking. I'm smoking. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, how terrible. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing a good day. I don't know you. This is my first time here. It's so true, Samuel. I can't but with you in spirit and tonight. Oh, thanks. Thanks. What's tonight? Uh oh. I don't even know what I'm doing. Come on, sound. Oh, let me make sure my other one doesn't blow up. Wow, the PBS cameras are not. Oh, no, they're not fired up. Terrible, 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 terrible. I have a feeling the sound's gonna like blow on this thing. Um, I love Stacy. I can't remember her name. Oh shoot, from the U.S. Virgin Islands, I think. The delegate. Oh, I love her so much. She's. This is why I love. I have a lot of lawyers in my life, and there's a woman lawyer. Actually,
Committee
one of
will
my
come
besties
to
in
subcommittee will
D.C.
come to order without
is a
objection. The chair is
lawyer, and
authorized to
she is
declare
just
a
one of the smartest
recess
people I've
at
ever met in
any
my life, and
time.
I
We
love
welcome
her.
everyone to today's hearing on the weaponization of the federal government.
Here we go.
And the chair now
Get ready for
recognizes
bullshit.
the
Here's the
gentleman from the
bullshit
great state of
parade.
Utah to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The bullshit parade is here today. By the way, it's so nice to meet you, sir. How how kind of you to join us today. A little existential dread. Yeah, I just don't know how you engage other people in that conversation, Mind Truth, without pushing them over the brink.
The chair now recognizes himself for
So that's my
an
conundrum.
opening statement. Politics is driving the agenda in federal agencies.
Wee, wee, wee.
Don't believe me,
That's
just
his
read the
opening
Durham
statement.
report from 3 days ago. No probable cause, no predicate, no evidence whatsoever.
Oh,
But the FBI opened a case.
we
Took a
didn't actually
dossier,
read. You didn't
dossier
read
they
that
knew was
report. I did,
false,
Jim.
from a political
That's not what
campaign,
it
from the
said.
Clinton
Okay.
campaign, to spy on a presidential candidate and American citizens. Here was the key line from the Durham report. Quote, the FBI failed to uphold their mission of
I'm just going to
fidelity
debunk
to
that
the
the
law.
Durham report was a bunch of
They
shit
didn't
and he
follow
didn't
the
find
law.
anything, and that's why he's
Didn't have
embarrassed, and they're trying to
probable
make a
cause or
big deal out
evidence
of
to
something
do
that's
what they
nothing.
did. An
Read the
agency
report.
focused on politics. But I would argue today it's even worse. Because today it's not just presidential campaigns. Today it's the American people. They're the target. You're not politically correct. You're not in line with what they think
Oh,
should
yeah,
be the
you don't
political
believe in human
position, the
rights.
proper
You don't believe in
position.
civil
You're
rights.
the
Yeah,
target.
no, I don't
Parents
get along
attending a
with you.
school
You're
board
right.
meeting, pro-lifers praying at a clinic, or
That's
Catholics
right.
simply
And don't
attending
fuck with my
Mass,
body. Leave me
you
alone.
could be a target. And maybe what's just as frightening is if you're one of the good employees in our government who come forward to talk about the targeting, you then become a target. You face retaliation. If you're one of those, and I think there are thousands and thousands of good employees working across our country in the FBI and other agencies, but if you're one of those good employees driven by your commitment to the Constitution and your conscience and you come forward, they're going to come after you. If you come forward and tell us about the radical traditional Catholic memo, or you come forward and tell us about this idea that they're going to create some snitch line to report on parents going to school board meetings, you do that, they will try to crush you. They will retaliate against you. They're coming after you. But these guys today, they were brave enough. They took their oath seriously. They believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the rule of law, and they came forward. And I want to thank them for doing it. But because they did, man, oh man, have they faced retaliation. Mr. O'Boyle was selected for a new unit, moved his family from Kansas to Quantico, Virginia, and the first day he arrives here, after being selected for this new unit, serving in our military, serving well in the FBI, with first day he arrives here, they tell him his clearance is suspended. Can't get his belongings for his family, can't get his clothes, can't get his children's clothes, 4 kids and a 2-week-old newborn. Mr. Friend raised concerns about using the SWAT team to arrest someone who was willing to turn themselves in, and the FBI takes his clearance. Wouldn't even let him get access to his firearms training records, which he needs to get employment. Mr. O'Boyle's went 200-some days without getting paid. Mr. Allen's went 450 days without getting paid. This is the kind of retaliation they have faced for coming forward and telling us the truth. For Mr. Allen, he lost his clearance for simply doing his job, compiling case-related research, using open-source material, news, and articles, and passing them on to the people working the case. And they didn't like some of the material he passed on. 450 days without pay. And the retaliation isn't limited to the FBI. Democrats on this committee also engaged in it. They leaked parts of these guys' interviews to the press. Press reported on it, and then the press had to issue corrections. The Post, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Rolling Stone, because what the Democrats told them wasn't accurate, what they reported wasn't accurate. That's why Mr. Allen would only let Republicans talk to him. He said, I've seen what's going on. I want to be interviewed by the Republicans. We've talked to over 24 whistleblowers. People have come to us. We've interviewed several of those, and today 3 of them. 3 of those brave whistleblowers and a lawyer who represents them will tell us their story. They will tell us what happened, what they saw, and then what happened to them because they were courageous enough to report it to Congress. And I just want to tell you guys, get ready. Get ready, because these guys are going to come after you. You know they are. Last hearing we had 2 journalists, Democrats, 2 Democrat journalists sat right where you guys did, and these guys tried to get them to divulge their sources. Someone needs to tell them how the First Amendment works. And while Mr. Taibbi, one of those award-winning journalists sitting right where you're sitting, was testifying, guess what else was happening? The IRS was knocking on his door. So get ready. But I know you're up to the task because you came forward in the first place. Thank you for your commitment to the Constitution, the First Amendment, the rule of law, and for your willingness to come forward and tell Congress what you've seen, what you've witnessed. Thank you for doing that. Mr. Levitt, thank you for representing him. We appreciate that. Now I yield to the ranking member for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. Today is our fourth hearing in this select committee. In our previous 3 hearings, we've heard my Republican colleagues and their witnesses downplay the danger of extremism in America, suggesting that the 2020 election was stolen and claimed that January 6th was anything other than an attempted insurrection, anything other than domestic terrorism. From what I can glean about today's hearing, and I'm going to say glean because my Republican colleagues don't really want us to work together. They give us the bare minimum notice for hearings.
Hi, Rip.
No subject indicated. We learn who the hearing witnesses is from British tabloids. That's not normal in the House of Representatives. One must wonder, are Republicans scared of giving us the information so that we can do our own due diligence on these conspiracy theories, these ideas that they want to put forward? Indeed, today's hearing will be more of the same. Perhaps they're too far gone to realize that, in fact, this hearing is evidence, as if we needed any more, that MAGA Republicans are a threat to the rule of law in America. Less than 2 months ago, former President Trump, facing mounting investigations into his many alleged crimes, declared that, quote, Republicans in Congress should defund the DOJ and the FBI until they can come to their senses. And we all know that when Trump says jump, the Republicans in the House say, how high? So here we are, on Police Week, watching House Republicans jump to lay the foundation to defund law enforcement. My colleagues on the far right are on a mission to attack, discredit, and ultimately dismantle the FBI. This is defund the police on steroids. As part of their mission, my colleagues have brought in these former agents, men who lost their security clearances because they were a threat to our national security, who, out of malice or ignorance or both, have put partisan agenda above the oath they swore to serve this country and protect its national security. It is everyday American taxpayer who is bearing the burden of this circus-like hearing. A year ago, Republicans promised that if they won control of Congress, they would focus on kitchen table issues like bringing down inflation. Now we got a bait and switch. Instead of trying to make their constituents' lives better, they're wasting time and taxpayer dollars on an endless, fruitless string of partisan investigations. Instead of working to make America more secure, they're manufacturing opportunities to attack law enforcement agencies, even and especially on the same week that we are remembering those law enforcement personnel who lost their lives in the line of duty. We are assembled today to hear conspiracy theories and speculations. We're going to hear alternative facts, actions, and events taken far out of context. When they lack support for a baseless allegation, get this, my Republican friends will cite the absence of evidence of a cover-up. And any suggestion that Chairman Jordan's witnesses are anything but victims of an oppressive dystopian government will be met with mock outrage. So we all know what we're about to see. The real question, the real thing that Americans need to be focused on
Miss
is
Plaskett has
why.
their number.
My
And she's
Republican
dialing
colleagues
it
would
now.
like me and others to believe that they've suddenly found religion when it comes to misconduct in law enforcement. Give me a break. When the FBI is rifling through personal correspondence of people of color, when law enforcement tries to push policies to limit the freedom of people practicing a different religion, or unjustly pursuing people in cars who look like Philando Castile or my children, or who are just going about their business, or breaking down the doors of people's homes like Breonna Taylor, do you think my Republican colleagues care about that? They don't bat an eye. But when the FBI investigates conservative Christian white men who are actually threatening violence, suddenly my Republican colleagues are rushing to defund the police. The reason we're here today is because Chairman Jordan wants to make America Trump again. My Republican colleagues aren't here representing their constituents, not my constituents. They're representing Donald Trump. They're acting as his defense attorney, his campaign operative, and everything in between. This committee, this select committee, is a clearinghouse for testing conspiracy theories for Donald Trump to use in his 2024 presidential campaign. What's clear from these hearings is that Donald Trump knows just as well as I do that the danger to him and his MAGA movement is the rule of law. That's why this committee is working so hard to undermine the rule of law. That's why Donald Trump asked Jordan and others on this committee to waste our time and taxpayer money, asked the Speaker of the House to attack the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, for having the audacity to indict the former president on 34 counts of fraud. And that's why this committee hasn't given up
It's beautiful,
stolen
clear.
election talking points. And now, here we are today, going after the
I
FBI
just adore her.
on Donald Trump's behalf. This is not a committee on the weaponization of government. This is a committee for the weaponization of government. This select committee is clearly focused on undermining law enforcement so extremists can undermine our elections through corruption and control our government through threats of political violence. I hope Democrats as well as Republicans watch and listen this morning, because this hearing will demonstrate far better than any opening statement ever could that outside of Washington, the real divide in America is not between Democrats and Republicans. It's between people who love this country, who believe in the rule of law, who want to follow the law, and those who will fight to make our union more perfect, and the people who want to tear down the rule of law and betray our Constitution for personal as well as political gain.
Yep.
I yield back.
Yep.
Gentlewoman yields back. Without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record. We will now introduce today's witnesses.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Garrett O'Boyle. Mr. O'Boyle is a whistleblower, an FBI special agent, most recently in the Wichita resident agency of the Kansas City field office. Prior to becoming an FBI agent, Mr. O'Boyle served our nation as an infantryman in the United States Army for 6 years. In the Army, Mr. O'Boyle was deployed to both Iraq and Afghanistan. He received numerous service awards, including the Combat Infantryman Badge. Mr. O'Boyle received an honorable discharge from the Army. Upon leaving, Mr. O'Boyle continued his commitment to public service, serving as a police officer in Waukesha, Wisconsin for 4 years. Mr. O'Boyle joined the FBI in 2018. As an FBI agent, Mr. O'Boyle was selected to serve on the Joint Terrorism Task Force and the SWAT team. Mr. O'Boyle graduated cum laude from Marquette University with a degree in criminology and law studies.
And I was drunk for most of my college
The FBI questions his loyalty
How hard is
to the
that?
Constitution and to our country. Mr. Friend is a whistleblower, an FBI special agent, most recently in the Daytona Beach resident agency of the Jacksonville field office. Prior to becoming an FBI agent in 2014, Mr. Friend served as a police officer in Savannah, Georgia, and Pooler, Georgia. And as an FBI agent, Mr. Friend spent 7 years working human trafficking investigations and investigating crimes against children. Prior to blowing the whistle in 2022, Mr. Friend had received several awards from the FBI for his performance. Mr. Friend is a graduate of the University of Notre Dame. And again, after this service to our country, the FBI questions his loyalty to the country. Mr. Allen is a whistleblower and staff operations specialist with the FBI Charlotte field office. Mr. Allen served 20 years of experience as an intelligence professional in the FBI and the United States Armed Services. Prior to joining the FBI, Mr. Allen served in the United States Marine Corps.
He sure
including
does.
service in Iraq, Kuwait, and Japan. In the Marines, Mr. Allen received several awards, including the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, and the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal. Mr. Allen received an honorable discharge from his Marine Corps duty. And again, the letter we got from the FBI, they're questioning his commitment to our country. I find that astounding. Prior to blowing the whistle, Mr. Allen received several awards from the FBI, including being selected as Employee of the Year for the Charlotte Field Office
Oh
in
yeah, she's
2019.
quite.
Mr. Allen
She's
holds a
got the
Bachelor of Arts
lips.
degree from
Yes,
American
gal, she's got
Military
the lips, and she's got the
University.
little puffy
Mr. Tristan
sleeves,
Levitt.
and she's looking
Mr. Levin
quite,
is an attorney
she's
and the
looking good
president
in
of
the
Empower
brunette hair.
Oversight,
Don't you
an
think she look
organization
good in the
dedicated to
brunette hair? I
enhancing
think she looks
independent
very
oversight
good.
of government
She look
and
like
corporate
almost like an
wrongdoing.
American.
Prior to joining Empower Oversight, Mr. Levitt was a Senate-confirmed member of the United States Merit System Protection Board,
Oh yeah,
which
white
adjudicates
nationalists are
whistleblower
cheese,
retaliation
right?
claims.
Sunshine.
Mr. Levitt also served as the principal deputy special counsel at the Office of the Special Counsel, which enforces federal whistleblower laws.
Yeah, okay.
Earlier in his career, Mr. Levitt was a counsel for Senator Grassley on the Senate
I
Judiciary
worked at a
Committee and
hospital. It
staffer on the
doesn't make
House
me a
Oversight and
doctor.
Government Reform Committee. He's a graduate of Brigham
Oh,
Young
yeah, you
University
do have great
and
cheese.
Georgetown University Law
Oh,
Center,
there's Mickey.
and is
That's
considered an
right.
expert on the
Mickey's right there,
whistleblower
and there's
law.
Gary. Gary
As far as I know,
McBride
the
is
FBI
sitting right
hasn't
next
requested
door.
his
The guy
loyalty to
who
the country.
fucked over his family and
We welcome our witnesses
etc.
and thank them
So
for appearing
that's him
today.
right next door.
We'll begin by swearing you in. Would you please stand
Besides
and
your
raise your right
channel, Jim
hand?
Jordan is going to make this a shit show for Newsmax and all. Yeah, exactly.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and beliefs, so help
It's
you God?
not. It's not.
Let the record show that each witness answered in the affirmative. Thank you. Please be seated.
Yeah, backwards
Please know
hat
that your
guy.
written
He's a
testimony will be
puker.
entered into the
He
record
is
in
a
its
puker.
entirety.
Why are you wearing a hat
Accordingly,
in
we
a
ask that you summarize your
congressional chamber?
testimony in approximately 5 minutes. We're going to give you plenty
Why
of
are
time.
you wearing a hat in a
If you
congressional
can keep it around
chamber?
5, great, but
Take your hat
go
off,
over.
sir.
No worries there.
Take your fucking hat
And we will
off.
start with Mr. O'Boyle. Mr. O'Boyle, you're recognized for your opening
So
statement.
rude. These people are so rude.
Chairman Jordan,
This is why we can't
members
do
of the
nice
committee,
things, because none of you can
thank you
follow
for
social
addressing FBI
conventions.
malfeasance and allowing me to speak today. Aside from that point of gratitude, I'm sad,
And
I'm
no
disappointed,
haircut?
and I'm angry that I have to be here to testify about the weaponization of the FBI and DOJ.
Ugh.
Weaponization against not only its own employees, but against those institutions and individuals that are supposed to protect the American people. I'm here
you?
today because even though I am wrongfully suspended from the FBI, I remain duty-bound to the American people to play my small role in rectifying these issues.
Yeah, stupid
After
alert.
all, I never swore an oath to the FBI. I swore an oath to the Constitution.
Yeah, the sads.
I've served my nation and community my entire adult life, first in the United States Army, then as a police officer, and lastly as an FBI special agent. Shortly after high school, I joined the United States Army where I served in the infantry, and I was quickly promoted through the ranks. I deployed to both Iraq and Afghanistan in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. I served in the historic 101st Airborne Division. I received the Combat Infantryman's Badge, which is awarded to those infantrymen who engage in ground combat with our nation's enemies. The Army's official motto is, "This will defend." Along with
So it was
numerous
in the
others,
script,
I
gal,
volunteered to
because
serve
it was
this
in the
nation,
script.
risking my life in combat to protect
Ukulele.
America and her values. I know some of the best men and women this country has to offer. They come from all backgrounds, races, and creeds. They helped mold me into the person I am today. Each was willing to sacrifice, and many
With that
did,
hair,
to protect this great
I would be
nation.
proud of it.
It is our duty to honor their sacrifices by standing up for what is right, regardless of the difficulty. After serving in the Army, I became a police officer. Police officers, like me, are imperfect beings, but we strive to uphold the law and the Constitution.
Does that mean you got kicked out of the
People
police
who go to work
force?
every day trying to make their communities better, yet who nonetheless are faced with budget
Has
cuts
somebody
and
had
calls for
problems
defunding
keeping
as
a
we continue
job?
spiraling away from law and order as a nation. While serving as a police officer, I finished my bachelor's degree, graduating with honors in criminology and law studies. Shortly thereafter, I began the long road to becoming an FBI special agent, a position I once understood to be the pinnacle of law enforcement and a way to continue to serve this nation and protect and defend the Constitution. During my 4 years as a special agent, I received the highest annual review
Wow,
an
he's
employee
like
can
not,
receive,
he was with
volunteered
everything
for,
less
tried out
than
for, and was
10
selected for
years.
an FBI SWAT
Less
team.
than 7
I
years.
also volunteered
What
for,
the
tried
hell?
out for, and was selected for a new unit
Does
the
this guy
FBI
hold a
created.
job? I'm just kidding.
I also received an award for my work on an anti-abortion extremism case. I've been smeared as a malcontent and subpar FBI
I
employee.
only wish my
This
beard
smear
had
stands in stark
grown
contrast to my
faster
life in
before
public
I had to
service.
testify today.
This smear campaign, disgusting as it is unsurprising. Despite our oath to uphold the Constitution, too many in the FBI aren't willing to sacrifice for the hard right over the
His
easy
clearance
wrong.
got pulled? Oh
They
my
see
god.
what becomes of whistleblowers, how the FBI destroys their careers, suspends them under false pretenses, takes their security clearances and pay with no true options for real recourse or remedy. This is by design.
Well, isn't that when you get in
Creates an
trouble?
Orwellian
When you
atmosphere
get in
that
trouble, they
silences
take your
opposition and
clearance away.
discussion.
That's how it
We
works.
know what is right to do.
That's worse.
Yet we too often refuse to do what is right because of the difficulty and suffering it incurs. I couldn't knowingly continue on this path silently without speaking out against the weaponization I witnessed, even if it meant losing my job,
Word. Everybody drink on the word
career,
weaponization.
my livelihood, my family's home, and now my anonymity.
Up.
It's up to members of this committee, current and former FBI employees, and indeed all Americans to ensure that the weaponization of our own government against the people comes to an end, no matter the personal cost. As James Madison prudently opined, in framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the government, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself.
This is really turning into a
Safeguards currently in place at
homoerotic
the
fantasy,
FBI are clearly inadequate and must be reworked to
I'm
protect
getting a little hot
whistleblowers
and
and others
bothered
who are
over here,
inappropriately
thinking about all
targeted.
those men at the FBI.
The FBI can extract whatever they want from me. I'm willing to bear that burden. I'm sworn to defend this country
I'm
from
ready to
enemies,
go to
both foreign and
jail.
domestic,
If
even
you're
if
not
that
ready
means
to go to
sacrificing my
jail
life.
for your
I've lived that oath out since first
activism,
enlisting in the
you're
Army,
not an
consistently
activist.
saying, here am I, send me.
Shut up.
My oath, however, did not include sacrificing the hopes, dreams, and livelihood of my family. My strong, beautiful, and courageous wife, and our 4 sweet and beautiful daughters who have endured this process along with me. In weaponized fashion, the FBI allowed me to accept orders to a new position halfway across the country. They allowed us to sell my family's home. They ordered me to report to the new unit when our youngest daughter was 2 weeks old. Then, on my first day
this
on
guy
the
is
new
just a
assignment,
disgruntled
they
employee.
suspended me,
Can we call a thing a
rendering my family
thing?
homeless.
He is literally just a disgruntled employee. Period.
They refused to release our goods, including our clothes, for weeks. All I wanted to do was serve my country by stopping bad guys and protecting the innocent.
So this is
To my chagrin,
a
bad
grievance.
guys have begun running parts of the government,
I'm a
making
whistle.
it difficult
Where's
to
the
continue
FBI? I'd like
to serve
to
this
blow.
nation and protect the innocent. But I, for one, will never stop trying. And I'll never forget my oath.
Okay, the thing is, dude, you did forget your oath, and that's why we're
Thank you,
here.
Mr. Boyle.
Okay,
God
that's
bless
why
you.
your fucking ass is fired.
Mr. Friend, you're
Because you
recognized for your
clearly forgot
opening
your
statement.
oath on a number of occasions.
Thank you, Chairman Jorman and members of the committee. My name is Stephen Friend. I'm a senior fellow for the Center for Renewing America. Prior to assuming my current position, I was a special agent for the Federal Bureau of Investigation
remember this
for
guy.
8.5 years. During that time,
Where
I
have we
investigated
seen
approximately
this
200
guy?
violent crimes, such as aggravated assaults, murder,
All
child
for saying, I
abuse,
swore
rape,
not to defend this
robbery,
country from
child
domestic
molestation,
with an
child
attitude on
pornography,
domestic,
and
yeah.
human trafficking. I also served 5 years on an FBI SWAT team. I spent
Why
5
doesn't
years
it
as a
have to
local
do?
law
She doesn't have
enforcement officer
anything
in
to
the
do
state
with
of Georgia.
anything. She's trying to get on
In August
TV. Somebody's
2022,
telling her to
I
do
made
this, must
protected
be.
whistleblower
Someone's
disclosures
telling
to
me
my
to
immediate
do it.
supervisor, assistant special agents in
There's
charge,
nothing else
and
to
special
do
agent in
either.
charge about my concerns regarding January 6
Center for Renewing
investigations assigned to my
America.
office. I
God, there's
believe
always a
our
group.
departures
There's
from
always a
case
center.
management rules established in the FBI's Domestic Investigations and Operations Guide could have undermined potentially righteous prosecutions and may have been part of an effort to inflate the FBI's statistics on domestic extremism. I also voiced concerns that the FBI's use of SWAT and large-scale arrest operations to apprehend suspects who were accused of nonviolent crimes and misdemeanors represented by counsel and who pledged to cooperate with the federal authorities in the event of criminal
Okay, so
charges
he's saying
created an
that they
unnecessary
used
risk to
excessive
FBI
force.
personnel
That's his
and
whistle
public
blow.
safety.
That's the whistle
At
he's
each level of
blowing.
my chain of command,
Which
leadership
whistle are you
cautioned that
blowing?
despite my exemplary work
QAnon
performance,
cult, yeah, where we
whistleblowing
go,
placed my
London, go
otherwise
home,
bright
yeah.
future with the FBI at risk. Special agents take an oath to protect the U.S. Constitution. The dangers of federal law enforcement overreach were hammered home to me when I was required to attend trainings at the Holocaust Memorial Museum and MLK Memorial. I cited my oath and training in my conversations with my FBI supervisors.
He does look like a serial
Nevertheless, the
killer.
FBI weaponized the security clearance processes to facilitate my removal from active duty within 1 month of my disclosures.
Someone please check his
In
basement.
addition to an indefinite unpaid suspension, the FBI initiated a campaign of humiliation and intimidation to
You know,
punish
these
and
are all
pressure me to
disgruntled
resign.
employees. That's what I
In
get.
violation
This
of
is the
HIPAA,
disgruntled
individuals
employee
at the
panel.
FBI leaked my
Thank you.
private medical
Thank you for
information to a
coming
reporter
today.
at the New York
Tell us
Times.
where they hurt
In violation
you.
of the
Show us
Privacy
where
Act, the
they
FBI
touched you.
refused to furnish my training records for several months. To date, they only provide a portion of the records, which are essential to obtaining private investigator and firearms licenses in the state of
Because
Florida.
you shouldn't have them, probably.
Even after releasing some of the records, the FBI refuses to confirm their legitimacy
Oh,
to the
God.
Florida Department of Agriculture, rendering the few documents
He's
they
picking
have
his nose.
provided practically useless.
He's gonna pick his nose. He's gonna pick
The FBI denied my request to seek outside employment in an obvious attempt to deprive me of the ability
the
to support
panel
my
that
family.
Tony Schaefer built. That's right.
Finally, the FBI Inspection Division imposed an illegal gag order in
Tony
an attempt to
Schaefer
prevent me from communicating
is
with my family and
responsible for
attorneys.
these dudes.
Working as an FBI
Just so
special
you
agent was
know.
my dream job. My whistleblowing was apolitical and in the spirit of upholding my oath. Nonetheless, the FBI cynically elected to close ranks and attack the messenger. The FBI is incentivized to work against the American people and in dire need of drastic reform,
I know, they're
particularly
very
in these
mean.
areas.
Outside
The
employment
Integrated
reform,
Program
why do you
Management
need it
System
done?
incentivizes the use of inappropriate investigatory processes and tools to achieve arbitrary
Die mad,
statistical
salty
accomplishments.
bitch.
Mission
Die
creep
mad.
within the National Security Branch has refocused counterterrorism from legitimate foreign actors to political opponents within our
Oh, no,
borders.
no, no, honey, no,
The
no,
FBI
no, no,
weaponizes
no, no,
process
no,
crimes and
honey,
reinterprets
honey,
laws to
honey,
initiate
no, no, no,
contextual
no, no, they're
prosecutions
not just our
and
political
persecute its political enemies.
opponents,
Bureau
no.
intelligence analysis capability
No.
increasingly dictates operations, turning the FBI into an intelligence agency with a law enforcement capability.
If Stephen
FBI
Miller was a
collusion with
person,
big tech to gather intelligence on Americans, censor political speech, and target citizens for malicious prosecution.
if Stephen Miller
A
were
dysfunctional
human,
promotion process fosters a revolving door of inexperienced,
Stephen Miller's
ambitious
human
FBI
form.
supervisors ascending the management ladder within the agency. FBI informant
That's a
protocols
Stephen
that are
Miller if
broken
I ever
or
saw one.
abusive. The FBI skirts the Whistleblower Protection Act and
He was
exploits
in a
the security
documentary
clearance
with Josh
revocation
Hawley on
process
being
to
manly.
expel
Okay,
employees who make
I
legally
know I've
protected
seen this
disclosures.
guy. I've seen this guy before.
I am pleased to see the Weaponization Committee is taking testimony from FBI whistleblowers. I would also like to take this opportunity to address correspondence recently received by the subcommittee. Yesterday,
Oh.
May 17, 2023, FBI Acting Assistant Director Christopher Dunham submitted a letter to this subcommittee. Portions of his letter concern the suspension and revocation of my security clearance. Parenthetically, I also received a letter from the FBI Executive Assistant Director, Jennifer Moore, yesterday, notifying me that my
been a while.
security clearance was revoked. I find the timing of these letters dubious, but leave that up to the subcommittee's determination.
No, it's not.
Instead, I would like to address
You
and add
like
vital
the
context
clearance. Yeah.
to the portion of Mr. Dunham's letter pertaining to my alleged violation of Adjudicative Guideline J. Mr. Dunham is referring to an audio recording I created of my August 23, 2022 meeting with Jacksonville Assistant Special Agents in Charge, Colt Markowski and Sean Ryan.
Ruh-roh.
After making protected whistleblower disclosures to my immediate supervisor in August 19, 2022, ASAC Markowski summoned me to a meeting at the FBI Jacksonville office. ASAC Markowski told me the meeting was intended to be an opportunity to discuss my concerns. I anticipated the meeting might
If you have
ultimately
to have
lead
a
to my
meeting about
executive
being a
managers
manly man,
attempting
then
to
you're not
compel
going
me
to be
to
a manly
participate
man.
in an activity
Period.
which
Move
placed
on.
public safety at risk. I was concerned ASAC Markowski and ASAC Ryan may threaten adverse actions toward my career as a result of my whistleblower disclosure. Prior to the meeting, I consulted Florida law,
We roam around
confirmed
the
that a law
forest
enforcement exemption
looking
exists
for
for state
fights.
two-party consent restriction. I decided to record the meeting to memorialize our discussion and my concerns about the FBI's misconduct. When I entered the FBI Jacksonville office building, ASAC Markowski and ASAC Ryan were having a private meeting. I waited for them in a conference room.
Me too.
When they entered, all of us placed our cellular phones on the conference table. As an experienced investigator who has conducted hundreds of recorded interviews, I noted how both ASAC Markowski and ASAC Ryan repeated themselves throughout our discussion and continually insisted I agree to their premise that I was insubordinate and refusing to perform my job. I rebuffed each allegation and repeated that I believed I was
It's
fulfilling my
actually
oath of office. By making my disclosure about
Robin
the
Hood
FBI's
Men in
rule of
Tights or
departure
something.
and the
Robin Hood
inappropriate risk to
something. It's a
public
parody
safety
movie.
via aggressive arrest
Peter
tactics for
Navarro in
January
a
6
fake beard.
subjects.
Hell yeah, it
It is
is.
my sincere belief that my
Trying
ASACs
to
were
look
also
like
recording our conversation.
glasses.
In January 2023, I participated in an
He
interview
looks like
with the FBI Security Division. During that interview, I was asked if I recorded my
Carl
August
Jung.
23, 2022 meeting
Oh,
with
Men in
ASAC
Tights.
Markowski
That's it.
and ASAC
Thank you.
Ryan. I answered honestly that I had. Although it would seem to be an obvious and natural follow-up,
Yeah, it's Carl Young in the
FBI
back,
Security Division
actually. And then
interviewers
next
did
to
not
him is
request a
an
copy of
older
the
Alex
recording.
Jones,
FBI Security Division
followed
should be
by
gravely concerned
Boiled Potato
if
Man
executive
Head.
managers threaten subordinate
And,
whistleblowers
oh, there's
with adverse
Daryl.
action.
Fuck you,
I
Daryl.
submitted
Thought you were
that
dead.
this omission by the
I guess I
FBI
was hoping you were
Security
dead.
Division solidifies
But
my
you're not dead.
contention that ASACs Markowski and Ryan created their own recording of our meeting. The FBI was not concerned about potential whistleblower retaliation. The Bureau was only interested in learning if these
He
actions
recorded
were
his
at risk of
superiors.
exposure.
Okay, you see, here's the thing. Here is the thing.
I pray
Here
that
is the
all
thing.
members
If
consider the
you are in
information
a
I and my fellow
security-based
whistleblowers present.
business
You may
and
think I'm a
your
political
bosses
partisan.
don't think they can
You may
trust
think
you,
I am a grifter.
I would think
You
that's
may
actually
think I'm a
just the
conspiracy
point.
theorist. It does not matter.
If my
Simply
bosses
put,
can't
this
trust
committee
me, I
should avoid
probably
the temptation
am
to
going to
impugn
be
the
fine.
character and the motivations of the messengers seated before you. I sacrificed my dream job to share this information with the American people.
No,
I
you
humbly ask all the members to do your jobs and consider
You
the
were never
merit
going
in
to
what
get
I
your
have
dream
presented.
job, sweetie.
Thank you.
Sweetie!
Thank you, Mr. Friend. I appreciate your
Does
testimony.
his
Mr. Allen,
coat
you are now
have
recognized for your
different
opening statement.
lapels? Oh, interesting. Now I need to see
Thank
it.
you, Chairman. Hello, my name is Marcus Allen. I'm a staff
The famous
operations
football
specialist for
player?
the
Oh my
FBI in
god,
the
I love
Charlotte
you.
Field Office.
I'm so
Due to
good.
whistleblower retaliation by the FBI, I've been suspended without pay for over a
I
year.
am Anon, hear me roar.
Thank you to the committee for allowing me time today to convey my concerns about the current FBI. In particular, I am
Hey,
concerned, and I
Margaret.
believe this committee should also be concerned about
How
the
are you?
FBI's use of the
Welcome.
security clearance process to retaliate against whistleblowers.
Wait.
First, though, just so you
He
know a
looks like
little
a
bit about
cartoon
me,
character.
I served honorably in the United States Marine Corps from 2000 to
Oh, too
2005.
big.
I was deployed to Kuwait and served 2 tours in Iraq and contributed to Operation Iraqi Freedom. During my deployments, I was exposed to live enemy fire on numerous occasions, even though I served primarily in analytical and intelligence roles.
Today she has
I
to
was awarded
sit
the
in this
Navy and
room
Marine
for
Corps
all day long,
Commendation
and it's
Medal
very
and the Navy and
bad.
Marine
She
Corps
wanted to
Achievement
get her
Medal.
nails done.
I eventually joined the
An
FBI
appointment at
and
the
was Employee of the
salon
Year in
for a wax.
2019 in the Charlotte Field
And
Office.
now here she has
As
to
the
sit
holder
and
of a top
wait for
secret security
boyfriend.
clearance since
This fake
2001,
boyfriend,
I've been
of course,
trusted with the
because
nation's
she
greatest
would not
secrets.
pick these kind of
So why am I
guys
here
if she
today?
was just picking on
Despite my
corn.
history of unblemished
Trust and
service to the
believe
United
me.
States, the
But
FBI suspended
but
my security clearance,
Natasha is sitting
accusing me
behind
of
and
actually being
saying, I am
disloyal
just
to my
waiting for the
country.
moment when
This
I
outrageous
can
and
escape
insulting
and get to my
accusation
new
is based
project,
on
and then maybe they will
unsubstantiated
let me be a
accusations
blonde
that I
again,
hold
because when I was a blonde,
conspiratorial
things were more
views
fun, and
regarding the
then
events of
this
January
brunette thing
6,
is no good. It's not
2021,
working
and
for
that
me.
I
I
allegedly
don't get
sympathized with
nearly
criminal
enough
conduct.
attention from
I
men
do
like
not.
the brunette
I
hair.
was
You
not
need
in
the blonde
Washington,
hair.
D.C. on January 6th, played no part in the events of
Nicole?
January
Oh
6th,
yeah,
and I condemn all criminal activity that occurred.
there's Nicole.
Instead, it appears that I was retaliated against because I forwarded information to my
Look at the
superiors and others
juxtaposition of their
that
two
questioned the
faces.
official narrative of the
Like
events of
Nicole's
January 6th.
raggedy ass
As a
face,
result,
and then
I
the
was
Russian
accused of promoting
Matryoshka doll.
conspiratorial views and
On the
unreliable
inside, she has
information.
little Russian
Because
monster,
I did
little
this,
Ivan
the
the
FBI
Terrible inside
questioned
of
my
her, and she
allegiance to the
comes
United
out, and then
States.
everybody's dead.
Since I was suspended, there's been a dearth
Oh,
of communication from
Vladivostok
the
will be a
FBI,
Chinese port
with
from June 1st
interactions
on. Are
seemingly
you
only being
kidding?
forced by actions from my
Marie,
counsel
are you
or members of
kidding?
Congress. For example, I was not even interviewed by anyone from the FBI until May of 2022.
Wow.
I was suspended in January of
What'd you
2022.
do? No.
This interaction with the FBI happened on the heels of a public statement from a congressional member in early May of 2022. The member made statements indicating the FBI was conducting a purge of employees with conservative viewpoints. Within hours of the public statements, my counsel
Who would
received a
have
phone
said
call
that?
from the FBI wanting to see if they could conduct an interview. I promptly complied and did an interview with investigators within a week. Throughout this
Making
ordeal,
sense.
I and my counsel have responded quickly,
Come on,
whereas the
Goldman.
FBI has only
Skewer 'em.
stonewalled.
Skewer 'em.
I have filed a federal civil rights
Skewer 'em,
lawsuit,
Daniel.
which is pending, seeking to recover my livelihood and restore my good name.
I need my.
Recently, my counsel filed a whistleblower
Oh, Alex
complaint
Oliver.
with the
Oh,
Justice
okay.
Department's
I have
Office of
to
Inspector
put my
General.
fan on,
The
so hold on.
complaint set forth retaliation through misuse of the security clearance process, as well as reprisal against me for making a protected disclosure. Interestingly enough, in the wake of filing the complaint, I received correspondence from the FBI indicating that my clearance had now been formally revoked. This occurred after filing my complaint with the IG.
You're not the boss of
The
me.
new and baseless claims made in the letter
But he
had
is
never
the
been
boss
brought
of
up
him.
prior to the issuance of the security clearance
Moscow
revocation
Times.
letter. I have never had the opportunity to
You
defend
question
myself.
the official
I only had
narrative.
one interview with
Call
the
it that, but
FBI,
it
which
gets
occurred
sent
a
to
year
you.
ago after apparent prompting from Congress. In that interview, the
It's
investigators,
extremist.
towards the
That's
end of the
right. Thank you,
interview,
Gal. It's
uttered in
extremist
response to my
viewpoints, not conservative
exasperation,
viewpoints. Because
"Don't
unless
sue us."
conservative thinks they're
This has
extremists,
been a trying
then we shouldn't have a
circumstance for
problem.
me and my family.
Trust me, there's
It has been
Republicans
more than a
inside of the
year since the
FBI.
FBI took my paycheck from me, and we're getting financially crushed.
I can't. You're
My
not going to
family and
tell
I
me
have
that
been
all of the
surviving on
FBI
early
agents are
withdrawals from our
Democrats.
retirement
You're just
accounts,
not going to
while
tell
the
me that.
FBI has
Sorry.
ignored my
I'm
request for
sorry.
approval to obtain outside employment during the review of my security clearance. We have lost our federal health insurance coverage, and there's apparently
Oh,
no end in
boo-hoo.
sight. I'm hopeful scrutiny
Welcome
from
to our
Congress and
world.
from the Inspector General will deter the
Oh
FBI
my
from
God.
abusing the security clearance
The
process to
entitlement is
retaliate
just crazy.
against others the way it's retaliated against me. This is why I filed a whistleblower retaliation complaint with the IG and why I'm here today to answer your questions.
Natasha's
Thank you.
there
And I also have a rebuttal if the
holding
member will
the
allow me to.
recorder so
Thank you.
she can record what he's saying.
This is a rebuttal of the
Happy
FBI correspondence just recently sent to the committee in reference to my clearance suspension and now revocation.
Vyshivanka.
Calumny is not a word to be thrown around lightly. In regards to the FBI's treatment of me, it is fitting. This is conduct unbecoming of an organization given the public trust.
Oh man,
Think about
bitter,
that.
bitter bitch. What
My
a little
treatment,
bitter
without a
bitch.
doubt, has sent a chilling
What a
effect
little bitter,
to what
tiny
semblance
bitch.
remains of an analytical cadre.
I'll tell you the times that dudes
This was not a
that were
thorough
treating me were
investigation
acting
in
like
my
little
regard.
bitches sometimes.
I've not been afforded an
I'll tell you
opportunity
that.
to
It's
appropriately
not
defend
often, but
myself
boy, there was
or
a couple
confront the
that were
claims made against
little bitches.
me. Interestingly, the revocation language citing Guideline E
This
is
guy
the
reminds me
first
of one of
instance I've ever seen referring to this specific guidance in my case.
Nothing's my
The claim that I obstructed a lawful
fault.
investigation is dubious, and I do not recall ever being admonished for such an infraction. In regards to the paragraph in the letters highlighting an alleged incident with a special agent, I have no idea what it refers to.
This is
This
all
alleged
like
incident did not
grievance.
come up at all
This
during
isn't
the alleged
whistleblowing.
thorough investigation.
This is I got
Again, as
suspended.
with Guideline E, this is the first appearance of
That's
this
not.
allegation during this
That's
entire
actually
ordeal.
not whistleblowing because I haven't
Next,
heard
I do
anything
not
that is
recall
actual
ever
whistleblowing.
receiving a directive to stop sending information in regards to the 6th. Why would you not want any more information sent to you? Furthermore, the September 29,
Does the FBI not have an
2021
HR
email
department?
referred to in the letter is part of a protected
I mean, I love
disclosure, and
whistleblowers.
this correspondence
Don't get me
represents documentary evidence of a protected disclosure as a source of retaliation and reprisal. Alternative analysis
called
and differing
whining. Yeah,
viewpoints
this
should be
is like
welcomed,
the
even though they may not be
whining
ultimately
committee.
acted upon by the actual decision makers. Groupthink should not be an ethos championed in an investigative organization.
I have an
To
ethos.
shut down differing viewpoints is the end of any analytical or investigative body. It sends a chilling effect across the workforce and does not allow for
don't kill
intellectual
my
freedom,
vibes,
which is vital
it's
to
my
any investigative
ethos.
body seeking out the truth. It is possible the ire towards my perspective could have been due to folks wanting to maintain invincible ignorance instead of consciously and mentally transferring over to willful ignorance.
No.
This is the end of
no,
my statement. Thank you for my
No.
time.
Hi.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
That.
Mr. Levitt.
No. there's
Chairman
no-
Jordan,
no.
Ranking Member
You need
Plaskett,
to
members
just
of the
move
subcommittee,
around.
thank you
Nope.
so much for the
Okay.
invitation to testify today. I currently serve as the
No
president
cats
of
on set.
Power Oversight. We're honored to represent Stephen Friend and Marcus Allen. FBI whistleblowers have second-class
this is a lawyer.
status compared to those in most
Okay.
federal agencies. When Congress adopted the modern system of whistleblower
Oh,
protections,
he's a
it
something.
prohibited retaliation against FBI whistleblowers. But it gave them none of the process other federal law enforcement agencies received, like the DEA, the ATF, U.S. Marshals, and Secret Service. Whistleblowers of those agencies can all file retaliation complaints with the U.S. Office of Special Counsel, an
Mickey's like a
independent
prop.
agency. FBI whistleblowers cannot.
Ashley Babbitt's mother.
Whistleblowers
the
at those
white
agencies
t-shirt
can all
there,
repeal
is a
retaliation
prop.
to the Merit
And they
Systems
trot her
Protection
out
Board, on
every
which I
day.
recently served.
Put her somewhere
Until
else.
just last year,
On
FBI
TV.
whistleblowers could not.
I don't think it really matters
They
where
finally
she
got
is.
that right
As
in
long as
last
she's on
December's
TV.
NDAA. But
He was
Congress must
represented by
ensure
Teachers
that this
Watch
new
and
jurisdiction
Tom
applies
Shirtley.
as intended to all FBI retaliation cases. Many have been wending their way for years
Tom
through
Fitton looks like a
DOJ's
Pokemon.
long and
Fight me.
extensive process. But the
Nazi
laws
haircut
prohibiting
says what?
retaliation have been on the
It is a
books that
Nazi
entire
haircut.
time.
Groiper much?
The FBI cannot claim now
Oh
that these are
no.
new
I'm
rights
sorry. I don't know
just
who
because
you
they
are,
now
but
have to
that is
justify
not
their
the
actions
color.
before
No,
the
no,
MSPB.
no, no. Shan't be the
Time
color.
has demonstrated, in my opinion, that it was a mistake to exclude the FBI from the standard whistleblower protection process. It discourages integrity and encourages deceit and even corruption. Congress should treat the FBI the same as all other federal law enforcement agencies, eliminating a special exception and giving its employees access to OSC to investigate retaliation. The hardworking employees of the FBI deserve equal protection of the law.
Well, yeah.
The FBI's
All
latest
employees
troubling
deserve
practice
that.
is suspending security clearances to
All
retaliate
employees
against whistleblowers. Mr. Friend and Mr. Allen, along with Mr. O'Boyle, are just several public examples of this trend.
No, you're just ruining
When the
the
FBI
concept
suspends a
of
clearance, it
whistleblowing
also
by
immediately suspends
fucking
the employee indefinitely,
faking it.
without pay. To make matters worse, it holds them and their families hostage by requiring them to get permission to take another job, permission the FBI
Oh
routinely
my,
denies.
have you, hello,
Congress
have
needs to
you,
ensure the FBI
have
stops
you met
this
a
abuse.
non-compete agreement? because
In
I
light
have
of all these
multiple
obstacles for
times.
FBI whistleblowers, you would think
Try
Congress
and
would
build a
do
book
everything that it
multiple
could to
times.
welcome their
Okay?
disclosures here. But FBI employees coming to
That's what
Congress
you do.
have unfortunately been shamefully
Wine
treated
or
by
blowing
Democrats on
one.
this committee.
Blow me.
It's one thing to hear allegations and find them
Blowing me would be
unpersuasive
more
or even
effective for their
distasteful.
whistleblowing.
An office can even ignore those allegations if they choose. That's their prerogative. But to go out and
Stacey's like,
actively
wait till
smear the
my
individuals
question,
making disclosures
bitch.
is far worse. That's what the Democrats on this committee did when they released a March 2nd report entitled GOP Witnesses, What Their Disclosures Indicate About the State of the Republican Investigations. That report was inaccurate, both on the law and on the facts. The law doesn't define the term whistleblower. Instead, it protects from retaliation individuals who engage in protected activity. For over a century, simply making disclosures of any information to Congress has been a protected activity. Furthermore, an appropriations rider in effect at this time prohibits money from paying the salary of any federal employee who prohibits or prevents any other federal employee, such as FBI whistleblowers, from communicating with Congress.
No,
The
that's
Democrats'
not,
report denied
Okay,
whistleblower
there's a
status
thing
to
called an
individuals
email.
engaged in the precise activity the
There's an
legislative
email.
branch has considered protected since 1912. The report's reliance on evidence for whistleblower status is also misplaced. Simply communicating a reasonable belief of misconduct is protected whistleblower activity under the law.
It is until
This
it's
applies regardless
investigated.
of whether the
Okay?
whistleblower
It is
produces
until it's
evidence at that
investigated.
time backing up their
That's what you
allegations.
do. You investigate
Only
things.
protecting whistleblower disclosures accompanied by
Oh,
conclusive
God.
evidence, as the Democrats seem to
Harriet.
require, would
Oh,
have
Jesus.
disastrous consequences for retaliation throughout the
Oh,
federal government.
Wally.
My experience working for Congress was that whistleblowers brought allegations,
Beautiful
and
one.
where the committees found those allegations worthy of further follow-up and congressional action, we conducted investigations. No one expects a private citizen to investigate a crime before going to the police, and we didn't expect a whistleblower to investigate their own agency. That's also essentially how the law for remedying retaliation through the MSPB is set up, where making a non-frivolous allegation leads to discovery, interviews, and more. Simply put, the burden isn't on the whistleblower to produce the evidence at the outset. That's why there's an investigative process.
Right.
The Democrats' report also got the facts wrong. For example, they claim DOJ IG declined to investigate Mr. Friend's claim, when in fact, DOJ IG will be interviewing Mr. Friend tomorrow and has an ongoing investigation. DOJ IG says no one from the Democrat staff ever contacted their office to verify this claim before issuing their report. Inexcusably, a number of mainstream media sources simply repeated the Democrats' wrong information
You know what's
uncritically
funny is that
without
just the
bothering to
way
check the
you
facts for
say
themselves,
something
which is why there were multiple retractions.
can give it some
FBI
weight.
whistleblowers have traveled a hard
But
road
if
over
you
the
listen
years.
to the
They should be
actual
treated by Congress
words,
the
they're
same as other
not
whistleblowers.
saying
Issuing reports
what they're
smearing
trying
those who
to
come
convey.
forward from the FBI
It's very
will
interesting. This is
unquestionably
also
deter
interesting.
others from taking that same path. Congress must have firsthand information about how federal agencies are operating to perform its constitutional duty of oversight. Why would future whistleblowers
Yeah,
bring their
maybe don't
disclosures
go
to
on
Congress
Fox
if they
and
think
talk
they might
about
be
your
treated
case
like
before
this?
it's resolved. That's a good
Attacking
idea.
whistleblowers hurts this committee and others, the
Yeah.
House of Representatives as an
You have to
institution,
actually be
and Congress
professional
as a
during
whole.
these things.
Thank you.
It's still required.
Thank you, Mr. Levitt. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from Wyoming for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Jordan. I want to thank our witnesses today for their service to our country,
I'm gonna fix the window.
service which includes their willingness to provide protected disclosures to ensure that the federal government is held accountable for wrongdoing. We've heard their testimony, and my colleagues will ask more questions so we can further understand the wrongdoing they have exposed and the retaliation that they have now suffered. As this hearing gets underway, I want to focus on the cultural changes that have occurred within the FBI over the last 20+ years, fundamental changes that have led to the political capture of our flagship law enforcement agencies, and with the Democrats using these agencies as their own personal political hacks. What happened that allowed for politicization to permeate every facet of the FBI? Well, there are many things, but I think we must focus on the information that was provided by retired FBI Special Agent Thomas Baker, who testified before the Select Subcommittee earlier this year. Mr. Baker explained that in the aftermath of 9/11, and upon being embarrassed by being scolded by President Bush for not being able to stop it from happening, then FBI Director Robert Mueller made the decision to fundamentally change the FBI from a law enforcement body to an intelligence-driven one. Such a redirection of the very purpose of the FBI resulted in centralizing its power in Washington, D.C., while placing less emphasis on the field offices. Changes that replaced agent executives in the headquarters with so-called professionals from the outside, and stockpiling more and more power in D.C. and away from the country that it serves. 9/11 was a watershed moment for many reasons. It was a horrific terrorist attack on the shores of the United States of America. But our government's ultimate response is also tragic. And by eventually finding a way to target not the terrorists, but American citizens, which is where the FBI and DOJ are at this point in time. Both the DOJ and the FBI, they've used the FISA court to obtain illegitimate surveillance authority. They've targeted political campaigns with which they disagree. They have created a Russia hoax to cripple a duly elected president.
Okay, I
They have
love
targeted
turquoise
Catholics for
jewelry. I really
exercising their
do. It's
faith.
gorgeous.
They've targeted parents for wanting to protect their children.
How
And
How
so
can
what we
hers
can
look
say in short
so
is that the eye of
depressing?
Soren has turned inward, and it is burning with a
Yes, they
white-hot
targeted American Muslims. That's right.
that seeks to destroy everything in its path. What I think we can say is that as the DOJ and FBI have become more political, they have amassed more power. And as they have amassed
Political
more
under
power,
what?
they have become
Chris
more
Wray?
political.
Okay.
This is a vicious cycle that must be stopped. To be blunt, the leadership of the FBI and the DOJ are corrupt. I will name names. Christopher Wray and Merrick Garland are corrupt. They know it.
No.
We know it. And the American people know
I love when you know it.
Congress
You know
needs
this.
whistleblowers like you so that we can conduct our oversight
Created these think
and
tanks.
correct
Okay.
course on
This
these
person
abusive
did,
federal
and it created think
agencies.
tanks and
Sadly, what
extremists
we've
who think
already
they
seen and
need
what we will
rid
continue
the
to
world
see
of Muslims.
today
The crusade
is that the
came.
Democrats will not
That's
focus
the part
on the
we need to get
substance
people
of
on.
what these brave
We need
men
to
are
start
exposing,
syncing up people with
or
understanding how
engage
we
in a
got there.
discussion
All right,
about
I'm
how
gonna
to
say it
protect
again
our
and again.
constitutional rights and institutions
Until we do a
from the
better job of it.
tyrants that are running these agencies. Instead, what we will
There's
see
so much
is
I
that they
want
will
to do. I
deflect.
need a team.
They will
I
call the
need
witnesses names.
I need a
They
person.
will scream MAGA and extremist at the top of their lungs.
I have so many ideas.
They will attempt to impugn your integrity. But make no mistake, they are simply trying to
Trump's
cover
master
up the
move,
unforgivable
repost a lie
and
a
the
million
indefensible,
times to make it the truth.
which is the
Absolutely right,
creation of a
Hannah.
two-tiered justice
Absolutely
system
right.
based on political beliefs and the corruption of our political elites. I encourage the American people to listen to these witnesses,
Everyone on that witness
to
panel is
read the
associated with
Durham
Frank
report,
Gaffney and Ginny
to
Thomas.
study what is happening with
nonprofit.
the FBI and the
I did statement
DOJ,
jewelry, and I love it.
and
I'm
to
here for it.
listen and to sift through the
It's
lies
interesting
and
that I
recognize
don't
that
like
this
it on her.
nonsense
Maybe
must
it's in
stop,
person.
or we're going to lose the greatest republic that's ever existed in
We're
the
not.
history of the
Okay,
world.
we would lose it if you were in charge,
Thank you
Harriet.
for your willingness to come here. Thank you for your willingness to stand on the wall.
For willingness
Thank you for your willingness
fired.
to tell the truth about what these agencies are doing. America thanks you as well.
I don't.
And with
I don't
that, I
think
yield
you.
back.
No, I think you're
Gentlelady
disgusting.
yields back. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from California, Ms. Sanchez.
Mr. Chair, just as a point of order, I understand and we have been made aware from what you stated in your opening statement, as well as in a press conference earlier, that Mr. Allen did meet with you all and might have testimony that was transcribed. Neither, and I understand that he stated that he did not feel comfortable meeting with the Democrats. He's comfortable being here today in this open forum. We will be questioning him. Will you give us a copy of that testimony that was transcribed of your discussions with him?
That'll be up to Mr. Allen.
But you are in possession of them, aren't you?
Sure are.
So why would you not give them to us?
Mr. Allen's a whistleblower, and he didn't want that to happen. We'll
He
talk to
didn't
him.
want, but he's comfortable here in open discussion with us today?
Sure is, and you can ask him questions if you want.
You don't share your information with the minority?
Nope.
The whistle? No,
So you're not sharing information that you've obtained with the minority staff.
Whistleblower saw what you did with Mr. Friend
What?
and others, the false information you gave the press, so much so
No.
that they had to issue
What?
corrections.
The whistleblower doesn't
we've seen-
decide that, the committee decides it.
And
Les,
we
sit down.
decided.
And you've decided
We
that you're
decided to
not
have
going to
Mr.
share.
Mr. Allen is here. You can ask him questions, And we can talk about the testimony, but right now you're not getting the testimony. Mr.
But
Allen's here to testify.
And you'll give us the testimony when? After he's left, or at no point in time, or when will we have that? That's only for the Republicans. Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady did not state a point of order.
The point of
and the
order
gentlelady
was,
is
will
out of
he be
order.
giving us the testimony of the witness that is here before us, and
not a
that
point of
you
order.
have
Mr.
information
Mr.
of
Chairman, I asked
that you are
for-
not sharing with
Mr.
the
Chairman,
Democrats.
I moved that
I was indulging the ranking member. The gentleman from California is right. She's not stated a point of order. The 5-minute questioning
So the
time
point of
belongs to
order is
Ms.
I would like
Sanchez.
the testimony. I move that you give us the testimony of the individual.
Move to
who is
table.
here.
There's a motion been made, it's been moved to table. Chair, we will call.
We don't, Mr. Chairman, we don't have to table.
We asked for a recorded vote.
Recognize for that.
Mr. Chairman, can we have a
It sure
recorded vote?
is.
No, it's not a proper point
He's
of order.
looking a little stressed.
You just did a motion to table.
No.
Your
not
side
a
just
motion
did a
to
motion to table.
Not a proper motion.
Not a point of order.
The
Mr.
chair
Chairman,
has
I-
recognized the gentlelady
Oh, it's
from
Gates?
California, Ms. Sanchez,
Chairman,
for
I
her 5
have
minutes of
a
questioning.
point of inquiry. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
Oh, it is, yeah, it is
can I
Ms.
ask
Sanchez's time.
the chairman a question?
After Ms. Sanchez, I'll gladly take your question. Ms. Sanchez, and we will restore the 5 minutes for Ms. Sanchez.
wow.
I find it incredible that evidence that one side has garnered is not going to be shared with the other side. That is not how committees work. Chairman Jordan,
And I love
Ranking
her
Member
now,
Plaskett,
even
I
though
think
I'm
it's
not a
important
fan
that
of
we
the line.
recognize
Now I
this
love
hearing
her.
for what it actually is. Make no mistake, this hearing is a vehicle to legitimize the events of January 6th and the people who perpetrated it. And why? Because Donald Trump is running for president again. And if you normalize the events of January 6th, if you repeat his election fraud lies, then maybe he doesn't seem quite so extreme. Maybe it will be easier to overturn a free and fair election the next time. For those of you who have forgotten, on January 6th, a mob of people who believed Donald Trump's lie that the 2020 election was stolen stormed the Capitol, seeking to stop the certification of the 2020 presidential election. They erected a gallows on the lawn just outside this room, and they ran through the halls looking to find and hang the Vice President of the United States. It was a shocking moment of political violence, and many of us on this dais, including myself, were there that day. We all felt the fear of knowing that there were people roaming the Capitol looking to kill us. But clearly, some of us have quickly forgotten that. I've heard my colleagues on the other side of the aisle suggest that, quote, the FBI was participating in the insurrection. They called the rioters who attacked the Capitol, quote unquote, peaceful patriots and quote unquote, political prisoners. And they described the violence on January 6th as akin to a quote unquote, normal tourist visit. It was not. Last year, the Judiciary Committee even had to entertain a resolution on the repeatedly discredited Ray Earp's conspiracy theory. Mr. Allen, your security clearance was first suspended on January 10th, 2022. Is that correct? Yes or no will suffice. And the FBI's reason behind your suspension was because it found you to have, quote, espoused conspiratorial views, both orally in writing, and promoted unreliable information, which indicates support for the events of January 6th. Is that correct, yes or no?
That is the language that they placed on the letter.
That's a yes, then. Do you believe it's important for federal agents to have allegiance to the United States, yes or no?
It is absolutely important that personnel.
I'll take
for
that
the
as a
Okay, great.
yes.
That's a yes.
Do you believe you should have allegiance to the United States to possess a security clearance, yes or no?
Absolutely.
Do you believe your obligation as a federal agent should supersede your First Amendment right, yes or no?
Can you please rephrase the question, ma'am?
Do you believe that your obligation as a federal agent should supersede your First Amendment right, yes or no?
I don't know. Can you please rephrase the question again, ma'am?
Do you believe that you have an obligation to serve as a federal agent regardless of what your personal political beliefs are?
Yes, I have an
Thank you.
obligation to
Thank you.
serve the United
Do you
States.
believe that FBI agents should be permitted to express support for individuals who stormed the Capitol on January 6th? Yes or no?
I believe agents have to do their jobs, ma'am.
Do you believe that agents should be permitted to express their support for individuals who stormed the Capitol
Come on,
on
answer the
January
question,
6th?
bitch.
Yes or no? It's a simple question.
Simple.
No, you're supposed to be apolitical, ma'am, and do your job
So
as
that
an
is a
FBI
no?
person.
That's a no.
You're supposed to be
You
apolitical
idiot.
and do your job.
I'm asking for a simple yes or no.
Can you please rephrase
Not a
the
difficult question. Do you believe that FBI agents should be permitted to express support for individuals who stormed the Capitol on January 6th?
You should not be voicing support for criminal conduct. You have
Okay,
to do
thank
your
you.
job apolitically, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Allen, have you ever used Twitter? Yes or no?
I have utilized Twitter, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is your account at Marcus A970506645?
I know.
That is absolutely not my account.
Okay, that's not your account. Well, on December 5th, 2022, an account under the name Marcus Allen retweeted a tweet that said,
That
quote,
is not my account, ma'am.
you haven't let me finish the question,
Might have been
sir.
the football player.
You haven't let me finish the question. And the time is mine. On December 5th, 2022, an account under the name of Marcus Allen retweeted a tweet that said, quote, Nancy Pelosi staged January 6th, retweet if you agree, end quote. Do you agree with that statement?
They knew who
Yes or no?
was. Yep.
That is, I don't, no, ma'am. That's not my account at all. I have
I'm
no
asking
idea.
whether you agree with that statement, yes or no?
Can you please rephrase the
Yeah.
statement?
Do you think
Time of the
that
gentlelady
Nancy
has
Pelosi
expired.
staged January 6th? I just want him to answer
He'll
this
answer.
last
He'll answer.
question.
Yeah, he'll answer. I'm just telling you your time's up.
Do you believe that Nancy Pelosi, do you agree with the statement that this person tweeted that Nancy Pelosi staged January 6th? Yes or no?
don't- No.
Thank you. I yield back.
Chair, recognize the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Stefanik.
I yield to the chair.
Excuse me,
I
Mr.
think-
Chair, I think you were going to indulge the Congresswoman from Florida and her point of inquiry.
The
after.
gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my understanding that,
What do you, is
Whoa.
your making a point of order?
no, I'm asking you a question,
Or, okay,
a point of inquiry.
okay.
It's my understanding that the minority in this committee under the rules is entitled to the same testimony, information, documents that the majority is entitled to. So, I mean, I'm not aware that you're able to withhold information from the minority that we would need to use to
No.
prepare for a.
When it comes to whistleblowers, you're not. And I would just remind the committee,
aren't
remind everyone, look, when it
Mr.
comes
They
to
aren't
whistleblowers.
whistleblowing on the
That's not
Democrats.
right.
They're not
It's
whistleblowing on the
shocking that
Democrats.
That is not right.
It's shocking
In
that
fact,
the
you
gentleman.
talk so much about the
Mr. Chairman,
whistleblower and the impeachment.
It's shocking that the
We
gentleman
gave you
from New
all
York
of
would
the
state
information
that
we had.
when you were part
Yes,
of an
we gave you
investigation
all
with
Is that
an
Daniel
anonymous
Goldman?
information you
whistleblower.
had. We
Mr.
had.
Chairman, these
Mr.
individuals
Chairman, I
haven't been
can't
declared
hear
whistleblowers.
5 people at once.
I
Could
know.
we have regular
Okay,
order?
Mr. Chairman,
Chair recognizes it's.
I'm
I knew this was
inquiring,
gonna be
and I was
spicy.
not
And I
finished
told you
inquiring.
He's
that
making
when
up
it comes
shit.
to
Yeah.
whistleblowers, you are not entitled to it. That's
These
at the discretion of Mr. Allen.
Mr. Chairman, these
He said
individuals have been determined
he has
not
not
to be
agreed to that.
whistleblowers. These are not whistleblowers. They've been determined by the agency not to be whistleblowers. Are you deciding that they're whistleblowers?
Yes, the law decides. Did you not
No.
listen to Mr. Levitt's testimony? Did you not
No.
read the law? The
Your
law
attorney
decides
is
that they are
asserting-
No,
whistleblowers.
you
His
didn't.
attorney
The
is
chair
asserting that
recognizes
they are
the
whistleblowers.
Come on,
gentlelady
Debbie.
from
The
New
law
York.
has
Be
not
Debbie.
determined
Gentlelady
that
from
they are
New York
Debbie
has
it
been
up.
recognized.
The law has not determined they are whistleblowers. His attorney is
I
just
love
asserting
Goldman.
that.
I really do.
Gentlelady from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have lost my voice. I'm yielding to Mr. Gates.
I thank the gentlelady not only for yielding, but for her extensive work on these issues, not only during our hearings, but during the many
He's one of
depositions
the,
we've taken
hi, Badger.
to develop
He's one of the
evidence and to bring it
whistleblowers.
forward
Marcus
for the
Allen.
majority, the minority, and all of the country. And
Did you give us that evidence?
I know that if the gentlelady from
Are you
New
going to give
York
us that evidence?
was able to speak, that she'd certainly
Goldman is
She'd
priceless.
certainly be eager to do so. Mr. Allen, we just astonishingly heard a Democrat on this committee question your allegiance to the United States. How many tours in Iraq did you do?
I did 2 tours in Iraq, sir.
How many tours did
And
Eric
for how
Prince
many
do?
decades have you held a security clearance?
For 2 decades,
Awesome
sir.
woman.
Ever been called into question before?
No, sir.
And you also received the Employee of the Year Award for the Charlotte Field Office, is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Did you receive any medals during your service for the Marine Corps and the United States Navy?
I did, sir, as a
Can
member
you
of the
sit
Marine
up?
Corps. I
Can you sit
received
up straight,
a
Mr.
Navy
Allen, like a
Commendation Medal and a Navy
human?
Achievement Medal.
Seems to me your allegiance to the United States is pretty well established over multiple decades, wearing the uniform, fighting for our country,
you're
and I
not
am
really the
proud that you
harbinger
continue to
of
fight for our
allegiance to
country
the
as
United
a
States,
whistleblower
Matt.
here, making a
I
disclosure
gotta
to
be
the
honest.
United States Congress.
That's not working.
And Mr.
for us.
Allen, is it your belief that you were retaliated against because you shared an email that questioned the truthfulness of FBI Director Christopher Wray?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Flynn has
And you
medals
believed
too.
that he wasn't truthful based on testimony he'd given to the
He's a
United
whiner
States Senate,
blower.
isn't that right?
Margaret.
Yes, sir.
And in that
That's a good one.
testimony to the Senate, you believe that Christopher Wray indicated that there were no confidential informants and no FBI assets that were
Okay, I'm just going to say it
present at the
again. The
Capitol on
blue-gray
January
suit,
6th that
gentlemen,
were part
no,
of
it's
the
a
violent
no.
riot. Isn't that right?
It's a hard no.
Please play the video. We're now going to hear from George Hill,
Dark suits.
who
Dark
worked
suits
at
are
the
so much
Boston
more
field
attractive.
office.
I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. And I mean, I get it that it's spring and summer, but then go for a neutral.
A political rally,
Not
which is
blue-gray.
First Amendment protected activity. No, we're not uploading. We're not starting cases with these people. To which they said, well, we're going to call your SAC. And the SSA said, go right ahead. Because when you're pushing back, you know, you want to make sure that you have your six covered. So the SAC and the ASAC were intimately aware of these kinds of exchanges that were going on. And again, to his credit, Joe Bonavolonta said, no, we're not opening up cases on people who went to a rally. And I forgot a key part. The SSA for CT2 said, happy to do it. Show us where they were inside the Capitol, and we'll look into it. To which WFO said, we can't show you those videos unless you can tell us the exact time and place those individuals were inside the
just
Capitol.
watching.
To which the SSA responded back, and I was privy to these conversations firsthand. Why can't you show us? Why can't you just send us, give us access to the 11,000 hours of video that's available? Because there may be UC's undercover officers or CHS's confidential human sources on those videos whose identity we need to protect.
So, Mr. Allen, you got retaliated against for the very thing, for saying the very thing that the Washington field office was telling Boston, when the Boston field office was saying, we're not going to go and investigate people that just showed up at a rally without sufficient criminal predicate. The Washington field office told Boston, well, you know what, we can't give you the evidence.
Is this the
because it
cheese
might
pull
disclose
that
the
Gates
very
is hoping
CIs and
for?
UCs
That
you
was
are
the
concerned
cheese
about.
pull?
But that doesn't
Are
surprise
you
you, Mr.
fucking
O'Boyle,
kidding
does
me
it?
right now? That was the cheese
No, sir.
pull?
And the reason it doesn't surprise
Oh
you
boy.
is that
Oh,
in a different part of the
Maddie.
country,
That was
you
weak
saw
sauce.
that same
Weak sauce.
pressure from the Washington field office. And did they ever try to get you to do something that was outside the normal order of law enforcement activity?
Yes, sir.
And what did the Washington field office try to get you to do that violated the law and regulations?
They tried to get me to serve a federal grand jury subpoena when there was no proper predicate to do so.
Oh, what?
And the reason there was no predicate was because it was based on an anonymous tip, right?
That's correct.
But
and
who decides
time and
what
again,
the
the
predicate
Washington
is?
field office was trying to pressure you without corroboration to go start
Whoa.
process on people. Isn't that right?
But that's because
Yes, sir.
that's
And so
following
while
an
I
order.
agree that January 6th was a
he
violent
being
day, a bad day, a day that nobody wants to relive, violence on January 6th doesn't justify weaponizing the government against people who were innocent and did nothing
Oh
wrong.
my God!
Thank
These
you for
guys,
blowing the
every
whistle
time
on
you
that.
listen
I yield back.
closely
Mr.
for
Chair,
like
I have
the gotcha,
sincere
there's
point of
nothing. There's a
inquiry.
nothing burger. There's weak sauce. There's a
Rule
nothing burger
11,
with weak
Clause
sauce
2.
and extra
The gentleman
mayonnaise.
does not
That's
recognize
what we just were served.
I have a question about the rules.
Mr. Lynch for 5 minutes.
It's a point of order, a question about the
Come
rules.
on, Goldman, skewer him.
Point of order. State your point of order.
Oh, so
Point of order
salty.
is why does
No,
Rule 11, Clause 2,
Dan Goldman, I'm
subsection
sorry, he's hot.
E1A not apply to
You just
this
love smart
subject?
guys.
I can read for you.
I love
Each
smart
committee
men.
shall keep a complete record of all committee action, which shall include, in the case of a meeting or hearing transcript, a substantially verbatim account of remarks actually made during the proceedings, subject only to some technical things. Such records shall be the property of the House, and each member, delegate, and the resident commissioner shall have access thereto. Why does that not apply? Where is the whistleblower exception in the rules of Congress that says that does not apply?
It's the prerogative of the committee to decide.
No, you can't.
We have the
No, it's not.
We have the
You're breaking
whistleblower
a
testimony.
rule.
The whistleblower does not wish that to be made available to the Democrats at this
The
time.
whistleblower doesn't make committee
Mr.
rules,
Lynch,
sir.
Mr. Lynch is recognized for 5 minutes of questioning.
Wow, this is
Mr.
really
Chairman,
bad.
is the ruling of the chair
Can we just
always
say
on
how bad
question?
this is?
Or do we have a vote on how some of these issues are decided?
Yeah.
If you state a proper point of order and there's some kind
I just did state a point of order.
the gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 5 minutes of questioning.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Friend, I want to ask some questions about surrounding
Come
the
on, Boston and
circumstances of
Brockton.
the
Come
removal
on,
of
Boston
your,
and Brockton. Make it happen here.
your clearance by the FBI.
Don't fuck with Lynch from Boston. He's gonna fuck you up.
Mr. Friend, I'd like to ask you about your move to the domestic terrorism unit. You originally transferred to Daytona from the FBI's Omaha field office, Sioux City Residence Agency in June 2021, is that correct?
Yes.
And you were assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force at the end of September 2021, correct?
Yes, I was reassigned.
And you had been exclusively working on child sex abuse material known as CSAM cases, is that correct?
Prior to that point, yes.
And that was before you moved to the JTTF, isn't that right?
Yes.
Did you stop working on child abuse cases after October 1st, 2021?
No, I did not.
Well, in fact, the FBI planned to find a replacement for you when you moved from one position to the other, is that correct?
Which office are you referring to?
So, when you were moved from the child sexual abuse cases and moved to the JTTF,
Friend wrote a book.
You were informed that the
I know, I've
FBI
seen
would
him
find a
before.
replacement for your other position. Was that correct?
No, that's not correct at all. I was told that those cases were going to be considered a local matter going forward. They would not be resourced, and that I was going to be reassigned to work on domestic terrorism cases. At the time, my supervisor retired, and his interim told me there was not enough work to do. So until a full-time replacement could come in to continue to work on the child pornography investigations and make myself available for domestic terrorism cases. And then when my new supervisor arrived early in 2022, I explained that arrangement to him, and he agreed that that was the best use of my time, even though I was told to, on my timesheet,
When
account
did
for
we
my
publish that?
actions as being solely devoted to domestic terrorism. I was in a situation where I was essentially only working child pornography and human trafficking cases.
I just want to point out that in your interview with the committee, you
Well, I can
stated that
fuck
you
you
were
up.
told you could balance both until
He's
the
not a
permanent
whistleblower.
replacement arrived. That was during your transcribed interview. Are you restating that or disputing that now?
I'm not disputing that. I was unofficially said, just keep doing what you're doing, but on paper and on your timesheet, we're going to put you down as a domestic terrorism agent.
You said here that
What?
they told you
Okay,
you could
so that's
balance
just
both
probably stupid.
responsibilities until your replacement arrived. Are you disputing that now?
I'm disputing that there was no replacement that was going to be arriving, ever. I was told that that violation was not going to be worked after I was moved over to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And subsequently,
But here you're saying that you were allowed to do both jobs until
looks
your
like the
replacement
creepy
arrived. So
kid
your
show
assumption
host
then
ends
was
up
not
being
that
like,
the
yoink.
replacement was not going to arrive, right?
are you talking about a replacement for my supervisor or a replacement for me?
For the responsibilities that you were doing under the child sex abuse cases.
There was no replacement that was going to arrive in our office for that. Those cases were going to be no longer worked.
That would be a conjecture on your part at that point,
conjecture.
right?
Yeah.
No, I was told that.
Okay.
Okay, do you have evidence of that?
You continue to work the child abuse
That's
cases
hearsay.
until you were
Oh,
suspended
my
in
God.
2022, correct?
Yes.
Oh, I
In fact,
know.
you even received an award for your CSAM work in July 2022, correct?
Yes.
Now, you got this award after you took on all the child exploitation cases for the local sheriff's officer earlier that same year, while also working your JTTF responsibilities, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You took on the role of a full-time employee assigned to work child abuse investigation cases, correct?
It could totally.
I took on the role of whatever I was needed to work. I made myself available to work domestic terrorism, but there was
To
not a
make
work
you
to do.
vulnerable to
So
manipulation.
could you tell us that you were reassigned, and so first you tell us that you were reassigned and told that the CSAM cases weren't a priority. Then you tell us that not only did they plan on replacing you, they let you continue working those cases until you were suspended. Is that correct?
Yes, it was no longer a priority on paper. This is the way that the FBI allocates its manpower resources. So on paper, I was not supposed to be recording my work on those cases.
Oh my God.
And then within my office, which was not in the Jacksonville headquarters,
Yeah, so he
my
probably
frontline
has terrible
supervisor agreed that
managers
my
who are
time
like,
was
"You
better
gotta
spent
do
working
both."
on CSAM cases.
Right? How many times has that happened to us, folks? I'm sorry. There's no
Time has expired.
this job.
The chair recognizes the gentlelady from
Both
Florida for
your
5
job
minutes.
and that job. It sucks.
Thank you, Mr.
but
Chairman.
he
Thank you
has
to all
do
our
that.
gentlemen for appearing
He
before
should
us today
quit.
and coming forward.
Plain.
I want to
It
thank you
is
again for your
not
courage
weaponization of the
today
FBI
and also for your service to our
for Mr. Friend.
nation.
Oh, good.
And as we predicted, our Democrat
Princess
colleagues have
Peach is
immediately
up.
opened up with
Great.
claims of
Fabulous.
conspiracy theories,
What do you
MAGA
got,
extremism,
Princess Peach?
mock outrage. Seems the only ones displaying mock outrage up
Who's
here
the
today
Well,
are,
yeah,
in
we
fact,
need
the
much more
Democrats.
information on these guys.
Because according to them, journalists who appear before us aren't journalists, and you here today are not whistleblowers, but we in fact know that you are. But interesting times. The line about Republicans defunding police, that one seems to be particularly special because, respectfully to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, as the wife of a SWAT medic, as the wife of a first responder
Oh, fuck
currently
off.
who has
And
served
you
our
know
community
what?
for the
Do
last
your hair better.
16
You're on
years.
television every day.
I can tell you with certainty that no one,
You make enough
no one
money to
hates
get
a
your
bad
fucking
cop
hair
more
done.
than a good cop. No one. And I see from you nodding your head that you agree with that sentiment. It is inaccurate and wrong to make that assumption that Republicans want to defund police. It is false. Because forcing a political agenda down the throats of our hardworking men and women of the FBI with the threat and then subsequent follow-through of retaliation because they are whistleblowers, because they didn't want to break the law, because they knew that it was wrong to target Americans without cause, and they swore an oath to the United States Constitution, not to a political party. That makes them whistleblowers. That makes them courageous for coming forward and telling the truth. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you all to please turn on your microphones because we're going to go really fast.
Okay, cool.
Okay? Mr. Friend, during your service with the FBI,
Everyone
you
check
served
the
on the
Twitter
FBI
feed.
SWAT team,
It's
correct?
under the broadcast in my
As you heard, my
profile.
husband is a SWAT medic and has been part of joint
Alex have
operations
information.
with the FBI.
No, we
So I
don't
would
want
like to know,
the police. They want
what is the threshold for these
leave them
call-outs?
alone.
And can you briefly detail the type of crimes warranted for an FBI SWAT team call-out?
There's a threat matrix, the SWAT matrix, in order to utilize the tactical team, but it could be as easy as somebody being in possession of a firearm or a request from a local agency just to use the FBI SWAT team.
Okay, so Mr. Friend, your security clearance was suspended by the FBI after raising concerns for the use of excessive force with regard to the use of FBI SWAT teams to your direct supervisor, correct?
Yes.
Would you consider this retaliation?
When?
Yes.
Well,
Thank
okay.
you.
I'm
Mr.
sorry to
O'Boyle,
hear
you were
that.
suspended without pay from the FBI on September 23rd, correct?
That's just kind of the way
I
things
was
are,
initially
honey
suspended on
bunny.
the 26th. The suspension of pay came a little bit later.
Thank you for that clarification. You had raised concerns to your chain of command when no action was taken, that you reported these concerns then to Congress, correct?
Correct.
Once you contacted Congress, you were then suspended. Your top secret security clearance was then suspended.
I would think that's normal
for
in
those
that type
protected
of
disclosures to
business.
Congress, correct?
Correct.
That seems like retaliation, no?
It's to me.
Okay, Mr. Allen, you were suspended from the FBI without pay on January 10th, correct?
That is correct.
You were suspended because you sent links to your squad to provide situational awareness about the FBI investigation on January 6th, correct?
Yes.
Yes or no? Wasn't open source searches and sharing of information part of the duties of your job?
Yes.
And subsequently, after doing your job and your supervisors not liking the tone of the open source articles you provided because it didn't fit the FBI's narrative,
Oh, so
your
he
security clearance
shared
was revoked.
conspiracy
correct?
theories. Okay.
To all our
He
whistleblowers,
shared-
yes or no?
he
Do you
shared
believe
natural
that the
news
retaliation
articles
pattern has a
and
cooling
Blaze
effect
articles
on other
and,
agents from coming forward or speaking up? Yes or no,
Frank
Mr.
Speech
O'Boyle?
TV article.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you
No.
believe that the FBI is purposefully
no pass on
hostile
set.
to you for that reason, to keep agents from speaking up?
Yes.
Yes, that question.
Yes.
So I think it's clear we have a pattern here.
No, we
If you
don't.
speak up about the abuses you are seeing as an agent, or are sharing information that may not fall in line with the FBI's political narrative, you will be suspended without
Political
pay,
narrative?
have your security clearance revoked,
Yeah, yeah,
and your
yeah.
life will be turned upside down. It's pretty clear that the MO is if you don't comply, they will retaliate. If you don't agree with the
It's like
political
George
agenda,
Costanza
you
with
get
pigeons.
suspended.
Yeah.
And they do
As
it
far
in
as
such
they're
a way to
concerned, they had a
deter
deal
others
with
from
cops.
speaking up and
Leave us
speaking
alone.
out.
We support you.
That,
That's right, Mike.
ladies and gentlemen, is the weaponization of government.
No, it's
That
not.
is the weaponization of government, and that is why we are here today.
No.
Not because we have a political agenda,
Oh,
not because
no,
we
it's
are here
absolutely.
to go over events
Absolutely
of the past.
political agenda.
We want to fix it. We have to expose it, stop it, and prevent it from happening again. That is why we are here. These men are whistleblowers. The gentleman who came
How is
before
this
us
woman
in
married?
previous
How am I
hearings, they were
single and a
journalists.
woman like
And just
this is
because you
married?
don't
How
address
is
them
that
as such does not
possible?
mean that they are not who they say they
How?
are. They have been retaliated against, and regardless of your
I don't
party
understand
affiliation,
it.
this behavior is unacceptable,
Yeah,
and we need
breathe,
to
Pat,
stop
breathe.
it. Republicans, Democrats, independents alike, this is a concern we should all share. This is the weaponization of government, and it is our job, our constitutional duty to stop it. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back and recognizes.
Don't tread on her iPad.
The gentlelady from Florida is
Celia,
recognized. Ms.
that's a
Wasserman
good
Schultz.
one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Don't tread on her
Mr.
iPad.
Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record this document that clearly indicates the questions of allegiance to the United States on the part of Mr. Allen, and that were specifically the reasons for the revocation of his security clearance.
Yeah, so
in
there.
spite of the gentlelady from Florida's assertions to the contrary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Friend, I find some humor in the irony of Republicans inviting you here the same week Congress is focused on honoring law enforcement. You've repeatedly made calls to undermine our law enforcement agencies. Since being rightly suspended, you've led Republican calls to defund law enforcement, recently describing the FBI as a feckless garbage institution. Since joining Twitter in November, no less than 40 times you called for our brave law enforcement personnel to be defunded. You even urged local police to sabotage criminal investigations by urging citizens to, and I quote, pressure your sheriffs to refuse to cooperate with FBI investigations. That is not only reckless advice, it's a recipe for allowing more criminals to run loose in our neighborhoods. Perhaps Chairman Jordan can explain why Republicans are promoting defunding law enforcement and increased crime before our subcommittee today. But Mr. Friend, your motivations appear to be today
I'm gonna get the juice
crystal
box
clear.
ready, just in
For months,
case.
you've
We might
pressured
need this
Republicans
juice
to call
box.
you to a hearing. In fact, in December, you said Chairman Jordan and Republicans took your complaint
These
of alleged
cats
FBI
really
wrongdoing
pushing on
and, quote,
gluten.
used it for campaign rocket fuel and 4-minute appearances on Fox News. And I'll
Really,
admit, you're
gal?
right.
I didn't know that.
Republicans are using you, but it
Not
goes
very
both
friendly?
ways. You're engaging in the self-promotion
No,
of your new
no.
book that's
Okay.
about to be
I know
released.
you're going
And what great
insane right
timing to be
now.
on TV and in
Come here.
Congress right before your book tour starts.
Hey.
It's quite coincidental. But let's try to move past your financial exploitations and talk about your objection to the use of a SWAT team to arrest a January 6th suspect in August of 2022.
Oh, that's what
You
it's all
repeatedly
about.
stated that you objected to the use of a SWAT team for the arrest of Tyler Quinton Bench, a man who was involved in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Mr. Friend, you did not participate in any decisions about the use of the SWAT team, nor were you a member of that SWAT team, correct? Just yes or no, please.
I was not a member of that SWAT team.
And you didn't participate in any decisions about the use of that SWAT team, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. You also testified that being a gun owner is a reason why a SWAT team could be used to arrest a suspect, according to the SWAT team official protocols. Mr. Friend, I'd like to ask you to take a look at the screen. Those are on the screen are 2 images of the only member of the 3 percenters arrested in your area that day. For those who don't know, the Anti-Defamation League describes the 3 percenters as a militia movement with, quote, a track record of criminal activity ranging from weapons violations to terrorist plots and attacks. As you can see in the pictures of Mr. Bench at the Capitol on January 6th, he's in full tactical gear, wearing chemical irritant canisters on his tactical vest and a black radio and antenna on his left, with a GoPro-style camera mounted on his right shoulder. The FBI knew Mr. Bench to be both armed and dangerous. The good men and women within federal, state, and local law enforcement know that making the right decision on bringing qualified backup to dangerous situations has life or death consequences. It's a decision that has particularly resonance for law enforcement in my own community. A little over a year before Mr. Bench was arrested, 2 FBI agents in my district in Sunrise,
really
Florida,
sad.
were shot and killed on the front doorstep while trying to serve an arrest warrant on child pornographers. They were just trying to do their jobs, protecting the American people, when the suspect opened fire and started shooting from inside. In fact, these brave agents who work for what you call a feckless and garbage institution lost their life doing the very work you claim it neglects, chasing down people who exploit children. So yes or no, Mr. Friend, knowing what you know now about Mr. Bench, that he was known to be heavily
Hi,
armed and a
always
member of a
fine.
terrorist
How are
group,
you?
was it appropriate for the FBI to use a SWAT team as a precaution to protect FBI personnel and other law enforcement officers that day? Yes or no?
I can't answer that with a yes or no. I can give you a little bit of context.
I'd like to know whether you still think it was inappropriate.
I've arrested over 150 violent criminals in my career.
No,
Never had to use a
I
SWAT team
love
to do
you,
it.
but you're
okay.
The reason for that is because
crazy.
On that
There's a
day,
whole
yes or no,
with us.
reclaiming my
whole
time,
apartment you could
can you
run
give me a
through.
yes or no answer? Or even indicate whether you have changed your mind that using a SWAT team to arrest that gentleman was inappropriate?
My opinion remains to be anybody who's been cooperative and pledged to surrender in the case of law enforcement criminal charges.
So the answer is no.
A
You
SWAT
also
team is not
claim,
necessary for that.
reclaiming my time, you also claim that your top secret security clearance was improperly revoked, yet an independent investigation concluded that you demonstrated a number of security concerns, which included that you refused to execute a court-ordered arrest warrant, and when you downloaded documents from intelligence systems to an unauthorized removable flash drive. Cherry on top could be your unauthorized recording of executive management, which I'm sure you know violates Florida law, along with your unsanctioned interviews with Sputnik News, established by the Russian government in 2014 and fully owned by the Kremlin and Putin's cronies.
Time of the gentleman
I think
has
it's
expired.
clear who is weaponizing government. I yield back.
The gentleman from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Friend, do you want to quickly respond to that? Because she cut you off and wouldn't let you respond to those questions.
I can quickly respond to that. So the, you have to bring up, so the.
Maybe you can't.
Let me help you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
Prompt me.
So instead of using a SWAT team, if a suspect is being cooperative and in your testimony and in your experience as an FBI agent and a law enforcement officer, it's not necessary to use a SWAT team to go in with guns
Stubby, you don't
ablazing
know
and
fuck
pull
all,
down
all right? So
going
nobody's
after an
asking
individual when that individual is
Thank
cooperating.
God you don't work for
Wasn't
the
that part of your
FBI. Here,
testimony?
here's your juice
That's part of
box.
my testimony. It's part
Here's
of
your
what
juice
I brought
box.
forward in my whistleblower disclosure.
Here's your juice
And that's
box.
in your experience as how
Here's
many
your juice box.
violent criminals have you arrested?
I've arrested over 150 and I have 5 years of SWAT experience.
And you didn't have to, there wasn't
This really is. I love
necessity
you.
in some of those circumstances
Have a
to
good day.
use SWAT team because the individual was cooperating.
Never a single time.
And in your testimony, the individual that you were referring to that a SWAT team should not have been used on, but was being used on for political purposes, was somebody that was cooperating, correct?
Yes.
Based on your testimony, everybody else's testimony, which, by the way, I want to thank you guys for being here. I know it takes a lot of courage to do it. I want to thank you for your service as a military veteran.
Takes a lot of
myself,
money.
who served I was probably in Iraq when some of you guys were there.
Takes a
I want to
lot
thank
of
you for
money.
that. I want to thank you for standing up for the Constitution, for America, because I
Not
know
standing
that
up for the
this is
Constitution.
difficult to go through, what your families are going through, being
Hey, Gus.
barricaded out of having your personal belongings, not being able to get
Aw,
paid,
liars.
the FBI taking away your security clearances so you can't get a job. I commend you
Oh,
for
you know
standing
what?
up for
Burger
American
Barn's
values
hiring.
and
You
commend
can
you
get
for
a, you
standing
can
up
get the
for what you
overnight
believe
shift at
are
Burger Barn.
huge misgrievances that are going on at the FBI. And based on y'all's testimony, the report that we have seen, the FBI has turned into the enforcement
call him
arm of
Stubby.
the Democratic Party, going
I
after
don't wanna call him
pro-life
Scooby. I wanna
individuals,
call him Stubby.
going after individuals
New
who were
name.
not in restricted areas on January 6th,
Greggy
who were not
Stubby.
violent on January 6th, using SWAT teams to go after them to
So
try to
is this
intimidate
just
them.
his?
And then when
Can any
officers like
gentleman
yourself,
just
who
fix
have
their
served our
tie?
country, who have
For the
served
one
the
moment that
FBI,
they're
who
on
have served in
TV,
law
can they
enforcement,
fix their
suddenly
tie?
want to raise concerns and use the whistleblower status to be able to, hey, you know, this
Oh,
isn't
not at all.
right. This isn't the way that we should be treating
Hi, Mom.
these individuals. This isn't fair. Suddenly, the FBI is shutting you out, taking away your clearances, taking away your pay, shutting you down so that your families can't even survive financially. So I want to thank you for your testimony here today, and I hope the American people will gloss over the lies that have been perpetrated on you today for the truth that is underneath every single one of your statements. Egregious abuse, misallocation of law enforcement resources,
Stubby.
misconduct in leadership ranks of the FBI.
I
And
just
I've
don't
been here 5
understand
years, and during that
how-
period of time, Director
how-
Wray and AG
how
Garland have
voters
both
buy this
sat in desks
line of
just like
shit.
that, under oath, and
Don't you feel
testified
like you're being
that they would not
manipulated when you
retaliate
hear
against
this from your
whistleblowers.
side?
It's
If
my
I heard this
understanding,
from
Mr. Friend,
Democrats, I'd
that
be like,
you went through all of the required
You know what I mean? Like,
regulations at
come
the
on.
FBI in order to raise your concerns to your supervisors. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you followed inside protocol for the FBI, utilizing whistleblower statute protection, information regulations through the FBI to make your complaints and information be known.
Yes.
And you did that to your supervisors.
3 levels of supervisors.
3 levels of supervisors.
Oh my
and the
God,
response
3?
to that was, losing your security clearance, shutting you out, losing your job, taking away your
Probably
pay.
late on this news, but far-right mercenary. Yes, Eric Prince was indicted one day in Austria.
I'm so
That's like
frustrated and
Austrian
angry, and I don't have,
prosecutors on
only a minute
charges
and a
of
half
trafficking
left
of weapons in Libya.
to
That's
try
like
to
Eric
display the
Prince
level
is in big
of
trouble in
corruption,
Austria. I can't do my Austrian accent right
weaponization,
now.
politicization that has occurred at the highest levels
Yeah,
of the
Eric
FBI and the
Prince
DOJ.
he's
And
in
both
big
Director Wray
trouble
and
in
Merrick Garland have sat
Austria.
there and
Yeah, he's
testified
going
that
to
there's
be
no
in big
retribution
trouble
for
in
whistleblowers. No, we don't
Austria,
retaliate
and
against
he's not
whistleblowers,
going
but we
to
have
enjoy the
testimony, and I'm a
chocolate
lawyer
if he
too,
goes to
and testimony
Austria,
is a fact
and
in
he won't
evidence
be able
that
to
that
enjoy
exactly is what is going on
Salzburg
in the
as
FBI and the
much as
DOJ. Just quickly
everyone.
talk about how the inflation, Mr. Friend, of the domestic violence,
It's like a 5-year sentence potential.
statistics
But
as
it
it
might
relates
be
to
good
January
discovery.
6th, how they were inflating those statistics to make it look like there was a bunch more cases than there really was.
Typically, you would investigate January 6th as one case with lots of subjects.
Yeah, I heard it yesterday.
Instead, the decision was made to open up a separate case for every single individual there, and instead of
Yeah, I
on
heard that
paper
news yesterday.
investigating them from the Washington field office, spreading and disseminating those to the field offices around the country, and if the individual lived in that area. So it, in effect,
That's
made it
what I
look
need
like
to
there was
do.
domestic terrorism cases
Curls are
and
too
activities
tight.
that were going on
I need to
around the
loosen these
56 field
curls.
offices, when in fact the cases
Friend
were
was
really
claiming the
all from
bosses were
Washington,
cooking the
D.C.,
books.
and Washington field office had a task force
There's
that was responsible
investigations for
calling
that
the
shit.
shots in all those
Okay,
cases.
that's how it's worked.
Thank you guys
That's
for
how
being
it
here. My
happens.
time's expired.
Gentleman yields back. We
Yeah,
have votes on
Mom,
the
I
floor. To
I
our
have a dear
witnesses,
friend
so
who's
we
an
will
Eric
take a break
Prince
now. We'll
aficionado, so
stand in
he comes
recess
in
until
hot with the
15
news on
minutes
Eric
after
Prince
the close of the vote,
before
the final
anybody else
vote on
does.
the floor.
Get down get
And
out of
you
there.
guys are welcome to wait here in the
God, my
back. The
pants are
committee
tight.
stands in recess.
Oh, what? Oh, they're going to do a recess. Okay, hold on. Hold on. I didn't expect that. Okay. So we'll leave the hot mic. Oh my god. These cats. I am telling you right now, these cats. I had something lined up. I wonder if I can use that. I think I can.
Hey, Brett. How you doing?
We'll stay with the hot mics for a sec. Let's let me put my glasses on, you know. Let me see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to silence that for a second, and then I'm going to share this tab instead. Look, there we are. Hi, everybody. There we are. Hi, 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 hi. Okay, so then one viewer. Oh, wow. All right, so here we go. We're going to go through some tweet responses that Gal has put in for us. The field office sent Marcus Allen a letter. The security division has learned that you have espoused conspiratorial views both orally and in writing and promoted unreliable info which indicates support for the events of January 6th. So she put a Post and Courier article. Lancaster FBI employee sues director, denies support for January 6th riot. So he's a lawsuit filed by Judicial Watch on behalf of FBI employee Marcus Allen claims he was suspended for his political views. Ooh. Grassley has been attempting to undermine the federal government for years. 2/16/2006, possible whistleblower retaliation. Oh, so this was a report that Grassley put out. So she's linked to a report as well. These are all comments under the live feed on Twitter. So if you go there, you can be able to read through all of this. Proper whistleblower procedures. So she linked the Office of Inspector General, the whistleblower detail. God, Gal, you're the most amazing person on the planet. Can I just tell you that? I don't know. Like, you're a human index. Democrats' report titled GOP Witnesses What Their Disclosures Indicate About the State of Republican Investigations. There's another link to, I just want to see where this goes. So it is a Democratic staff report for the Judiciary Committee. and it was March 2nd, 2023. So that link has a pretty exhaustive report. Pay-to-play theatrics. Watchdogs call BS on Jim Jordan's FBI whistleblowers. Legitimate whistleblowers must be protected, and these witnesses clearly are not legitimate, expert says. It's a Salon article. There's creepy Steven. October 16th, 2022. Is FBI given an illusion that domestic terror spiked January 6th? Since January 6th, whistleblower Steve Friend speaks out. Steve Friend says it's time to take the oath of the agency seriously. This is what gets me so much, is when you're so kind of like determined that you're right. Now, I understand, and that's the thing about, like, I get accused of that all the time. Like, you always think you're right. And it's not, gosh, there's a nuance to it, because it's not really that. It's that the views that I'm holding or that I'm espousing are hopefully rooted in human rights and civil rights, right? So, and the Constitution. I'm not saying I'm always right, but I'm saying, like, that is, if I'm putting other people in the center of my decision, then that's a better place to start, I guess, is all I'm saying. And facts matter. Okay. Anyway, so this is a Fox News. Let me see if I can. I'm gonna go ahead and share this, because I want to just go through this. I hope they let us play this. Oh, ads. You terrible person. I'm about done with these kids. Okay, so this is clearly not. This is not going to play. All right, I understand. All right, so whistleblower Steve Friend shared revelations of the agency's alleged conduct on Saturday's Unfiltered with Don Bongino. After what he said was his experience, he'd been working as a field agent in Florida when he noticed rules were not being followed as laid out in our guidance for carrying out investigations for tracking down January 6 participants. Oh, and look, there he is. He doesn't look scary at all. He said he made a protective disclosure to his supervisor in 2021 to raise those concerns ahead of arrest and search operations on certain subjects. He basically was trying to, okay, forget it. When asked on his thoughts on the DC office handing down directives was motivated by politics or some investigative need for the case, he said he asked supervisors who said that when they aimed about it, they were told it was to get a buy-in from the field. Whatever. And there he is with Robert Mueller. Oh my, okay, I know he's very tall, but this is crazy. Like, this would be an awkward middle school dance right here. That's what this is. This is an awkward middle school dance photo. That's what we're looking at. He said he's not familiar with that term. What term? Oh, the buy-in? Oh, okay. He's not. I can only speculate about motivations. Host Bongino noted Unfiltered had reached out to the FBI with a reply that the agency had no statement on the matter at this time, you idiot. Friend said he knew at the end result of that is a flattening of a high number of cases of rioting and potential domestic terrorist investigations from one incident and on January 6th and in one location. Oh, Stephen, or whatever, Steve. These are blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. All right, so that's that. Let's go back here. Let's see if anybody put anything on here that's lame tweets. Uh-oh. Oh, God. Kenny, okay, so that's that must be a maggot. Yeah, okay. I'm going to go ahead and just block you because I don't like you. Hi, bye. Anyway, let's see. Let me just check and see if anything's happening. Holdy on-y. Oh, and then I'm going to take us over here right now. I'm going to take us here. He's a wee person. Yes, he's a wee one. Yes, he's a wee one, Paulina. So right. Gal is solid gold. She is solid gold. Hey, you. Yeah, thank you, Gal, for putting all that incredible information. So again, under the feed on Twitter, you can see a lot of Gal's links and things there. And if you're not following her there, you just have to request a follow. So do it. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Hi, did I say that already? I don't even know. Life News, extremist Catholic publication who reported on the Garrett O'Boyle stuff. That says a lot. Yeah, it does. It does. What am I? Okay, wait. I need to get rid of that. Did I blow my? I think I blew my thing here. Did I lose my? I did. I closed my tab. Oh my god. Oh my god. What did I do? What am I doing? Oh no, that's no. We're not watching the banking. Right side broadcasting. I'm not doing that. No. Where is? Yes. Does it resume? Wait a minute. Is it over? Aren't they coming back? Aren't they coming back? Hi, Spot Man. Good morning. They're not coming back? Okay, well, here's what we're going to do. Hold on. I got you. I got you, babe. I got you, babe. Okay, maybe that's not. No. Oh, I don't like this website. No, I don't want to use it. No, you can't make me. Hold on. Stay on the beach. Hang in there. Hang in there. Live. Okay, let's try that. Here. Here we go.
In 2018. The Fed continued to award management satisfactory ratings.
This is Senate Committee holds hearing on oversight of
significant
banking with
concerns year
regulators.
after year. Why are supervisors
I'll keep an eye on the
so
other just to see.
reluctant
Although I think I
to
missed something.
downgrade the bank's ratings? What changes,
Yeah,
if
it
any,
is
do you plan
unpredictable. He
to
called
make to ensure
recess.
banks
Oh,
are
okay.
rated accurately when significant
Well,
risks are
I'll keep it
identified?
up just in case they come
Thank you,
back.
Senator. I do think the report identified
I don't know who
that
this
the
guy is.
supervisors were very slow to
I don't
change
know who this
ratings when they
guy
found
is.
problems. Part of that had to do with the standards that were set. Part of that had to do with the fact that it is, as a supervisor, hard to push back on a bank when they're earning a lot of profit and growing rapidly and the economy is doing well. So we need to have a way to make sure that our supervisors feel empowered to take action promptly. We need to give them the tools to do that, and we need to change the supervisory culture. One of the first things I did when taking this job was to go talk to supervisors around the system, telling them I wanted to make sure that they were asking the hard questions, being tough, that they were standing true, and that they were agile, looking for new risks in the system. I think
Yeah,
we
but
have
they
to keep
didn't.
at that
Okay,
and
so
change the
you
culture.
guys didn't.
You know,
You
another
didn't
item from
do
the
it.
report that concerns me is that supervisors,
You didn't
quote,
raise the
saw
alarm
financial
flags.
performance and the lack of realized risk outcomes during this period as offsets
You did do that.
to underlying concerns related to governance and risk management. Now, to me, this shows that the Fed examiners fundamentally misunderstood their role in enforcing a safe and sound
Thank
banking
you.
system. Your
Thank
job
you.
is to identify risks proactively and ensure that they are fixed before they impact performance.
I know.
Since we've seen time
We
and time
shouldn't
again that the
have to
banks
like
themselves
say.
do
I mean,
a poor job of it. Can you commit to us, Mr.
it's
Barr,
hard to say hi
that
to
you will
everybody.
sharpen the focus of your supervisory efforts on proactively identifying and ensuring banks fix vulnerabilities? I mean, from my mind,
Yeah,
the
the
purpose
announcement
of
threats can't do
regulators is
anything
to
about
act
it.
as the cop on the beat, not to give everybody a pass.
Yes, I fully commit to that. I think we need to make our supervisory
It's funny, they're not
system
really talking
much more
about
agile,
the
much
actions of
faster, and
like
much more forceful, and we
banking
will be doing that.
And I hope the other
customers
regulators do
or,
so
you know,
as
like
well.
the
Thank you,
Peter
Mr. Chairman.
Thiel moves. And they did talk about the stock selling a little bit yesterday with the CEOs, but
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the
Boyle claimed that
panel
the threat
for,
tag
for
for the FBI
tolerating
system
this
was to target
Arctic condition they
pro-lifers.
put this hearing room in. It's really cold in here.
What was the threat
Um,
tag?
But I want to ask,
Abortion clinic
direct my question
bombers.
to Mr. Barr. And
God.
one of my concerns here is that we have
Oh, is that Jody
a San
Heiss?
Francisco Fed that clearly was asleep at the wheel. I think a basic examiner's review would have said that Silicon Valley Bank had some serious
Threats to
problems.
SCOTUS 20.
And
Oh,
the fact that we didn't identify it until the bank
wow,
effectively
that's a
blew
really
up
bad spin.
is a serious
That's a
problem.
really, really, really bad.
So with those, one of the things we've seen is the San Francisco Fed is clearly focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and also climate risk. And I, as a person who recognizes that if you're focused on one thing, you're fundamentally not as focused on
Oh
other
my
things, I
God.
want to sort of
Oh my
target this
God.
particular
This is
thing.
so idiotic.
So instead of focusing
I
on the
might not
safety
be
and
able to
soundness of our
make
banking
it
system, the San
through this,
Francisco
how
Fed was
idiotic
busy
they are.
publishing economic letters and research on a number of social justice causes.
Mm.
Some of the selected titles include disappointing
That's
facts
a
about the
stretch.
black-white wage gap, how are racial and gender gaps limiting the full
Yeah, not the
potential of your
pro-lifers,
state's
actual
economy,
justices. The
hosting
thing they
seminars and
complained
publishing
about,
primers on
like
racial
people who were
equity,
out front
making a
of
commitment
Kavanaugh's
that their
house or
equity
whatever.
goals would help to drive their approach to hiring, and that's not to mention their
You know,
involvement in the Fed's
leftists.
Racism in the Economy series. Now, that's just after a quick scan of the San
It was
Francisco
for
Fed's website.
protect against leftists, I guess.
I worry that when
They
you
kept
have
announcing the
San
domestic
Francisco
care, the
Fed
actual
sounding
shit,
a
and then
little bit more
prioritizing the things
like
you just
an
mentioned.
Ivy
Yeah.
League political science or economics department, that you miss some things. And Mr. Barr, could you explain how this research and these activities support the Fed's monetary dual mandate or supervisory charge to ensure safety and soundness in the banking sector? How does this actually help?
Senator, let me start by just talking about the particular case of SVB. The review did not find any evidence that the supervisors were distracted by other activities. They were focused on the right set of risks
Boyle looks
in
to
the
have been
bank
on
with
Fox,
respect
probably
to
all these
liquidity,
fuckheads. Yeah,
risk
I'm sure they have
management,
been.
and
And
interest
if
rate
not
risk.
Fox, then some
But
other
the findings were
random
that they
show.
didn't act forcefully enough to get the bank to move quickly enough to change those factors. So that's the
Supreme Court
that's
shields
the
Twitter
basic
from
backdrop.
liability for
With
terror-related
respect to your
content
question,
and win for social
the
media
Federal Reserve
companies.
banks
That's
do
breaking
have
news from
a wide
CNN.
range of freedom being able to conduct research that they think is important to understanding economic drivers in our economy. And some of those economic drivers include the issues that you discussed.
So here I guess is
My
the question
surprise
is it your view, Mr. Barr, that if the Fed is
Wait,
doing
I
these
step away
seminars
and
on
come back
climate
and
risk,
I know,
on
Mind
diversity, equity,
Truth.
inclusion, and so forth,
Jordan threw
instead
a
of
hissy fit
seminars
and
on
quit.
risk
He
management?
rage
Because
quit.
again, there's only so much time in the
Jordan
day.
rage quit.
Do you just think that it doesn't have any effect on their focus and on the things that they're thinking
Although I'm
about when they're
keeping
doing
an
their
eye
basic
on it
job?
in case they come back.
The evidence
get it.
in the review is that
It's
the
only 11
supervisors
o'clock.
were
It's
focused
not
on
even
the
time
right
for a
set of
smoke break.
risks. They were focused on basic, risk management, the firm in terms of interest rate risk, liquidity risk.
Maybe that's the point.
They found that the
Oh, it
bank
is
was
not.
not well managed with respect to its activities. They were graded a deficient one. So the issue, at least with respect to SVB that we saw, was that it was about the forcefulness of action that the supervisors didn't take in time.
Okay,
to
literally,
change
Deutsche
the
Bank
nature of the
has to
firm.
I
be.
appreciate that, Mr. Barr. I understand
Deutsche
that the
Bank has
review
to be.
didn't
Oh,
find that
Lake
this
trial
was
again today
distracting
too?
enough, but
Really?
I just wonder, separate what
What
the review
time?
found
Where is
and
it?
think about the way that
How come I
human
haven't
minds
seen
work,
it?
where
Wait,
we're
hold
focused
on.
on one thing, we're
Well, that would be
fundamentally
more
not focused
interesting.
on
I'm
something
gonna be
else.
real.
There's only so much cognitive bandwidth the average human being has. I really worry that the more that the regulators are focused on things that have nothing to do with systemic or individual financial risk, the less and less safe our financial system is going to be. And I understand that the point that you're making, the review found that the focus was not a problem here, but this is all overdetermined. It's incredibly difficult to say with any conclusive evidence,
Oh, shit,
either in my
Connor.
direction or in your direction, that the focus on these non-risky financial issues caused a problem. But are you worried that we reach a sort of tipping point where the focus
You know
on
when it
building
starts?
progressive
Why wouldn't it have
politics into our
started
risk
already?
assessment
Oh wait,
starts
no,
to
it's because
actually
it's not. I'm
harm
sorry.
our
I
ability
fucked up with
to
time.
really analyze whether these banks are a problem?
I don't think
We will
politics
switch to
should play
that.
any role in risk
Here we go.
assessment. And as I said, in this case, we don't see evidence of that in the record.
Well, I agree with that point. That politics shouldn't play any role here. And Mr. Chairman, I'll yield my time, but just to say that, I'll say this the third
Okay.
time, actually.
Yeah, that should start any
We can
minute,
only
actually.
do so much in a given day. And the more that we distract ourselves
I'm
from
gonna go
focusing
ahead
on
and move
financial
forward
risk
to
and instead
mine.
focus on
I'm gonna
climate
go
risk and other
down.
things, I worry it's going to cause our financial system to be much less safe. Thank you, Mr. Barr.
Senator Tester of Montana is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Brown and Ranking Member Scott, for having this hearing. And I want to thank all of you for your testimony. Thank you for
Wonder-
being here. My guess is last night, probably the only two people that slept well were Harper and Sue. But thank you all
I
for
love John
being
Tester.
here.
I don't know why,
This
but I
morning,
absolutely love him.
the good
Can I
senator from North
can I say I
Carolina,
have a
Senator
crush on
Phillips,
John
and I are
Tester?
calling for an independent, comprehensive
I don't know
investigation
why. I
into the
just feel
recent
like
bank
he'd be the
failures. The
funnest
stress these recent failures
person
put
to
on our
hang out
financial
with.
system is
He's
having
so
negative effects
silly,
on community financial institutions, small business, hardworking families.
and yet he's
And I
really
believe we
smart.
must get to the
Like
bottom of
there's
the
some
recent failures to
combo of
ensure our
that that's
financial
really
system
great.
isn't left on the hook for
Here we
risky
go.
behavior by
Can we
reckless
do
executives
okay?
and lackluster agency oversight. This is a question for all of you. You can nod or raise your hand. Would all of you support an independent review?
Yes, we've been clear that we welcome additional reviews of all kinds.
All right, good. Let the record reflect. It's unanimous. Mr. Barr, I want to read you some your testimony, and then I want to ask you what this means. It's on the third page in my copy anyway. Finally, the fourth key takeaway is the Federal Reserve Board tailoring approach in response to economic growth, regulatory relief, and Consumer Protection Act, and a shift in stance of supervisory policy impeded
I
effective
know. I
supervision by reducing standards
I
and
know. I'm
increasing complexity
absolutely,
and
Mom. I
promoting a
don't agree
less
with him all the time,
assertive
but
supervisory approach.
I
Absent these
I
changes,
really like him.
SVB would have been
He
subject
just
to
seems like a really
supervision within
human
the
person,
LFBO
and I love when
portfolio and
you can
subject
really
to
see
heightened
someone's
standards
humanity.
beginning
I
in
guess
2019
I don't
and
know.
throughout the bank's
I
period
mean,
of rapid
obviously,
growth.
it's all
Is it fair to say that every bank
theater.
would have been subject to those same standards? Not just SVB, but everybody.
Sir, I was referring to the approach based on the size of the asset class of institution. So other banks that were of a higher asset
Good.
size
I
would
don't
also
know
have been
his
subject to that rule, but
record with local,
not every
you know,
bank.
like
No, but
I
everybody in
would
that asset
imagine.
size. So let
That's good.
me ask you this fundamentally: do you believe that the regulation should fit the risk?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay. So if you looked at 2155, which is the other name for the longer title I just read, isn't it pretty clear that tailoring is allowed even to the smallest community bank? If they had a risky portfolio, you could drop the hammer on them, as the chairman said, correct?
We have ample discretion under S2155 to take a risk-based approach to supervision.
Thank you for that.
I mean, isn't
So the
supervision
question
always risk-based?
becomes,
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Vice Chair
Wait.
Barr,
What did you
are you going to
just
propose
say?
new regulations in response to these failures?
I expect both in response to these failures and our broader review to look at changes in both supervision and regulation going forward.
So, but isn't your report relatively clear that it is not a regulatory failure? That if the tailoring would have been applied correctly, as 2155
Is it a billionaire
talks
failure?
about, as I believe Congress intended,
Maybe just a little bit.
that this
Is it a
problem could have been stopped.
destabilization of the dollar failure?
The report found that both
Was it a
supervision and
test run
regulation
for
played a
bigger
role in
banks?
contributing to a reduced resiliency at the bank, and we'll be looking at both.
Yeah, but the point is here, and I don't mean to bat you around on this. It's just a matter of fact. I think regulation needs to fit the risk.
GOP set up
I think when
clearance,
2155 was put up,
failing,
it was put
committee
up with the
cover-up,
idea that
and obstruction
if you
related
had a risky
crimes.
portfolio,
I mean,
regardless of size,
a
that
MAGA
the
called
Fed
you a
and the
Nazi?
other agencies
Oh,
had the ability to tailor those
she's
to
rushing to judgment.
whatever threat that those risky
Wow, Marie, I can call you a
business
lot of things,
dealings.
but I don't think I can call you. I'm pretty sure I can call
Senator, I
you.
agree. We're not seeking any
circle back.
change in law from this committee.
Eric Garland,
We
according to
believe we
Nazi.
have ample authority under existing
And the second
law
special counsel they asked for in
to
discovery takes
provide
priority
a
over
better
Jordan's
approach
request
to
and will wind up
supervision and
burning them
regulation
probably.
going forward, and I am committed to doing that.
So one of my main concerns, and it was one of the things we talked
I'm
about
going to
several
have
years
to
ago,
end
is that I come
sometime
from a
because
rural
I
state.
need
You know
to
this. I mean,
I have
telling
a
you guys what's going on here.
I
You
have
guys deal with
a
rural
little
areas.
thing I need to record.
And we don't have. I mean, there ain't a lot of banks.
I'm
here
very
that walk.
excited
You're walking
about.
down, like walking down the street in LA or New York City. Okay. And my concern is that these community banks that don't have a
I'm getting
risky
nervous
portfolio
now, actually.
will end up paying the price For a CEO, by the way, that told this committee a couple days ago that they took care of all the problems, and you just pointed out that they have 31 of them that they didn't. So how do you protect the folks who are doing an honest job, providing capital, supporting agriculture, supporting Main Street businesses, supporting working families? How do you protect those? Because in 2008, I stood up here along with Brown and others, and we railed on regulators. We railed and railed and railed because they didn't do their job. And you know what they ended up doing? They ended up regulating the hell out of the banking industry to the point where we made the bigger banks bigger. Talk to me.
I agree with you, Senator. It's absolutely vital that we have a strong and vibrant community banking and regional banking sector as we do today.
We're losing that
Community
right now.
banks around the country and in states all over the country are
I
serving
don't think
their
you guys are doing
communities
a very
well.
good
And we're highly
job. I'm
attentive
just
to that when we think
saying.
about new approaches here. The kinds of rules that I'm talking about are for large banks, not community banks.
Okay, I just want to make sure that doesn't bleed down, okay? Marty, just one last thing with the chairman's indulgence. Senator Rounds brought up some very good points on a president of a bank who may not have acted appropriately and tried to pad his own pocket. I'm not making that accusation, but as you do your research, I hope you hold them accountable. It sets a very bad form if you don't.
And I can't say.
Senator Kramer's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to all of the witnesses. Frankly, I love the temperature in here. I don't think there's any question that while we aren't all exactly in the same place, we do share two concerns. One, the supervisors didn't do enough, and two, managers did the wrong thing.
Oh, I am way behind.
So I was a soccer referee before I took up this other crazy.
Redesign art in public places
And
in
when
a
I
cool
do
bit. That's a great
particularly
idea,
collegiate
Margaret.
men, if
I
I
love
didn't
that
pull out my
idea.
yellow card
More
at the
music.
first
Oh, thank you,
reckless
Mom. Dribbling
that
was
was
so
like a
much fun.
license
We're
for them
doing.
to go
We're
crazy.
gonna do some
But
more
when I
on
did
that.
put up my yellow card,
I'm excited.
with the first reckless act, everybody on the
Maybe
pitch
people would
knew
actually watch.
that
I know,
that
right?
if somebody else did it, or if they did
Some
it again,
pets.
it could be a red card.
Therapy dogs.
If
In
I warned them
hearings.
gently, they often just
Get
kept
house
them rough.
palms, uplighting.
More
Get a
rules
pink
and
ring light.
regulations without appropriate
Pink ring lights for
team
everybody.
will get us nowhere.
Pink ring lights for everybody.
But we could beat this to death, I suppose. But I do have something that we haven't talked about that I want to ask about.
Oh, make it through the frost, Max? Oomph is asking.
What role, or maybe a better way to put it,
There were
would be,
random
what
chats.
if
So many people
there
would watch.
hadn't been
I know a
broadcast
kitten
media?
cam.
What if
Kitten cam would
all
help.
everything was the same? We
Puppy
know they
bowl.
did some things, made some sales that
That would be good.
raised some concerns legitimately. But what if there hadn't been a social media sort of pitch that caused this run? Would we even be here
One
today?
of those waterfalls.
Is it possible that nothing would have ever happened, and had there not been this sort of panic, fear?
Yeah,
Fears
one
are
of
real,
those
maybe.
waterfall walls.
And maybe
Yeah.
start with you, Mr. Barr, on that.
Right.
Am I crazy to think that maybe this wouldn't
Massage
have even
chairs,
happened?
right?
Senator, it's obviously difficult to know in any circumstance
No,
what
I didn't see
shock
Lazy
is going
Gamer's
to
new
come
puppy.
to the financial
Oh,
system.
cute.
What we focus on as supervisors when we're doing our jobs right are the vulnerabilities that a firm faces and making sure that the firm is addressing those vulnerabilities and making sure we have resilience in the system with good rules on capital and liquidity so that if there's a shock that nobody anticipates,
Is it
they're
going to be
not
nice
hit in a way
in your
that
area today,
causes
Max?
contagion
Is the
in
weather going to
financial
warm up a
system.
little
So
bit?
I take your point very much.
I agree with all of that. I just
kind of
I just
warming up
worry
a
that
little
in
bit.
today's social media world that
I think we're turning
fear and panic
page
gets
summerish
accelerated, gets
weather.
elevated, and highlighted. And I don't know
From
what
the
we're going to do
report,
about it.
each
But
endorses an alarming
interested
series of
in your view on
conspiracy
it.
theories
One other thing
related
I
to
want to
J6
ask
COVID
Mr.
vaccine
Gruenberg
in the
and Mr. Sue
2020
maybe to
election.
comment on
I'm
this. There's been a
sorry.
lot of talk about
Like, that's
the
just
sale,
dumb.
of the
One is
assets,
called for
the
the
sale of First
dismantling of the
Republic to
FBI.
JP
Another
Morgan.
suggested that
Speaking
it
of
would be
big
better
getting
for
bigger,
Americans to die than to have any kind of
the
domestic
irony is
intel
rich.
program.
The
Okay,
lack of
sorry guys,
transparency in
you're
that.
not
Could
suited
each of
to
you sort of tell me?
working
I
for
know
the
the bid
FBI.
price is the
Okay,
big
go
thing, right?
work at
That's the easy
Costco
go-to in an auction.
or something like
But is there
that,
more
which is
to it?
perfectly
Should we
fine.
have
The guy that runs it
considered
is pretty
other
nice.
factors
So
in
there's
approving
that.
that sale when there were other bidders?
Come on,
Start
Carrie
with you,
Lake.
Mr. Gruenberg, and then Mr. Sue. I know you both play a
Come
role.
on, Carrie Lake.
Thank you, Senator. The statute under which the FDIC works in these matters is clear, and it really gives us one factor to consider.
which is least cost.
Really
And that was the only factor we were allowed to consider under the law in reviewing the bids that we received for First Republic.
So does the OCC have additional leeway with regard to the soundness of the system that could be considered?
So the factors that were subject to.
By the way, I watched
laid
Carrie
out in the
Lake's
Bank
trial
Act,
yesterday. It's not going
and those
well for
statutory
her, okay?
factors
It's not going well.
relate to competition.
Kurt Olson got in trouble
convenience needs of the
yesterday
community, financial
from the judge.
stability, BSA,
Did something
AML,
illegal or something.
managerial financial
It
resources,
was a
et
bad
cetera.
trial.
We
It
also
was a
have
bad trial for
guidelines
Carrie
that
Lake.
we've released that
So,
articulate the frameworks for reviewing those. In a failing bank
pretty funny.
case, especially where there's a larger
So-called
institution, we also
whistleblowers.
have to
If there
take
was
into
a
account the
point
financial
blow up,
stability factor
it would
becomes quite important.
viciously attack
And it's
that
very
person.
important for us
It
to
might
ensure
happen.
that
I think that was
the
the
actions we
last
take
freeze.
ensure coordinated and timely
Wait,
government
who's the,
action,
oh, hold on.
support
I think that was the
minimal
last
cost to
freeze
the
danger, but
and
usually in
really
my
check
area, we
the
have to wait
risk
until
of
after Memorial
contagion and
Day.
uncertainty.
Yeah, I understand.
Those are very important.
Yeah, I mean,
Timeliness in a
I
crisis
have
is
friends in
critical,
Maine,
and I
and like
understand that
they
as
had
well. I
snow
just
the other week.
hope the right incentives are in place.
And
Since I have a few
these
seconds, I
so-called
just want to
whistleblowers are
wrap
directly
up
connected
with
to a
what
network of
Senator Vance was
extremists or
talking
extreme
about, Mr. Barr.
MAGA Republican operatives,
You kept saying
including
that the
former Trump
report finds that the
administration.
supervisors were
Kash
focused on the right things, but
Patel,
not forceful
Russell
enough, sort of
Vaughn, and Mark
regarding their
Meadows.
findings.
Mark Meadows, who's singing like a little
Focus and
tiny
forcefulness
girl.
sort of go together in my
Well,
mind.
shit, Lo, that's why you
If
had a
they're
bad trip. I don't
focused, it
know. I
implies
felt like it was actually pretty
exactly that,
calm,
focus, but it also would imply that you'd
but
have a forceful
I don't know.
response. I think there is a
Have
distraction.
incentives
I
to
think it's
these
possible
witnesses
to
and their
say in the
meritless
course of
claims
an
in
8
order
or
to
9 or
feed their
10 hour day,
radical
40, 50 hour
agenda,
week
attack Dems, cast
with
doubt on decisions
limited
of the
resources, that it
DOJ,
can just
and
do
advance
all things
Trump's
intellectually,
candidacy for
socially,
president.
culturally.
It's true.
It'd be
It's
better
true.
if regulators focused
It's
on the things that they're
true.
supposed to focus on. All three of you have articulated
Hey,
your
David, the left
parameters
horseshoe
very
is
well.
coiling like
Let's
a
stay within the
springy
parameters and
Whitney
focus
Webb.
there.
Greenwald and the
Senator
other phonies are
Warner from Virginia is
prepping
recognized.
hearts.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh
I
yeah,
had a really good question,
yeah.
but
It
I was
just
actually going
wasn't.
to say something nice about my friend
There
Senator
was some
Kennedy,
like
but and
triggers
maybe
that
I'll get
really
to it. But I
triggered
want to
me,
pick up where
and
Senator Kramer
I mean, I think from
started,
a
which was,
standpoint of bad
don't worry, I
good,
may
it was
still talk
good in the
about you later.
standpoint
You
of there
know,
was a lot of
Chairman gives me a little
release
discretion.
yesterday for me. But I
But I
think I
think
would have set it up differently
what
to
you
have more
mentioned,
support during the
we can talk
day
about how we got here
than I
and
did.
what standard was
And
appropriate, what the
I will
regulators
now
did
be
right or wrong.
microdosing
I
and
was going to
not
compliment Senator
doing
Kennedy
a
on how he
larger dose.
described
So
the
that's it.
quality
Or
of
when I
management
do a
of these
larger dose, I'm
institutions.
going to be with
But
friends
in
or
the case of
at a
SVB,
really nice
$42
natural
billion
location, like in the
in
mountains.
6 hours
So that's
on
all.
that
It just,
run.
but it was kind of a hard
I
day.
don't know
I'm not
what
gonna lie.
regulatory
It was
structure
a
at
little bit
that
of a hard
point, at
day.
least on
I mean, it was
calculations I
just
saw, that was the equivalent of 25
emotions and
cents on every dollar.
shrooms, but you know,
Nothing would have stopped that.
it still was a
And I don't
hard
think
day.
we've really,
Is the committee back?
and
Wait, are they?
frankly, Vice Chair
Wait,
Barr,
hold on.
I give you a lot of credit for your
No,
report.
they're not.
You had a
He
short period of
he
time. I think you
rage
did a
quit,
good piece of
Cal.
work, got a couple of
Jim
follow-up
Jordan
questions.
rage quit.
But this run, and I'm going to ask to start with Michael and Marty, but
I'm looking for the
both
Carrie
another,
Lake
but I
trial.
asked this most focused to my
I really have
Republican
something I need to
colleagues.
do today. But
You know, there were laws back in the 30s that if you accelerated a bank run, there was a penalty paid.
but yeah, I was just
Candidly, I
on
think some of the
reflection
folks from
from
my old
yesterday.
industry, the old venture
It was
industry,
just a tough day.
very
Everyone
irresponsible.
there
The
in support of
Wednesday
that
night
sham
before
hearing
the
was
run
paid witnesses and audience of Mickey,
exacerbated that.
Nicole, and
They
Gary. Yeah,
were
see, so
familiar
I'm
with the
convinced
institution
they just put Mickey
as
wherever they
any
need her.
entities around there. And I still would like to know where some of that money
They
ended
just
up
put Mickey
going.
wherever they need her to
But we've not really talked about that. We've
put their
not really
message
talked
on
as well.
TV.
And this is where I
Mickey is a
I may
prop.
get the nods to go and no.
Mickey is
I
a
know
prop.
you guys feel that the
I'm
SEC
surprised she's not here.
leadership has got too many items on our docket at this
I
point.
betcha.
But one that's not gotten a lot of attention is
It's going to be
a
like Forrest
fulsome
Gump. She's
look at
going to
short
show up
selling.
everywhere.
You know, I think back in the 2008 crisis,
Mickey Gump.
then SEC chair there, Republican former House member
I
Cox,
really want to take us
put a
back to
hold for a couple weeks
it's a
on
really
short
nice
selling.
shot right
Later
now.
analysis showed it didn't really work that much. But maybe a fulsome look to
I
your
like that word
analogy
wholesome.
about if your short
It's a good
sellers
word.
inappropriately not disclosed, that's going to not get you a yellow card. It may get you a red card. Might be something that we could collaborate on. I want to start with Mr. Grunberg.
Where
You know,
is
this internet-driven run, exacerbated by folks who are very familiar with the institution, you know, shout and fire in a crowded theater on that Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Tools we've got, suggestions.
That's right.
It is an area that I think is worth exploring. You know, the speed of that run, the ferocity of
They
that
make sure
run
she's behind.
was
Yeah,
something that I don't think anybody had
I
ever
feel like
seen.
okay.
As you pointed out, $42 billion
Well,
in
I
a
won't
few
talk over this
hours,
guy.
another
Maybe
100
not
billion
on
lined up
that.
the
I
next
mean,
day. So in less than 24
it's a
hours,
podcast. No, not on
losing
that one,
basically
gal.
85% of the deposit base is unprecedented.
Well, she has
I do think
exactly.
that, it's
Max,
worth
that's why
looking
she has to
at
wear the shirt.
that in relation to our banking tools. The issues that you raise with respect to
And really,
other
it's just to
actors
keep
is
them. I
really
think it's just
an
to keep her
SEC
busy
matter.
and just get some airtime.
Senator, I think we learned some hard lessons about liquidity risk in this episode. And there are probably three things I'd point
Oh,
to.
you did,
One,
gal? Ooh.
not only
I'm not
the
on their text
reliance of the
list. I'm on
institution
their
on
email
uninsured
list, but not their
deposits,
text list.
but those uninsured deposits were
He looks
concentrated
like
in
a banker.
particular
If there was a
among a
banker
relatively small number of
casting, I would
depositors.
cast him.
So the ability for those
Look at
deposits
his
to
like.
go fast, well, I think was really underappreciated. Second, obviously, online banking facilitates that kind of liquidity risk
Look at the
significantly. And the
There's a
factor, as you suggested, of
viciously
social media can broadcast that out
I
much
know,
more
Mark.
quickly than in the past.
If there's a
And
chance of
this is
someone being
a
clawed in
set
the
of
face,
realities that we're really
I
going to have to
might
come
go
to
for
grips
it.
with going
I
forward.
might
Those
support
we
it.
issued a
I
report
might
on
support
deposit
it.
insurance, and we talked about those things as matters we're going to need to work on going forward.
Anybody else on the panel want to weigh in on this?
Senator, I think you've highlighted an important issue that we need to focus on. The good news is we have in the past, liquidity risks do change over time. And we do need to be responsive
Didn't
to
you
those
see the vid
changes.
I
There
posted?
have been examples in the
HL
past in
Hunt. Oh
wholesale
my God,
funding
file
markets
oil guard
where we have
JBS
made
tax
adjustments
rate.
to
It's
catch
too
up
much
and make
because
sure that we
they
can
used
address
to
those
say
in
it
a safe
out
and sound manner.
Yeah,
loud. All the Christo
candidly, I appreciate what everybody said, but
pushed by his.
we've all said this, but I haven't
No, I
heard
haven't
of
seen that.
that many worthwhile policy recommendations. I don't think we're going to put in place the kind of speed bumps on taking money out that we've got in the stock market. I do think if we put a little bit more to Senator Kramer's position about a yellow or red card on short selling inappropriately, that might put some hesitancy there.
Oh, I think there's
But
plenty
I do
of
think
people
we
who
have
would
to
make it.
look at, is there any responsibility, particularly for somebody who's been a long-term position of capital in these institutions, that does this, and SVB's model was so focused on VC, they pulled the ripcord, but I would ask you all to think about this. My time has expired. I just want to make one
Did
last
we
quick
or
comment,
did we not
Mr. Chairman.
hear?
If I'd had another
from?
question, I would have asked Vice Chairman Barr, you put a lot of recommendations saying it's going to take you a couple years for the regulars. I don't think we can wait that long. I think particularly when so many of us at least think this was we all said
stabilization.
banking 101 mismatch, making sure that information gets higher prioritized and to the management, to the board. I think there's work we need to do there, and I look forward to working with you on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What about the Kennedy compliment?
The Kennedy compliment was going to be, I was going to talk about how the executive said they'd done everything, they loved their institutions, they were so smart, and you and that kind of
Senator's time's expired, Senator.
Why way always said to them, you called them out for being just
Senator Brett of
plain
Alabama.
over the top.
Senator,
You're a
excuse
fine
me,
American,
this
Senator.
This is 1 minute off your time, Senator Kennedy. Senator Brett, Alabama.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bye, Mom. See you
Appreciate
later.
all of you being here today.
AZ family.
On
Prison
Tuesday,
time.
we heard from the
Another
top
45.
executives
Oh, okay.
of SVB and
We might
Signature Bank,
just
and
feel
unfortunately,
like
it
just
was
going to the
disheartening
beach. I'm gonna be
to
real
hear
with
the
you, but
lack
I'll
of
stay here.
responsibility taken from these individuals regarding the decisions they made that put their financial
Kennedy so
institutions, their depositors, their broader banking sector across the nation in a position of unfathomable risk. I have significant concerns around their actions, but today we are here to talk about yours. I was disappointed when I read the report, Mr. Barr, the Barr report that you put out, because in my opinion, in reading that, you didn't take adequate
Oh
responsibility
no, he's
for
terrible.
what I
There's
believe
nothing.
is under your purview. I read and
Not a lot
saw
of redeeming
where there
quality
was
about him.
blame placed on the San
Foghorn.
Francisco Fed, where there was blame placed on your examiners, blame on your
Well,
predecessors,
that's okay.
blame on 2155, but
Committee
I
members
didn't
going out of order to
hear
joke around with each other are the
blame
worst, right?
put on
Huh.
yourself. That's the one
Taking
entity
a
or
minute off
person
your
that I didn't
time.
see in the report. I
Darn
will
it.
say I really appreciate your candor today and saying that the buck stops with you. I believe that you have to take some personal
Well, that's so
responsibility for what
true.
you've done, and I appreciate
Committee members' jokes
you
are the
doing that
worst.
today. I will say, Mr. Barr, on the day that SVB failed, how long had you been in your current role?
I joined in middle of July of 2022.
Okay, so about 10 months?
I haven't done the math. It
Okay.
sounds like 7 months.
Okay, 7 months, 10 months to today. That makes sense. So in that short time, the ranking member mentioned this. Obviously, Mr. Vance, Senator Vance mentioned this as well, but you spent considerable
Depends
time
a little Robert's
speeches
Rules of
and
Order.
other
I know,
things
because that's
talking
the
about
point
climate
of this.
issues
The
and a
structure
number
is
of
like
those remarks. And
the
what I
glue.
fear is that we're
When you
seeing a
don't
shift
find
of
the
priority,
glue,
a shift where someone like you, who,
you
as I looked on
don't
your website, it says
have
that your job is
glue.
to promote the safety and
Loosey
soundness of the
goosey.
banking system, to foster stability in the
Loosey
financial
goosey is no
markets,
good.
and ensure individual banks are complying with laws and regulation under its jurisdiction. The
Blueberry.
focus is not there.
Yay.
The focus needs to be on
No,
the
this is
31
raspberry
outstanding,
something.
the
I don't know what this
outstanding
is.
supervisory
What is it?
findings,
Oh wait, here it is.
and making sure that we have proper answers on
It was
those,
on
not on
sale.
climate risk or changes, but
So
on
that's
what
my
your
favorite
actual
kind of
job
weed is what's
is.
on sale.
And so on
Silver
that note,
Ghost,
well,
nice.
you mentioned earlier that the day that SVB failed, there were 31 supervisory findings that were
I don't know,
outstanding. Is
guys.
that correct?
Oh, mango
Yes.
ice.
And so of those,
Mango.
my question is why your people didn't do more.
Mango ice.
It is my understanding they could have downgraded their supervisory ratings, which obviously would have resulted in more frequent
93.5
supervision and
cannabinoids.
exams, or they could have
Cannabinoids.
taken enforcement actions like
And it
prohibiting
was on
dividends to
sale.
shareholders, requiring immediate capital increases, fines, other things like that.
Lemon
But
skunk.
they did
Oh, that's
neither.
cute.
Is
Mine
that
truth.
correct?
The supervisors had downgraded the firm in the summer with respect to broad-based problems in governance and controls, risk management functions, to deficient 1, which means the firm is not well managed. And as a result of that, the firm was subject to a 4M limitation, which meant that it could no longer merge with or acquire non-banking entities. And the staff were also in the process of
still can't use my
developing
hand.
a detailed memorandum of
Nice,
understanding,
mind.
which is the
Nice.
first level enforcement action after a deficient downgrade occurs. So the steps were in train. What the report found is that our supervisors were not moving fast enough with respect to those actions.
So they had the tools in their toolbox, but they weren't using them with the force that they could have.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that the
And I'm
tools
so
were
sorry.
there.
The tools were there. They just had not, they didn't
Good
use them with the
character
force.
study
I'm
for
hoping moving forward, I don't think we need
T-Rex.
new tools. I just think to your earlier point about creating a culture where those tools are used, you can do that internally. That's a leadership issue. That's not
Yes.
something that we don't need more rules or regulations to do that. And I am almost out of time. Mr. Grutenberg, my question is for you. Do you agree that if Silicon Valley Bank was sold while it was still an open bank, it would have been better for the economy, the consumers, and other banks
Well,
who
I
have
mean, I guess it
now
depends on who
had to
you
foot
sell
the
it
bill
to.
to replenish the diff?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, so did you have any interested parties with interest to purchase SVB the night before SVB failed?
I'm not aware of any, Senator. We weren't the primary regulator, so we wouldn't have been the ones necessarily contacted in regard to that.
Okay, but if there were interested parties and we find that there were, that certainly should have been done the night before versus afterwards, it would have saved us all $35 billion at this point.
If there were opportunities for an open institution solution, that would have been perfect.
Well, if we find that, I certainly hope that in the future we make those types of choices instead of ones that ultimately cause institutions all over
Well,
the country to have to pay.
stop sending me your OnlyFans. Oh wait, that's not you.
Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just kidding.
So earlier this month, when First Republic Bank collapsed, multiple
Where are
banks
you? Where
were
did you send
interested
it? Did you
in
send it to
buying
my
the
other
failed
account?
bank. Banking regulators chose J.P. Morgan Chase, America's biggest bank. The result was that a gigantic, poorly supervised bank was swallowed up by an even more gigantic bank, and now the biggest bank in the country is about $200 billion bigger than it was before. So in order for the deal to go through, two separate regulators had to sign off. When the FDIC sells a failed bank, the law requires it to choose the highest bidder that will result in the lowest cost to the deposit insurance fund. But the law also requires sign
That
off from
picture
the
of Cash Patel
OCC.
that
And the
somebody
OCC's
photoshopped
job
and
by law is to consider whether the merger will
well, look at
pose,
her.
quote, risk to the stability of the United
Blazer Girl
States
is
banking
back.
or financial system, end quote. Acting Controller Sue, OCC regulations
I'm not gonna
include
lie,
a
I
list
sent her
of
money for her
factors
campaign.
that the OCC must consider when evaluating, quote, risk to the stability of the banking system. Do you know the first item on that list?
Leon
It
has
relates
throttled
to
you so
the
bad you
financial
panic.
stability,
Oh,
whether there's a
wow.
threat to financial stability in the U.S.
Whether or not, and what is the item you're supposed to consider? The very first one on the list.
I believe it is whether the merger will have financial stability impacts
Because of?
because of the merger.
No, it's whether the proposed transaction would result in a material increase in risks to the financial stability due to an increase in the size of the combining institutions.
Duh.
It troubles me that you don't remember this. So how do we know if a purchasing
Ooh,
bank
she just took him to
poses more
school.
or less risk
Took him
to
to
the banking
banking
system?
school.
Well, one metric that regulators use is the GSIB score, which estimates the impact on our financial system of the failure of each of our largest banks. The size of the bank is a big factor in its GSIB score.
Here
So let's
comes.
look at the
Here
GSIB
comes
scores and
Elizabeth
figure out
Warren.
if
Dun, dun,
JP
dun,
Morgan,
dun,
according to the
dun, dun, dun,
OCC's
dun,
own
dun, dun,
analysis,
dun,
presented more
dun.
risk to the banking system than the other bidders that have been widely reported in the press. So PNC tried to buy the
Love
failing
it.
bank, but you approved
Love
JP
it.
Morgan instead. Acting Controller Sue,
Oh,
is
wait,
the
what?
GSIB score for JP
Oh my
Morgan
God, they're back.
bigger than the
Here, I can
Sorry,
respond and be judged in
Elizabeth.
a court of public opinion. I have no
You're
objection to
done.
both sides having access to
You're
read the
done.
transcript, and I look forward
Sorry.
to reviewing
Sorry,
it
girl.
myself.
Well, it's not of much help
thank
when
you.
you give it to us during the hearing. But I have a point of order, Mr. Chairman, if I may be recognized.
Gentleman's recognized for point of order.
I point the chairman to Rule 10, Clause 9G, which in conjunction to Rule 11, Clause 2E, which I read earlier, states that each staff member appointed pursuant to a request by minority party members shall be accorded equitable treatment with respect to the accessibility of committee records. Now, the chairman is correct in pointing out that there are restrictions on whistleblower disclosures. However, those restrictions pertain to the House as a whole. They do not mention any distinction between the majority and the minority. Instead, what we have are two clear rules that require the majority to provide information to the minority that is committee property, which would be any meetings between the committee members or staff with any potential witnesses. So I would move for the chairman
It will lose
to
all context
agree
and just evolve into a
to
4chan.
order that all materials, notes,
mosh
and
pit of
otherwise related to these witnesses
A mosh
before
pit of
us
fuckery.
be provided to the minority according to the rules of the House.
Terrible.
Overruled. Mr. Allen, we thank you for your
I
willingness to make
move
that.
for a recorded, I'd appeal the ruling of the chair.
Yeah.
I move to table.
I'd ask for a recorded vote.
Gentleman's asked, we will, committee
Where's
will
all the
suspend while we
Democrats?
have the clerks. I think we have to have the clerks.
Where's the Democrats?
To tally the vote.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid you're excused for a little while.
One second, if we could just step back, we'll have the clerk, be real quick. The clerks will, we could probably let you just stay right there. The clerks,
Oh, Jim's doing such a great job on his big first day, or, 71st day.
Lynn won the microphone, and
This is
clerks
great.
will call the roll.
This is so great. Good job, everybody.
Mr. Jordan?
Yes.
Mr. Jordan votes yes. Mr. Issa?
Yes.
Mr. Issa votes yes. Mr. Massey?
Yes.
Mr. Massey
Where are all the
votes yes.
Democrats?
Mr. Stewart? Mr. Stewart votes yes. Ms. Stefanik? Mr. Gates?
Yes.
Mr. Gates votes yes. Mr. Johnson of Louisiana.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson of Louisiana votes yes. Mr. Armstrong.
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong votes yes. Mr. Stube.
Yeah.
Mr. Bishop.
Although he
Mr.
has
Bishop
sometimes
votes yes.
those weird,
Ms.
like,
Kamak. Ms.
window
Haberman.
pane shirts little tiny
Ms.
window
Plaskett.
panes that I hate.
Ms. Plaskett votes no. Mr. Lynch. Ms. Sanchez. Ms. Wasserman Schultz. Mr. Connolly.
Oh, they're there. I didn't
Mr.
see 'em.
Garamendi. Mr.
The
Garamendi votes no.
glasses.
Mr. Allred. Mr. Allred votes no. Ms. Garcia.
No.
Ms. Garcia votes no. Mr. Goldman.
Whistleblowers who come
Mr.
forward to
Goldman votes
expose
no.
waste, fraud, and abuse in government do so at great personal risk, and federal law rightly protects good faith whistleblowers from retaliation by their employers. Absolutely. Republicans may want to use the term whistleblower to describe their witnesses so that they can conduct their
Mr. Chairman, there are 8
investigation in
ayes
secret
and 5
and spin
noes.
a narrative
Motion
about
to table is approved.
retaliation.
Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. O'Boyle, have you publicly shared what you discussed with Chairman Jordan's staff before today? It says yes or no.
Did I publicly do what?
Share, like
With whom?
with the public.
About which part of my
Any
testimony?
of your testimony, sir, that you shared with Jordan's staff, have you shared that with the public or this committee? It's a yes or no, sir. It's really not that
I
hard.
don't believe so.
You don't believe that, so, okay. And during your transcribed interview on
He was
February
under
10th,
oath.
did you explain to the committee counsel the content of what you had previously shared with Chairman Jordan's staff?
To some degree regarding the questions that were asked on that day.
To some degree, is that, so that is a yes?
Yes, to some degree.
Okay, but you shared it only with the lawyers.
Mr. Gates was present for part of that testimony as well.
Okay. So the only people who know the wrongdoing you claim to have uncovered at the FBI, to your knowledge, are Chairman Jordan's staff, Congressman Estes, and maybe now Congressman Gates?
I also shared some of my disclosures with my chain of command prior to coming
No,
to
I'm talking
Not what
about
she's
your
asking.
testimony here today in this
Not what
committee.
she's asking, sweetie pie. Sweetie
Right, that
cheeks.
includes some of what I had provided to my chain of command as well.
Well, that's not the question.
Not the question.
So the FBI has said that it cannot comment on ongoing adjudication matters. Do you know if your security clearance suspension decision is still under adjudication with the FBI?
Or federal
Oddly
law
enough,
only
I received
protects-
an email last week from the FBI attempting to schedule an interview with me for tomorrow, which I find is no coincidence, heading into
Well,
the
that
hearing.
doesn't matter. You're not the
Prior
scheduler.
to that
So it's still
email,
being adjudicated. The answer is yes.
prior to that email, I had not.
All right, so it's
been
still
aware.
being adjudicated, but in her April 24th transcribed interview, Executive Assistant Director Moore told us that when Mr. Jordan's counsel asked you about your case, that she, quote, is not allowed to discuss any ongoing security investigations. So you're still being investigated. So neither you nor the FBI can help us understand what information you shared and when you shared it.
Well, I have provided that information to members of this subcommittee who I believe will take it
Well,
seriously.
no, you've submitted it to the chairman and the committee's staff. But as you've been hearing this morning, a lot of that, most of that, we have not seen as Democrats. It's not been shared. It's not been shared pursuant to the laws, our rules. It's not been shared just even in keeping with a notion of fairness. You know, in any proceeding like this.
Polite.
Well, in notion of fairness, you claim
So
that
we
we
don't
aren't
know what was
whistleblowers.
disclosed. The committee counsel hasn't had the opportunity to assess the information you shared.
Oh, I
with
would
Jim
get up and
Jordan's staff.
smack him.
Yet here we are hearing on the matter. There's been no transparency, no real.
There's a lot
effort
of
to
good notes
inform.
in the chat.
It's
I don't
just
want to
a partisan
overspeak
political
them.
stunt
So
that
read
is
the
more
chat.
interested in attacking the FBI than helping whistleblowers. In Texas, we would just say that this is just a lot of hot air blowing here, and it ain't a whistleblower. By having this hearing before the majority makes even basic information about your claims available to us, Chairman Jordan is doing us all a disfavor. We're meeting without knowing. In his opening remarks, he said that he had brought you here to have you tell us what you have seen and what you had witnessed. Yet, we really still don't know because you haven't told us anything. I went through your whole witness statement, and there's nothing in there about what you saw or what you heard.
That's
It's
not
just
true. That's
Sir,
not true.
it's just a bio
That's
and
false.
your political statements. I read the whole thing, sir.
That's false.
So by having this hearing before us today, the majority makes even basic information about your claims not available to us. So Chairman Jordan is just doing us all a disservice. He's doing the minority a disservice by not allowing us to vet your
She should
claims,
focus
to be
on
able
the
to
fact that this is
adequately ask you questions.
it's a sham to
Frankly,
not
he's
have all
doing
the
you a
information
disservice,
disclosed.
sir,
Like,
by
don't
all
worry
the
about
lights and
Democrats.
cameras before his claims have even been examined. More than that, this hearing is an insult to the brave whistleblowers out there who do risk their careers for the good of their country. This circus of embedded secret accusations puts at risk the critical role whistleblowers play in holding the powerful accountable. Most whistleblowers aren't interested in being political pawns
Move to
in
adjourn. There
congressional
you go.
Republicans' games. Playing politics is holding up this scheme as whistleblowers will make other public servants fearful of coming forward out
Terrible.
of fear they'll just be used.
Have an email.
Whistleblowers serve an important purpose in this country. They're often brave individuals who help root out corruption and make our democracy stronger. In fact, just this last February, whistleblowers who have been fired by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton in retaliation for accusing him of crimes came to a settlement with the Attorney General.
Time of the gentlelady is expired.
Mr.
Chairman.
He had to settle for
Time of the gentlelady is
$3.3
expired.
million.
Chair now
Because
recognizes.
he wanted to make sure some information
Chair now
didn't get out.
recognizes the
That's
gentleman
what
from
whistleblowers
California.
do.
The gentlelady, this is my time. I've been recognized. Thank you. Mr. O'Boyle, is it true that you have 157 pages of questions that were asked you on a bipartisan basis that are in the record?
To my knowledge, that's correct.
Mr. Friend, isn't it true that for those several hours you accumulated 198 pages of Q&A, half of the time being yielded to the Democrats for your interview?
Yes.
I yield time to the chairman.
Someone needs to tell the Democrats, I think, gentleman, someone needs to tell the Democrats you came and talked to this committee because you're a whistleblower. Isn't that right, Mr. Levitt?
Yes, sir.
That's exactly how it works.
May I take a moment to address this idea that these aren't whistleblowers?
Sure.
The law,
You need to educate the members on the other side of the dais
I
here.
don't need educating.
the way that the law...
Mr. Chairman.
This is my time.
I did not
Let's
need
stop
to
the clock.
be demeaned. I am a lawyer just like this gentleman is. I too have read the law. We just have a big
Not your
difference
time.
of
The time
opinion
belongs.
in
The time
exactly
belongs
what
to
he
me.
says and
Mr.
what I
Levitt,
say.
Mr. Levitt has been asked
You
a
need
question.
to stop demeaning
So
your
the
colleagues.
whistleblower statutes...
Exactly. Stop fucking demeaning your colleagues.
Activity, right? One doesn't have to be retaliated against in order to be a whistleblower,
gotta
right?
walk
We all
my
agree
dog.
that's not the way that it should happen. And what's being discussed today is that you're not a whistleblower unless you both share this, engage in protected activity, and then are retaliated against, and then go through this process. The Department of Justice Inspector General is currently investigating the claims of Mr. Friend and Mr. Allen. That's exactly what, I don't know what perfect whistleblower there would be, but if they did that, these are the steps they would take, and so by this definition, they're not considered a whistleblower for
Mr.
years
Boyle,
after.
you went up your chain of command with your concerns. Is
That's
that
a
right?
bullshit argument.
Yes, sir. I initially started with them, and
Semantics.
those initial complaints fell on deaf ears.
Then you came to the House Judiciary Committee with those concerns. Is that
You
right?
came to
After going to
Jordan
my local congressman, then I
through
came to the judiciary.
Exactly
Schaefer.
like the law prescribes for you to do when you see something that is wrong.
Seek out.
You did that. So did Mr. Friend. So did Mr.
Oh,
Allen.
in the replies?
Yield back to the gentleman from
Let
California.
me see.
Mr. Levitt,
Is there
briefly,
any people
am I
who-
correct that starting with a resolution in 1778, whistleblowers have been recognized by our government, by our Congress, and that's been amended again in 78, 84, and 94, and the most recent one in 2012 passed unanimously in this House. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We recognize
Val
whistleblowers
is
for their
leaving the
patriotic
receipts.
You know what's amazing is when I authored the 2012, along with Mr. Jordan and others, there wasn't any question but that we wanted to better protect whistleblowers' ability to come
We're
to
so
us with
lucky to
what
have
they
Gal.
believed was accurate information. Isn't the belief of accurate information the basis?
Yes, reasonable belief.
So is there any question but that people can have a reasonable belief, for example, that going after everyone who came in on January 6th on a bus and getting their financial records from Bank of America would be inappropriate, and getting their gun purchases for their entire lives would be inappropriate? Isn't there a reasonable belief that that might not be appropriate to do and necessary?
Yes, we believe disclosing that was protected.
So people have made appropriate statements, including about January 6th and some excesses that occurred afterwards in the investigation
not
that
excesses,
violated
sweetie.
people's constitutional
They'd
right
be
to
the
privacy,
opposite of
correct?
excesses, really.
So here we have people who are talking about MAGA and January 6th, But in fact, they're missing the point. Each of these whistleblowers came forward with what is clearly protected disclosure, and they've had it systematically released, and they've been systematically treated in a way after they came forward that looks like, smells like, and including so-called mistakes, represents retaliation. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's why the Inspector General opened investigations into these disclosures.
So as we sit here today, we've missed one important point, haven't we?
He lost his health
Each of these
insurance
individuals
coverage.
came to the committee with valid claims that at least need to be investigated of wrongdoing by our premier law enforcement organization.
Yes, and Congress protects those disclosures.
And as we sit here today, each of these individuals has been stripped of his clearance, stripped of his ability to work, and stripped of his pay. In your background and history, have you ever seen as straightforward a retaliation as current employees being denied their ability to work, their pay, and their benefits after they've made these kinds of claims?
No, and this is why there's a problem, because it's their clearance that was used as the means of retaliation.
Well, but also in the case, Mr.
Get a job
Allen,
at the burger bar they're hiring.
Well, they're just also not getting any
I'm a
work.
barista. They have
That's the
great
point.
health.
Yeah, once they suspend your clearance, they also simultaneously
You
put you
don't
on
need
suspension.
security
But that's not
clearance
something that's
to get a
appealable
job
to
as a
the MSPB
barista.
like a normal firing or demotion is.
If they were most other workers in government, they'd
Oh,
still
honestly,
have
I
their
gotta take my
jobs
dog
and
out,
be
you
paid,
guys.
even if they weren't working,
And
correct?
I
This is
think I have to
uniquely a form
be,
of retribution they're able
drive
to
my
do
daughter
to
to
law
work,
enforcement.
so
If you're suspended, yeah, it gets
to be off
nuanced,
the
but certainly with the clearance, that's a surefire way they can just get them out of the way when they want.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes.
Well, they're throwing you to the wild business.
Gentleman from Georgia.
I hear. Hold
you.
on. Okay,
I
hold
just want to point
on.
out, I think this is the first time our sympathies are with your staff. I know you had that terrible incident that happened, so you'll get your full 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. I really appreciate that. I must say, my friend from California, I don't know where this concern for whistleblowers and protecting whistleblowers was in the Ukraine episode in that perfect phone call Donald Trump had with President Zelensky, in which a whistleblower, Colonel Vindman, was in fact subsequently punished for reporting on that phone call, which led to the impeachment of the President of the United States. So wouldn't it be nice if we were consistent on our concerns about whistleblowers?
Would the gentleman
No,
yield?
I will not. Mr. Levitt, I have 5 minutes and I haven't got time. Mr. Levitt, you represent an organization, you're president of the organization called Empower Oversight, is that correct?
Yes.
And Empower Oversight represents an FBI agent or a former FBI agent, Mr. George Hill, whom we heard from a little earlier.
Well, no, actually. Mr. Hill did not have counsel for his transcribed interview, so my partner, Jason Foster, agreed to sit in on his interview just for procedural.
Okay, so you were sort of like a surrogate counsel, but not formally. You have no formal relationship with Mr. Hill?
Correct.
But why did you choose to help him in a deposition?
Well, I didn't. Again, my partner,
Empower
Jason Foster, we were informed that he didn't have any counsel, and we both of us have experience sitting in many congressional transcribed interviews.
And your view is he is also a valid whistleblower?
Again, he's not my client. I can't speak to his claims. I do have the view that going out and, again, the idea, attacking someone saying you haven't yet been given the magic wand of whistleblower status, I believe that's inappropriate. I'm not familiar with all of the substance of his personnel actions.
Huh. Well, might it cause you some concern? Let me show some tweets on the screen from Mr. Hill. This one, he had theories about January 6th that it was instigated by the deep state, not by insurrectionists who were up to no good, seeking to hang the vice president, Republican vice president, I might add, of the United States, or other depredations. It was the deep state that led to this. Are you familiar with that tweet?
No.
Here's another one. Are you familiar with this tweet? In which he talked again that the deep state is real on the January 6th insurrection.
Just to be clear, I'm not familiar with any of his tweets. We just believe that it can be helpful for people to have counsel, and we were willing to assist in that way.
Well, but isn't it also helpful to kind of know a little bit of background when you are providing counsel?
We were just there for the procedural counsel of the interview, not to represent him in all his interests.
I understand, but wouldn't you want to be curious about his status and what led him to be in
I'm
this
sure it's
situation?
quite possible that my co-counsel, Jason Foster, is familiar with these. I literally wasn't even an employee of Empower at that time. I was still sitting on the Merit Systems Protection Board.
And what's your view? Do you believe that January 6th was instigated by the deep state?
Define the deep state, sir.
I don't know. It's not my
I
turn.
sure don't either.
Oh, good. All right.
Great question.
Because it is a phrase frequently used by the former president of the United States, so it's out there. But you don't know what it means.
Obviously, as at the Merit Systems Protection Board, we dealt with people at all layers
Yeah.
of bureaucracy.
Well, I actually kind of share that with you. I don't know what it means either. I think it's kind of made up, like a boogeyman, so that we can use it as a catch-all. I must say, on this hearing, y'all have employment grievances. That doesn't make you whistleblowers. And maybe those grievances are legitimate, or maybe some aspects of it are legitimate, and all of you have careers, and I'm sorry for the situation in which you find yourselves, but this is not a forum for individual members of any agency, federal agency, unless there's a broad pattern of discrimination or violation of law, to air their grievances, their employment grievances. And I must say, listening to this hearing, I don't walk away convinced of anything other than we're listening to sad tales of certain individuals about their situation. And the enumeration of grievances does not constitute whistleblower status. And I'm not quite sure why we had this hearing. I certainly don't think it proves some consistent pattern of wrongdoing by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I've heard some things here that run counter to the history of the FBI. The gentlelady, I think, from Florida said, like a new idea that they got in the intelligence business, that would have come as news to J. Edgar Hoover, who loved intelligence and, in fact, preferred it over some forms of law enforcement. Had a whole network in South America he had to dismantle when President Truman told him he had to get out of that business. So thank you for being here. But I must tell you, I leave more skeptical and with more questions about the nature of this hearing than I began. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chairman, if I could sink a very short point of privilege. For the record, I left Congress in 2019 and returned in 2021. I believe the gentleman saw an absence of conduct by me when I wasn't in Congress.
I must say, I'm so fond of my friend from California, it was like he was still here.
And I thank my good friend from Virginia. Yield back.
Yeah, and I would just point out before I recognize the gentleman from Louisiana that just for the committee's benefit,
Chairman?
Mr. Vindman was not the whistleblower.
Mr. Chairman.
But he was retaliated
The
against for
whistleblower
testifying pursuant to a lawful
remained
subpoena.
anonymous, and unlike Mr. Allen, we never saw Mr. Allen's willingness to give us the transcript. We never saw the transcript from the anonymous whistleblower.
What are you talking about? There was a
Gentleman from
complaint
Louisiana.
that was publicly disclosed.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary inquiry.
Gentleman, well, I've already recognized Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Democrats, our friends on the other side of the aisle, are trying their best to obscure the purpose of this hearing and to pretend like they don't
they're trying
understand the
to
meaning
have
of
the
it. Here
hearing
it
make
is.
sense.
Activists
make
in the
sense.
FBI and the Department of Justice have
Make it make
weaponized the
sense. I
full
hate
weight
this
of
guy.
their
Oh, I
agencies
fucking
against
hate this guy.
everyday Americans. It's alarming. The examples that have been highlighted by this committee are
Everyday
shocking.
domestic
The
terrorists.
sensibilities of all the people that we represent, and they want us to get action and answers and accountability. The FBI, here's a couple of examples. The FBI sought to label concerned parents at school board meetings domestic terrorists. We know that they sought to recruit spies and informants inside the congregations of traditional Catholic churches. We know that they worked with the social media platforms hand in hand, almost as partners over the last 2 election cycles, to censor and silence conservatives online that they disagreed with. Sometimes they were candidates. And now, the people at this table were patriots who just bothered their consciences, who knew that this was against their oaths of service and their duty, spoke up, and they're being retaliated against. Mr. O'Boyle, I wanted to just discuss one of these examples. In your transcribed interview with committee members, you stated that federal law enforcement involvement at school board meetings would, in your words, absolutely chill parents from
Federalist
exercising
Society
their
says
First Amendment
what?
rights. Can you explain a little bit more about what you meant by that?
Yes, so one of the examples.
I want to be
given in,
Wolverine. I want to
the
look like
congressional
Wolverine.
letter
I'm really sick of this
included an example
hairline,
where
and I'm not
a
Wolverine.
neighbor or
So there.
somehow someone
All right, it's
knew a
time for me
parent
to
that they
go.
believed
I'll be
was
back. I'll
extreme,
be on the road,
and so they called the FBI
but then I
and
will
reported
be back.
that parent to the FBI. When citizens in this country get to a point where they can call the most powerful law enforcement agency in the world on their neighbor just because they disagree with them, that is chilling to the First Amendment rights of the people who are getting the FBI called on them.
That is absolutely right. The parents who are concerned about their kids' education have a right to come to the school board meeting and express those sentiments, and they should not have fear of the federal government investigating them or doing, as you testified and explained to us, that the FBI counterterrorism and criminal divisions came together to create a unique threat tag to label these parents domestic terrorists. Mr. O'Boll, is it accurate to say that you tried to fix all these issues within the FBI through the chain of command, and that it was only after no action was taken that then you came forward to Congress to disclose this information?
It's accurate that we did discuss it at the squad level, but the FBI is set up in a way where line agents like me or line supervisors even, they're not going to be able to accomplish fixing such a vast problem from the inside of the FBI.
And what you've done is exactly what federal law requires of you. We recognize, as was said here a moment ago, we recognize and protect whistleblowers for their patriotic duty. Why? Because it's essential to maintain the rule of law and to make sure that corruption does not fester throughout the government. And isn't it true that once the FBI found out you spoke to Congress, that your security clearance was then suspended?
Yes, I believe that's what happened.
And what effect has this had on your ability to provide for your young family?
I've since had to rely on charity because the FBI stopped paying me, and there's no other way for me to make a living. I know from other whistleblowers that the FBI routinely denies them the ability to get outside employment, and then as a special agent, you can only make $7,500 a year outside of your government salary. So you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place because on one hand, we want to try to get our jobs back because we are trying to do our patriotic duty. But on the other hand, we still have families to take care for. It's essentially a death sentence in the modern era.
Yeah, talk about a chilling effect, right? Not only have we chilled the rights of parents to go and express their views, any other whistleblower better take note, right? They better take note. You may not be able to feed your family. It's disgusting. Your security clearance was wrongfully suspended. You have no recourse, right? Because here's the thing. If you wrongfully strip clearances, the FBI is the one that you appeal to, right? The FBI is supposed to investigate itself. Is that right?
That's correct.
I just want everybody to understand, we only got 40 seconds left. The FBI investigating itself. This is why we're here, folks. This committee, we have jurisdiction over the Department of Justice, over the FBI. We are the checks and balances in the system. We have to draw this attention to this because it's our oversight duty. We're all trying to fulfill our responsibilities and our patriotic duties here. I am grateful to you men for your willingness to stand forward and take the arrows as you have, even from members of Congress over here who are trying to disparage you. It's disgusting. I thank you for your patriotic responsibility. Look, the free speech of parents is chilled. The speech and the duty of whistleblowers is chilled. We got a problem, folks, and we're trying to fix it. I'm out of time. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The committee will be in
Chairman, I
order.
have a
Members of the audience
parliamentary
should refrain from any type of applause or anything. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Virginia for unanimous consent.
I thank the chair. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the interview of George Hill dated February 7th with the Judiciary Committee, in which he explicitly identifies Empower Oversight Mr. Jason Foster as his counsel, for the record. I thank the chair.
Without objection, the chair now recognizes Mr. Garamendi for his 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Garamendi is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Garamendi is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
We can do this all day. Mr. Garamendi is recognized.
Okay, let's do it all day. Mr. Chairman, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
And you're not recognized.
Mr. Chairman, there's a member in the side of the dais who has not been waived in on committee. Would like to know, is he asking to be waived in, or is he going to send the audience, or has he joined somebody's staff since he's against the wall?
Mr. Garamendi is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, can I have an answer to my question, please?
He's a colleague. He's not been waived in. Mr. Garamendi is recognized.
Well, we'd be happy to waive him in if he wants to sit in, but he's up in the days area, but he's not in the audience.
We waive him in.
He's actually sitting where most times staff stands.
As is customary in the Congress.
Yeah.
Anything to obscure the facts, anything to stall the committee hearing. Unbelievable.
I'm not stalling. I think
Mr.
we need to follow
Garamendi, Mr.
procedures.
Garamendi is recognized for his 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that Mr. Garamendi's time be restored since it was taken by inappropriate behavior.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This hearing, as similar hearings, tends to devolve into shouting back and forth and accusations back and forth. I'm trying to understand the testimony by the witnesses and their lawyer. I'm trying to find the issue that is pertinent to the committee. Yes, we do investigations, presumably to write law to address problems. I've listened as best I could as the conversations have gone back and forth, and I'm still trying to really figure out why we are spending time here if indeed our task is to address problems, in this case in the FBI, and how we might find a solution to those problems. There appears to be but one issue, as I can try to understand it, and that is that the use of the security issue makes it difficult for the participant, whistleblower, to find satisfaction. Is that the case, Mr. Levitt?
Yes, sir. There are limited protections. One of them came after the Whistleblower Protection Enhancement Act in 2012, just an executive.
Your recommendation is a change in the whistleblower law as it applies to, I suppose, all federal agencies.
Yes, because as it is right now for DOJ employees, they have to wait a year after being suspended before they can go anywhere to appeal as a whistleblower the suspension of their clearance.
I see. So have you made a specific recommendation to the committee as to the change of law that would address the problem that you have identified?
That's why I'm here right now. I just made it.
Okay. So you believe you have, other than, I would appreciate in writing your specific change to the law.
Would be happy to, and to the extent that it's helpful.
No, it's my time. There are other things going on here. Mr. Freed, you have a very interesting background, obviously in the FBI and beyond. But you've also had a very interesting tour on Twitter. I find it most interesting during our break to go and vote. The majority, including some Democrats, voted to express support for law enforcement officers and condemning efforts to defund and dismantle local law enforcement agencies. Specifically condemning, this is the joint resolution, House Committee Resolution 49, a concurrent resolution, condemns and calls to defund, disband, dismantle, and abolish the police. Mr. Freed, have you ever put a tweet out to defund, disband, dismantle, and abolish the FBI?
I have.
And the FBI is a police agency, yes?
The FBI is my contention that they're a domestic intelligence agency with law enforcement capability.
They are a police agency, thank you. I suppose consistency is the hobgoblin of a small mind, but nonetheless, at least one of the witnesses here wants to disband the FBI, which would be counter to what we just voted on the floor of the House of Representatives. There are plenty of problems. There is a formal process for whistleblowers to have their issues adjudicated. 2012, members of the committee voted for it. I certainly voted for it in 2012. And there appears to be a glitch. It would seem to me that we would be useful to use our time to delve into this glitch. If we determine that it is a problem, then the appropriate thing to do would be the chairman of the of the Judiciary Committee to put forth a bill to address the problem. The shouting back and forth has done little to illustrate or provide information on the details of the problem. And definitely,
Gentleman's time
I
is-
agree with those who say
Gentleman's
we
time
ought
has
not
expired.
fund the police, including the
Gentleman's time expired.
Mr. Chairman, I ask for unanimous consent to allow Mr. Briggs to sit on the dais.
Without objection. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will say I've sat struggling to figure out what I think the Americans who may watch this hearing are to take from it. And it's troubling. An aspect of the ranking member's opening statement was interesting. I heard this part of it that really stuck with me. It sort of suggested, this is not what she said specifically, but it was sort of a paraphrase of what I heard her saying. To you witnesses, especially the three who've been serving the country as FBI agents and before, it was sort of like, so your lives have been turned upside down by the FBI in retaliation for raising questions about abuses of the rights of Americans? Good. How do you like it? That's kind of what I heard. It seemed that her perspective, she went on and talked about how people have been victimized by police all across the country. ACAB is the idea. And it's almost like since she thinks there are victims aplenty, it's okay if you're victimized. There's a supreme irony in that, isn't there? I mean, you have one of you was concerned about the improvident use of a SWAT team. And that's been ridiculed. Another of you has been concerned about the investigation of people by the preeminent law enforcement agency in the country for nothing more than being on a bus to travel to a place where there was a speech by the president and so forth, and a couple people on that bus were subsequently looked at. That your concern was whether the investigation was adequately predicated for those people. And that's ridiculed. It's astonishing. One of you was concerned about about the FBI sending people out to interview persons who were going to a school board meeting and expressing their views, because all they were engaged in was First Amendment activity. That's not an adequate predication for the investigative attention of law enforcement. And that's ridiculed. I don't quite get it. I will say this, in this process, fair cross-examination and even the impeachment of the credibility of witnesses is appropriate. Now, I will say, the things that have been attempted as impeachment of credibility here, no court in the country would allow, because they are not fair mechanisms for attempting to do that. But what has struck me is that these whistleblowers have your comportment, your demeanor, your poise, your articulation, your discipline has been exemplary at every point, even as the members on the dais beclown themselves. It's quite a testament, and it deepens something. I worried, to be candid, about this hearing because many Americans, it is my impression, and we're continuing to investigate, many Americans have been victimized by the distortions that have occurred in the leadership of the FBI. And I worried that we might have that. If you ever heard the quote, it's sort of used in athletics, never tell anyone your troubles, half the people don't care, and the other half are glad it happened to you. And that's a supremely pessimistic worldview. I don't really subscribe to it, but you've heard that out there. I think this is making a clear point, and I commend each of you for what you've done here, coming here and demonstrating who you are, and letting yourself be attacked in this way, because you've borne it really remarkably well. And I think Americans need to hear it, because there are other glimpses of just how the victimization is going on and how it's victimization at scale. This is one fact that struck me. The Bank of America records, the story that Bank of America turned over the credit card transactions, whether for an aircraft or a lodging or the purchase of a cup of coffee, for everyone who decided to come to Washington, to be in Washington area, the Northern Virginia area. That's one of the things that you asked questions about. There are victims all over the place. All of the people who suffered when the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security got involved in censorship with social media platforms, millions and millions of tweets and narratives being taken down. That is victimization at scale. It must be resolved. And the fact that those who profess to be most concerned about victimization of people by law enforcement in this country join in the victimization of you. I think that's the takeaway, at least for me, from this hearing, and my time has expired.
Gentleman's time expired. The chair now recognizes Mr. Allred. Gentleman from Texas, recognized.
I yield my time to Mr. Goldman.
Thank you. I thank the gentleman for yielding. I want to thank those of our witnesses here who have served in the military for your military service. I want to thank you for coming in. We on this side support whistleblowers. I certainly support whistleblowers, and you and the committee majority can be certain that we will follow all House rules and to maintain the confidentiality of whistleblowers until they have been publicly identified, as you all now have here. What our concern with is not really at the bottom whether or not you are whistleblowers. That's something that neither you can determine, or Mr. Levitt can determine, or we can determine. That's something that we understand is being adjudicated and ultimately could end up in court, where the ultimate determination would be. Our concern is that you all have met with the committee majority, perhaps several times. You have provided information, documents, testimony, and we're in the dark. And that's not how Congress works. That's not how committees work. And I'm sure, Mr. Levitt, you would agree with me that when you were on the Hill, that's not how things work. And so
Depended on the source.
That is what, sorry?
I just said it depended on what was happening. I've seen examples of congressional staff retaliating against whistleblowers, and I've also seen those whistleblowers then refuse to engage with those congressional staff.
Fair enough, and maybe that happens, but we haven't even been given the opportunity to do that in violation of committee rules. Ultimately, what we are here for is because these three individuals are expressing in various degrees their objection to their treatment with the FBI. They have also, in varying degrees, expressed support for the January 6th insurrection, and in some cases have even allowed those personal views to influence their official duties. Now, the allegations that we are dealing with here today, and the reason why whether or not people are whistleblowers matters or your credibility matters, is you're just the three individuals, three people in an organization of tens of thousands who are making these allegations, and so credibility does matter. I was a federal prosecutor for 10 years working alongside the good men and women of the FBI. I never once had a political conversation. I never once had any politics interfere with the work that we were doing as part of our official duties. And if I did, I would certainly call it out and report it up the chain. That is not appropriate. And I am alarmed on their behalf that so many of the good men and women of the FBI are being called out for being, quote, what one of my colleagues said is a political arm of the Democratic Party. Now, you all would agree real quick that credibility matters, right? You're all agents or current or former agents of the FBI. Is that right, Mr. O'Boyle? Correct? Yeah. Mr. Friend?
Yes.
And Mr. Allen, right?
I'm a staff operations specialist, sir.
So you don't believe credibility matters?
Credibility does matter, sir, but I'm a staff operations specialist. That's my official.
But let's take the chairman's opening statement for a second. He said in his opening statement about the John Durham report that Mr. Durham found that there was no predicate and no basis to open the investigation. I'm going to read you a paragraph from page 295 of the Durham report. It says, under the FBI's guidelines, the investigation could have been opened more appropriately as an assessment or preliminary investigation. FBI investigations opened as preliminary investigations, short of full investigations, if necessary and appropriate, may be escalated under the guidelines by converting to a full investigation with supervisory approval. Mr. O'Boyle, does that sound like Mr. Durham determined that there was no basis at all to open an investigation, as the chairman said?
I would have to have more information, but based on what you just read, it sounds to me like, based on FBI rules, a preliminary investigation ought to have been opened if anything was going to be opened at all. And it sounds like it was opened straight as a full investigation. Right. But I also don't.
And you understand the difference is really just based on timelines and a slightly narrower range of authorities, but that preliminary investigations are often escalated to full investigations after some additional investigation, right?
They're also often just shut down.
Sure, right, of course. I see that my time is about to expire, and I look forward to my additional questions. But I would just note for all of us here that to use 3 individuals' personal experiences, including determinations based on a number of different levels of review at the FBI that you no longer warrant your security clearance, is a very bold and unfounded statement to use to claim that the FBI is a weapon of the Democratic Party, and I yield back.
Kentucky is recognized.
Americans are upset and they are angry that the government's been weaponized against them. But I think they're better served if we remain dispassionate in reviewing this evidence. But I have to admit, I came here today trying to be dispassionate, but I'm feeling emotion. I'm feeling disgust. Before us, among these witnesses, is represented decades of exemplary service in the military, in the FBI, service to our country for which your families have sacrificed, for which you have sacrificed to give this service, and now the other side of the aisle just wants to disparage you for bringing forth facts that the American people need to know, that we need to know if we're going to change these whistleblower laws so that you're not punished for bringing us the truth. This is our we've had 4 hearings, and I'm noticing a disturbing trend here. Big business is working with the government to weaponize against the American people. And, the government says, well, this is okay because we're not violating the Constitution. The big business is doing this voluntarily, and we saw this with social media companies. But I want to play testimony from a whistleblower who's not here with us today. If you could cue that up about how we've seen, in this instance, one of the biggest corporations in America working with the FBI to violate civil liberties.
I believe it was either on January 7th or 8th, the Bank of America, with no directive from the FBI, data mined its customer base. And data mined a date range of 5 to 7 of any BOA customer who used a BOA product. And by BOA product, a debit card. They compiled that list, and then on top of that list, they put anyone who had purchased a firearm during any date.
I find that testimony chilling. That was the retired FBI supervisory intelligence analyst, George Hill, who gave us that testimony. And what he said there is that Bank of America compiled a list of everybody who used a credit card or a debit card between January 5th and January 7th inside of Washington, D.C., and gave that to the FBI. But before they did, they looked at anybody who had ever purchased a firearm, according to their records, and elevated those people to the top of the list. And they didn't geofence it to Washington, D.C. You could have, as Mr. Hill testified, you could have bought a gun in 1999 in Iowa with a Bank of America card, and then you got heightened attention, and then it was given to the FBI. Now, whether the FBI asked for this or whether they did this voluntarily is very chilling, because Bank of America, they've got a lot of issues in front of the government. And this is where you get into this unhealthy feedback loop. Bank of America spent $250,000 lobbying us on the American Rescue Plan, issues related to Paycheck Protection Program, general issues related to data security, and general issues related to interchange, and general issues related to privacy. The irony of it. Bank of America is violating your privacy, working hand in glove with the FBI. Now, the FBI will say, we didn't ask for this, they just gave it to us. It doesn't matter. It's a violation when you get to this level of cooperation. Now, I want to turn to something else that's troubling me very much. The whistleblowers here before us today have described incentive-based payments related to increasing the number of criminal investigations. Mr. Friend and Mr. Allen, you've talked about this. Mr. Friend, can you tell us what that's about and why that might be unhealthy?
It's extremely unhealthy. It's called integrated program management. It's a process that the FBI uses annually to essentially establish arbitrary metrics for itself to achieve as far as opening up a certain number of cases and using certain tools and getting certain accomplishments.
This in football terms, this sounds eerily similar to the Saints bounty gate. If folks remember that. And that scandal, coaches would pay players cash bonuses for hits that would result in injuries to other players. Players would receive additional pay if their tackle resulted in an opposing player being taken out of the game. These non-contract bonuses were part of an underground culture that incentivized dirty behavior. When the activity was exposed, the Saints organization was widely condemned. The defensive coach was initially suspended indefinitely, and the head coach was suspended for an entire season. Somebody at the FBI needs to be suspended for the dirty tactics that they've used. If we recognize it in sports, it's not hard to recognize it here in government. And I yield back. Balance my time.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to move quickly through a couple different questions. We established earlier credibility matters, certainly for witnesses who appear before us. Mr. Boyle, do you know who Kash Patel is?
I do.
Have you received any money from Kash Patel or his organization?
I have.
When you previously met with the majority members and/or majority staff of this committee, was Kash Patel present for that meeting?
No.
To your knowledge, has Kash Patel ever spoken to the committee members on your behalf?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of. Was anyone present for your previous meetings with committee members and staff on the majority that were not members of this committee or staff of this committee?
My counsel.
Your counsel? Anyone else?
I don't think so. No.
Is Kash Patel helping you finance your counsel?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Mr. Friend, what about you? Do you know Kash Patel as well?
Yes.
And did you receive any money from Kash Patel?
Yes, he gave me a donation last November.
A donation?
Yes.
Are you a charitable organization?
I was an unpaid, indefinitely suspended man trying to feed his family, and reached out to me and said he wanted to give me a donation.
Did he have any, was he present for any of your meetings with committee members or staff?
No.
And how many times did you meet with the committee members or staff prior to your transcribed interview?
I never met with them prior to my transcript.
Did you speak to them on the phone?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so you spoke to them on the phone?
Yes, I spoke to them on the phone, corresponded.
Did you provide documents?
Yes, I gave them my written declaration.
Did they ask you whether they could share that with the minority?
I don't know. At the time, I don't believe they were actually in the majority.
Did they ask you whether they could share the documents?
I don't remember if they did or didn't.
I want to focus a little bit on that SWAT case that you mentioned, Mr. Friend, where the SWAT team was used to make an arrest of someone associated with the domestic violent extremist group. That was not your case?
That was a case that was within my office. The Joint Terrorism Task Force sort of ran all the cases together.
Okay. Well, did you work on that case?
My name is on it. I did not perform work for it.
Got it. And what evidence did you have that this defendant had offered to surrender to the FBI?
The evidence I had was in his conversations with the individuals from my office who he spoke to. He said that he would cooperate.
So he said he would cooperate with the FBI, but he never told you that he would surrender upon to an arrest. Those are two different things, you agree, right?
No, I wouldn't. If somebody told me that if you need anything from me, just let me know, I'll cooperate, I would interpret that to mean I could reach out to them if I had a criminal charge.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. All right, that's certainly not my experience. Mr. Allen, You passed around information to other members of the FBI related to January 6th, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you were admonished by your supervisor not to do that, is that right?
I was not, sir.
You were not. So when it says here in the FBI's letter to Mr. Jorman of yesterday that your supervisor admonished you to stop circulating these materials on multiple occasions, you're saying right now that the FBI is lying to this committee?
That statement that they wrote is inaccurate.
Okay. Did you write to your colleagues to, quote, exercise extreme caution and discretion in pursuit of any investigative inquiries or leads pertaining to the events of January 6th?
Yes, I corresponded with my teammate.
Did you write that?
Yes, I wrote those words in the correspondence.
And that was after you had been admonished not to send information about January 6th, right?
I was not admonished to not send information.
But you do agree that your personal opinion should not influence your official duties, don't you?
No, you should be objective and analytical in all the, decisions and information.
No, that was my question. Your personal views should not influence your official duties.
No, you should be objective in doing the conduct of your job.
And now, Mr. Friend and Mr. O'Boyle, I don't have much time, but you agree that you were field agents, correct?
Correct.
And you understand chain of command, do you not, Mr. O'Boyle?
I do.
Right. So that if you make a suggestion to a supervisor and your supervisor overrules you, that's the nature of the business, isn't it?
Not if it's a violation of a law.
And you make decisions about whether grand jury subpoenas should be served or not as a field agent of the FBI?
Time the gentleman is
If I have a reasonable belief, I can make a protected disclosure, which is what I've done.
Okay, but do you think you make those
Time the gentleman has expired. Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes himself. Mr. O'Boyle, why do you think they came down on you so darn hard? Deep down, what do you think their motivation is?
I think the agency as a whole wants to get rid of people who simply just don't toe the line that they want. They don't want critical thinkers.
This is a shit show. That's what I said.
People who raise valid questions to their chain of command.
They want to send a message, don't they?
Absolutely.
They want to make you an example, don't they?
Yes.
And they don't care. They want to send that message so hard, so strong, they don't care that you served 6 years in the Army, member of the 101st Airborne, took enemy fire, was selected for a special new unit they were putting in Quantico. They wanted to send such a message that they said, if we can get this guy, we can get this guy to be quiet, we can get everybody to be quiet. That's what they were doing, wasn't it?
Yes, sir, especially since I just had
Who paid Paul
a
Manafort?
baby who was 2 weeks old, and we had just sold our house.
Just to put the emphasis on it, they said, we're going to do it the day he arrives.
I'm
the
not
day we've worked with him, we selected him, he's done a great job in the FBI, he served our country, took an oath to the Constitution, took an oath to defend this country. He's going to move, we're going to send all his stuff in this van to this moving, we're going to do that. When the day he arrives, we're going to suspend him. We're not going to let his family get their belongings. We're not going to let him get his clothes for his kids, his winter coats for his children. We're going to send a message.
And
they did.
Jackets.
They suspended you. They took your pay. They don't let you get health insurance. They made life miserable for you.
Oh my God, how's he going to get his
Send a message.
Viagra?
Because you know what? You reported on the first big screw up they had in this administration. The first big one.
Whoa.
You reported to us as a whistleblower about the school board's issue. The Biden administration, they thought this was going to be a win for them politically. They thought it was going to make Terry McAuliffe governor of Virginia. Backfired on him, and you reported. Would it surprise you, Mr. O'Boyle, to know that the FBI told us they looked at 25 parents who were reported on this snitch line that was set up with this memorandum from the Attorney General? They looked at 25 parents. How many do you think of them were actually ever investigated and prosecuted? How many think were prosecuted, Mr. O'Boyle?
If I had to guess, I'd say zero.
Zero. And you came to us because you say this is wrong. This is wrong to set up some federal snitch line, some neighbor calling in because they don't like their neighbor's politics, reporting to the FBI, investigate these parents.
That's
not
what happened.
We got to get this guy. We got to get Garrett O'Boyle because you had the courage to step forward. And it's not just with this issue, because we have the memorandum from the Richmond field office about Catholics, right? If you're pro-life, pro-family, and you're Catholic, look out. The FBI wanted to put people inside the church, inside the parish, to spy on fellow citizens. Did that surprise you, Mr. O'Boyle? Did that actually happen at the Richmond field office?
doesn't, not anymore.
Give me your Catholics.
And you know
Give
that
me your
memorandum, by the way?
Catholics right
It
now.
was
I'm
signed
gonna
off by
eat 'em
5
all up.
people in that
Eat
office.
'em all up.
One of them was the chief
I'm gonna eat
division
'em all up.
counsel, a lawyer.
Ah!
A lawyer who supposedly went to law school and probably had a course on the Constitution, signed off on that memorandum. Scary
I
stuff.
don't have any mods,
Scary
butterflies.
stuff.
I am the
Mr.
mod.
Allen, you served 20 years. You had a security
Yes,
clearance for
he
20
thinks he's
years. You
Ethan
served our
Hunt.
country as
Yes.
well, right?
Yes, sir.
Honorably discharged.
Yes, sir.
Won medals from the Marine Corps.
Yes, sir.
They came after you too, didn't they? And you simply
Yeah,
did.
because
Mr. Goldman
you're
just
an
asked you a few questions. You were
asshole.
simply doing your job.
You're a fucking domestic
Your
terrorist.
job as an analyst is to compile information, open source information, present that to
Yeah,
your
not from
colleagues so
Conservative
they're fully
Daily or the
informed about the
Gateway
case. Is that
Pundit.
right?
Yes, sir. That's
And you did that job, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
You followed your oath, right?
Yes, sir.
You adhered to the rule of law.
Okay.
You were consistent with the Constitution, just like
objection,
the
Your
oath you
Honor.
took when you signed both as
Hey,
a
Ellsworth,
serve our country in the
welcome.
military and at the FBI.
Welcome to the lounge.
And you did the same thing, didn't you, Mr. Friend?
Yes, sir.
Leading the witnesses.
And yet you felt the full weight of the
Grounds.
federal government come down on you guys. And of course, they timed it perfectly. They sent the letter to us yesterday. We knew they would. We knew it was going to happen that way. And as Mr. Boyle said earlier, he's getting his
Well, I
hearing
mean, you know,
tomorrow, right, Mr. Boyle?
It's hard to
That's
know.
when they tried to schedule it. We've not heard back.
Disgusting.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, Jim?
Thank you for your service
Jesus.
to the country. Mr. Bishop was right.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
employees,
Vinman would like a word.
the way
Jennings.
you've
You're
handled yourself,
absolutely right.
the gentleman way you've handled yourself here, the way you've served our country, it does not go unnoticed. The American people appreciate what you've done for our country and what you are doing for our country. God bless you.
Yeah, Jim, the
Yield back now,
Jordan, the
recognize
coach
the
would
ranking
would
member.
not come forward when young men were
Thank
sexually
you,
assaulted under
Mr.
his
Chairman.
watch.
At least you got a document from the
Oh,
FBI.
here we go. Here we go.
We hear your colleagues in Congress don't get documents from you, don't get material from you.
That document was sent to Chairman
this is my
Nadler, or
5
Ranking Member
minutes.
Nadler.
This is my 5 minutes. I
understand.
didn't
I'll give you the
yield
extra
to you.
time, but it went to Chairman Nadler.
I didn't
or
yield
Ranking
to you.
Member Nadler.
I didn't yield to you, not Mr. Allen's testimony, not a lot of testimony. But, you know, I do and am concerned when I hear about people not being able to provide for their families. That does upset me as a parent, as a daughter of law enforcement, a granddaughter of law enforcement. I don't come from a place where I do not respect law enforcement, and I understand the sacrifices that they and their families make. Mr. Allen, do you know who Brian Reagan is?
Is the name Brian Reagan?
Yes, do you know who that is?
I'm not aware of a...
Okay, Brian Reagan was an Air Force individual, an Air Force airman who sold classified information to China, Iraq, and Libya. Mr. O'Boyle, do you know who Reality Winner is?
I believe I have heard that name before.
Yes, Reality Winner was an Air Force
that's
also.
Mickey behind her, and
NSA
Nicole is there
contractor
too.
who in 2018
I don't see Ivan though.
pleaded
Is he there?
guilty to multiple violations of Espionage Act as a contractor who leaked information about the Russian interference in the 2016 elections. Do any of you up here sitting there know who Jack Terexra is, right? We all know who he is. He's the young man in the National Guardsman in Massachusetts who leaked massive amounts of classified information. So because someone served our country in the military and that they do work for a federal agency does not exempt them immediately from being someone who could potentially commit espionage or lose security clearances. We give everybody a pass just because they served our country. We respect their service. But if they break the law, then that means that they have to face the consequences. If individuals do things that they're in the process and it determines that they are in fact have to have their security clearances removed, then that's what happens. So, my father served, all of my uncles served, people in my family served in the military, and we all respect that. But that does not give individuals a pass and means that they cannot be questioned about their security clearances and their allegiances later on to the country. You know, my colleague, Mr. Goldman, asked questions about Kash Patel, his engagement, his involvement with some of the witnesses here. Even another one of my colleagues brought up a testimony from Mr. Hill. He was just in awe and could not believe, he was chilled by what he said about Bank of America. I'm chilled by that same individual saying that the FBI are brown shirts, that they're Nazis, that the law enforcement agency are in fact Nazis. That's a more chilling component to me. But, you know, this is more of the same that we see each and every time that we're here. First, just it was demonstrated in the process that we're in right now, an unwillingness to follow precedent, follow the rules. The rules don't apply when it comes to the Republicans. They want different set of rules for themselves than everyone else. They want a different set of rules for their political beliefs than other individuals have. Individuals who are espousing their beliefs on the job where they're not supposed to, it's okay when it's their beliefs, but if it were somebody else, then a different set of rules would apply to them. Hiding information, it's all part and parcel of the Republicans' attempt to make Americans distrust our rule of law so that when 2024 comes around, and should their candidate not win, more and more people will not believe the truth. The truth matters. The truth matters. And hiding information and stating a lie over and over again does not make it true. And we will continue to, yes, be concerned. And Mr. Chairman, I continue to say that there are, I believe, areas that I think that we can work on. I have not had a discussion with you. You know, I've sent you letters about what I believe those areas are. No response with regard to that. But in their times,
Time of the gentlelady's expired.
I'm happy to do that with you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
The gentleman recognizes the gentleman from Utah for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the witnesses. I actually am missing another event, but I could not leave until I had an opportunity to thank you. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your honesty. And honestly, I apologize for some of the behavior and the words of my colleagues. It reflects poorly on Congress. It makes us appear childish and as if rudeness is intellect, as if accusations.
Excuse me?
fact.
You need to take several
But you
steps
all
back,
have done
sir.
exactly the
Several fucking steps back.
In the face of accusations, in the
I
face
know,
of
Jim. We saw him.
insinuations. I mean, comparing you as military members to known
Kash
traitors,
Patel
and
gave the
therefore
guy
we shouldn't
money.
believe you. It's just simply outrageous.
Kash
It's
Patel
childish.
gave the guy money. Come
You
on
haven't
now.
done that.
Please stop this.
You've done
I
exactly
could
the
not leave for my
opposite.
tea party
And
because
I want you to
about
know
some bullshit
that the American people
for
have
my
listened to
handlers.
you, and they can see your demeanor.
Vladimir Vladimirovich.
They can see your sincerity. They can see and respect
Miles back.
the service that you have rendered. And that's what they will remember from this. They won't remember some objection about, well, we weren't given this document. They won't remember.
No,
you
that
know,
actually is a
who Kash
material
Patel is, who
thing,
even
sir.
knows what that has anything to do with this.
Oh, it has
They're
a lot
smart
to do
enough
with it.
to know
Actually,
this
we've
isn't
got the
about
receipt,
January
sir.
6th.
Sir.
This isn't about
Sir, we know
a
what
previous
Kash Patel
election
has
or
to
the
do with
next
it.
election.
Hello,
They're
down here,
smart enough
down
to
here.
hear your words and to measure your sincerity and to know whether you're telling
Sincere
the truth.
traitorousness.
And I'm telling you that as someone who sat on the Intelligence Committee for years and used to be a defender of the FBI,
I'd have more
and
respect
to
for him
watch
if he
their
did
activity
blowjob.
over the last few years, I completely believe you because I've seen it again and again and again. And probably the most concerning thing I've seen in Congress is this weaponization of federal agencies. We give them
Weaponization,
enormous
drink,
power.
smoke, suit.
You all had enormous power. And we can't give agencies like the FBI incredible abilities
the
to go
Dems asked me
surveil
for
and
things.
to monitor and to read
Gross.
and to observe American citizens and then just say, go do what you want. Don't come talk to us. Don't tell us what you're doing. That is exactly the opposite. They should and they must be able to have oversight by Congress, and they simply don't.
Oh, you can't. What is the
And
link,
that
gal?
forces you as whistleblowers to come forward through another vehicle.
Here.
And I'd be curious to know, you had friends in the FBI. You were well respected. I mean, Mr. Allen, you're the employee of the year, for heaven's sakes. Have any of your friends
Utah's
reached out
beautiful.
and tried to support you in this? And my
You don't have to
point in
worry about
asking that is I wonder if they're too scared.
Oh, there we go.
I wonder if they're scared to be associated with you. Now, I wonder if the FBI tactics of isolating you have worked.
Gal,
Mr.
hit
Obama,
that
have you
and
had
then you can
friends
come up
reach out
and
and
give the
support?
link to me in the
Very, very few.
private
And
chat.
why is that, do you think?
I think their First Amendment rights have been chilled as well. I know for a fact that my former supervisor had a
No,
meeting
T.
with my
Jennings,
squad
Mickey
shortly
and
after I
Ivan
was
and all those
suspended,
guys are just
and
showing
he
up
told
everywhere
them
there's a
that
camera.
I was going to be
Let's be
arrested,
honest.
fired,
This
and
isn't
charged.
ideological.
So
This
if
is
that's
them
not chilling,
putting
I don't know
Mickey out
what
there
is.
in a shirt with their daughter's name on it
Mr.
in case
Frank?
anybody doesn't recognize her. That's it.
Echo
Period.
what
Full
Mr.
stop.
Oboyle said. I've had very few reach
Theater.
out to me, and those who have used encrypted ways to do it because they fear retribution.
I don't know
They're
how to French
afraid
people.
to reach out to you.
Oh, wait.
Respected
I don't want to
colleagues,
put that burden
people
on
they've
people.
worked with for years, and they're afraid to reach out with you. It's
Okay,
very
wait.
clear the FBI has been able to achieve that goal.
Oops.
Mr. Allen,
Wait,
your
I'm going to
experience,
take you off
former
screen.
Employee of the
I
Year.
think you can still
I've
private
had
chat,
a
right,
few
Gal?
colleagues reach out who are no longer
Maybe.
with the
Just make sure your
office,
camera's
just to
off the way
check
you want
in
it to be off, please.
periodically,
Oh, there we go.
which has been
Okay, here we go.
appreciated.
I
But
got it.
other than that, I've been pretty much like ghosted by everybody. So
And
I'll got
a
it.
lot
I'll
of
got it.
shame on those agents who respect you and know you and don't have the
Got it,
courage to
Gal.
reach
Thank
out and
you.
support you. There are members of my family who are FBI agents. I love and respect them. But we have deep concerns about
Really
the
good
agency
link
you
in the
used to work
chat,
with. And I want to
guys.
read you
Good
something.
link
This
from
should
Gal in the
frighten
chat.
people. It get their
Apparently
attention, I would hope,
3-6
but it
hearings starting
doesn't.
this summer. Yeah,
The East
maybe.
German
I mean,
Stasi, one of the
hearings
most
from what?
effective suppressive agency in the history of the
Oh,
world.
please,
This
everybody,
is
let's
what
just
they would
learn
do.
how
They
things
devised a
work.
strategy and
Please.
tactics to
Beg you.
disintegrate a
Beg you.
target's personal circumstances.
Guess since they lost their
Surely that
corner
has happened
last
to
night,
you.
they can just roam around chasing
Their
cameras. Well, I think
career,
that's been the plan all
surely
along.
that's happened to
Okay,
you. Not only your career as an
that's been the plan
FBI,
all
but
along.
it precludes you from working anywhere else. For heaven's sakes, you have to ask others to help you to maintain just food on the table for your families. How can anyone on the other side of the aisle say that's okay with me?
People say lots of nice things.
Further Stasi tactics.
Let's look
Ruin their
about what's going.
relationships
Let's
and their
think about what
reputation in the
what is
community.
stacking up to
Has
happen.
tell me that hasn't happened to
Levitt
each
works
of
for
you.
the organization
I
discussed
yield
in the
back.
ProPublica
Thank you.
report.
Gentleman yields back. Appreciate that. Gentleman recognizes
Why do theater if
gentleman from
nothing's
Florida is
going on
recognized.
they're distracting from?
So
Well,
which
Suzanne
Americans
Monk
were
seems
being
something. No,
targeted?
they're not. They're not.
Now,
Oh my God, I don't even want that.
August 2nd,
You're so
2022, a
ridiculous.
media organization obtained a copy of a
This is
document
literally
which
like a
whistleblowers
page out of
subsequently
fucking active
authenticated to the
measures.
committee that is styled the FBI's
Active
Domestic
measures is like
Terrorism Symbols
you tell
Guide
someone
on Militia
something long
Violent
enough and you
Extremists.
just
Mr.
lie
Oboyle, are you
without,
generally
you
familiar
know,
with
like
that
this
guide?
is like.
Yes. And that guide
Okay, I'm gonna shut up.
identified
Forehead
certain things
talking.
that made people more likely to be deemed a threat or terrorists, didn't it?
Yes.
And wasn't one of those things just the number 2 and the letter A next to each other?
Yes, it was.
And in your experience as a law enforcement official, does putting the word 2 and or the letter 2 and A next to each other make someone more likely to be violent or law breaking?
No.
And if someone signified the right that they support the right to bear arms, was that also something in the symbol guide?
Yes.
And how about this one? Really got me. The Betsy Ross flag. Was the Betsy Ross flag in the terrorism symbol guide?
It was.
Yeah.
And what about the Betsy Ross flag makes someone more likely to be a violent extremist?
I wish there was a reasonable explanation for that question.
There
Oh
isn't. And people blew the whistle and said this stuff is crazy. Americans are being targeted. Mr. Friend, you ever been to a school board meeting?
Yes, I have.
FBI ever sent you to the parking lot of a school board meeting?
Yes, they have.
And in
Yeah,
the
because
parking
there
lot
were
of a school
violent
board meeting
people
where the
at
FBI
fucking
sent
school board meetings
you were
astro
taking down
trooping.
information regarding people's
Period.
license plates.
That's correct.
Now, it wasn't the
Period.
first time you'd been to a school board meeting, was it?
That
No,
is
I
what
went
they
on my
were
own as a
trying
parent,
to
As a
address.
parent.
If you
Yes.
didn't watch
So
those
there you
fucking
were.
school
Must have
board
been
meetings
quite an
where people
interesting
were being
perspective. There you
threatened
were taking
in the
down
parking lots and in
the
the meeting,
information of
you're
people,
fucking
parents attending
delusional.
school board meetings on behest of the
God,
FBI.
This makes me
And
so
you had
mad.
been one of those parents at a school board meeting. How did that feel?
Well, after I attended privately, my colleagues teased me that they were probably going to start investigating me.
You used to go after the
I
worst
don't
of
think
the
that's
worst,
a
didn't you?
shocking. I
Yes,
think you
I
should be
believe so.
shocked that
You
they
went
said
after
that
people
about
who
you.
looked at child porn,
Yes,
people who were sexually exploiting children,
yes.
and then you were in the parking lot of a school board meeting, taking down the information of parents. What happened to the cases that you were working?
They weren't parents, they were
to
astroturfs.
protect our communities from the worst predators that exist?
I was told they were not to be resourced.
It's a difference.
And then after I was suspended, they were handed off to local law enforcement.
Wow, so the FBI just decided it was more important to have
you in that parking lot of that school board meeting than getting the worst of the worst away from people that they could harm.
That's correct.
but you deserve the consequences you are getting, according to the ranking member. Mr. O'Boyle,
Yes.
what the ranking member said that when people break the law,
His
they
handler
deserve
is
the
handling
consequences
him.
they get. And it doesn't matter that they served in the military. So what law did you break before the FBI packed up all your stuff and moved it across the country to Virginia?
You got moved?
No true law.
You got
The only thing I
relocated?
broke was
They paid for your relocation? Are you kidding
showing the
me? And
line
you're
for the FBI, like
complaining?
I said when I opened my oldest to the
Ridiculous.
Constitution, not to the FBI.
Ridiculous.
Our laws provide you avenues to talk to Congress, to talk to your supervisors about those concerns, right?
Correct.
And so you didn't deviate from that, did you?
No.
Oh, you didn't go to the media first, did you?
No.
Grassley's been
You
crooked from the
used
very
what the
beginning
law
in
provided,
Trump's installment, yeah.
and your family
Yeah.
has paid an exquisite price for that, haven't they?
They have.
Says the guy who paid to have drug-funded sexual
and then moved
encounters
you
with a
across the country.
17-year-old. Yeah, I know.
6, 5, 3, and 2 weeks.
A 2-week-old baby. Did you get your stuff?
6 weeks later.
Is she available?
Also,
No,
for
I'm
6
just
weeks,
kidding. Sorry, I'm sorry, I'm
almost
sorry.
every
Oh my
possession
God,
to
oh my
your
God.
name, the FBI
Sorry,
had and
Matt
wouldn't
Gates.
give back to you.
Matt Gates.
How did you? What time of year was it? Was it winter, summer?
When I reported, it was in September. So when we
So
were
it's
traveling,
fall.
it was
Okay.
summertime essentially. So we had basically summer clothes, but then we were basically stranded in Wisconsin, which is where we're from. It gets cold there pretty quick. And
Well, I'll take your word
So
for it.
you
I'm
you
from
were there
Florida,
in,
but
I'm imagining in like
what was it like
Margaritaville
when you had to go and
t-shirts and
explain
like
to your wife that
board
you didn't
shorts?
have coats for your children
Grassley needs to
because
either
the FBI
retire
wouldn't
and
give them
stick
back to you?
to
it was
pension
horrible. I mean, we
updates.
were asking family
I don't know how many staff members they have.
clothes, and
Grassley is close with Barbara Layden, whose husband co-authored a book. Oh, is that Barbara Layden? Is she married
it was a
to,
difficult time.
You became a
what's
charity
his
case,
name?
didn't you?
I did.
Is Kate
And now
Shaw.
I get
I know,
derided for
that's
that.
my point.
I never thought I'd have to accept charity in my life.
Oh,
I thought I would be able to take care of my family, but I'm grateful for everyone who has provided charity to me.
I can't.
That even includes
Okay,
a former colleague's church. I would name the church to give them recognition, but
that
I'm too
guy has
worried
a
that
really
the FBI
weird
would send
name, like
informants
Bo
to infiltrate
something.
that church as well.
Yeah, well, they've already
I don't
done
know
that
if
with the
Rumpf was here,
Catholics.
but
I
he
know
read
that.
the book too.
Gentleman gets back. The gentleman from North Dakota is recognized.
They have
Thank
great
you, Mr.
food at the
Chair.
Margaritaville
Mueller- or
restaurant.
the
I've
Durham
never
report
been to one,
dropped
I
this
don't
week,
think.
and it's an absolute, I mean, the politically
I would like to go
motivated
to one.
misconduct by the FBI and the DOJ is
Sounds like a
outlined
vacation.
in very, very specific detail, and it's an absolutely damning indictment on the FISA court. And the response from DOJ and
Oh,
Director
the
Wray
FISA court? All right.
continues to be
Who
that
had that
all
on
of the
their
people
card?
engaged in that
Mike
conduct
Flynn is
are
well
no longer
connected,
with the
as
DOJ
any
or the
treasonous spy would be.
Director
He
Wray
is.
has emphasized the importance of doing things the right way. Essentially, it's all in the past, nothing to see here, just trust us. Mr. Allen, do you think the FBI leadership does things the right way?
No, sir.
Well, clearly
Mr.
not.
Flynn?
That's why we're here.
No, sir. Mr. O'Boyle?
No, sir.
And the Durham report
Okay.
detailed that submitted warrant applications
Durham
to the FISA
report.
court without interviewing witness, failed to correct warrants after
Does
learning
O'Boyle
more
have a
information about a
GoFundMe, Cal?
witness's reliability, failed to disclose exculpatory evidence to a secret court, omitted information that contradicted what they had told the court previously when they were trying to get extensions, and in one case, they actually fabricated an application for the warrant. And in a letter dated
I'm
on May
talking about
15th,
Carter
the
Page,
DOJ
because I don't want to talk about
informed
him
us
anymore.
that we don't have to worry about it anymore because they revised some forms, issued a whole bunch of new guidance. They promised us that they have a better way to maintain files. They implemented more training. The FBI loves training. Bureaucrats love training. They have more
Oh, honey,
internal
everybody,
oversight. They have
every
a rigorous and
company loves
robust
training.
oversight program. They instituted technical updates and
That's
they
not
automated
special.
workflow. You know what's not mentioned anywhere in that letter? Consequences. There are no consequences, no penalty, no punishment. So if there's no consequences, there's no prosecutions, then there is no incentive for the DOJ or the FBI to hold themselves accountable. And the single best way for the American people to learn about the abuses carried out by our government is by whistleblower testimony. And so the single most effective way to keep these things from coming to light is to make sure it is known that dissent will not be tolerated and speaking out will be dealt with severely. And just this week, the IRS whistleblower was removed from a case at the request of the DOJ in a clear case of retaliation and violation of the law. So, Mr. Allen, when we're talking about this and what you all have gone through and your families have gone through is just heart-wrenching and Congressman Gates just walked through it, but what are the consequences moving forward for your colleagues on whistleblower?
I mean, I think in light of what's happened to us and what's happened to all the people involved with that investigation, I think it definitely has to send a chilling effect across the agency, and there's just an incongruence in how personnel at a high level have been treated and how we've been treated.
Mr. Friend, this is a public setting, we're testifying, but can you tell
Yeah.
the American people what has happened in your life since you have come forward
Hey,
and
come
given
on.
this information?
Thank you for that. Beyond leaking my medical information to the New York Times and insinuating that I was under disciplinary action for shooting a
18.
firearm in my backyard inappropriately. I was also
18.
denied the opportunity to seek outside employment on 2 occasions, denied my training records, which
No,
in
you
essence
know
is
what?
denying
You
me
probably
outside
just weren't
employment.
the right fit.
The Inspector General is now aware of the illegal and
Yeah, I
improper
can't
gag order
imagine
that was
either.
issued on me that basically
Didn't
told me that I was
Stewart
not
say
allowed to
he had a
speak to my
place to be?
family
Yeah, didn't he
or
have
my
a place
attorney
to
about
be?
the existence of an investigation.
So if one of your former colleagues is looking at this and watching this, and they have information that they think is subject
No,
to
that's not how it
being
works, and
shed light
everything
on
is
with the American people,
fine.
do you think this would,
It's
do
not
you think
how
how
it
you've been treated
works.
would give them pause?
It has, and that's why they
It's
laundered
not.
the information to me, and that's how I've been able to expose more things now from the outside.
And Mr. Boyle, we just heard from your interaction with Mr. Gates and how all of this occurred and all of the hardships you've gone through. If one of your really good friends, your former colleagues, came to you and said, I have this thing that is being covered up, and I think the American people need to know about it, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them first to pray about it
Oh,
long and hard.
oh my fucking
And I would tell them I could take it to Congress for them, or I could put them in touch with Congress, but I would advise them not to do it.
So you would legitimately try to protect one of your colleagues from doing what you have done?
Oh my
Absolutely.
God, this is so
And how
fucking
do you think
stupid.
that
Bring
solves
Goldman
failure
back.
to shine light on corruption, weaponization, any kind of misconduct that exists with the American people?
It doesn't solve it. But the
Why
FBI
are,
will
I'm
crush you.
sorry, but if
This
you're
government will
not
crush you
really
and your family
fighting against this
if you
corrupt
try to expose the
Republican
truth
Party,
about
if you
things
are
that
not
they are doing
actively
that are
fighting
wrong.
against the
And we
corruption
are
in the
all
Republican
examples
Party,
of
I
that.
don't know who you are.
I can't think of a
And I
more
don't want to
superior way
hear
to
from
end
you
your day.
anymore. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that
Gentleman yields
everybody is
back. I
bad.
want to thank,
Because you don't know who's bad then.
we say this every hearing that we thank the
If you don't
witnesses.
fucking know
And
who's
I mean it
bad in
every time,
Congress,
but I
then
really
you
mean it.
don't
Thank you
understand how this
for
works.
coming forward,
Oh my
sharing your
God,
story,
stupid people
and
everywhere.
standing up for the Constitution, doing your duty. We
Everywhere.
appreciate it. Mr. Levitt, thank you for your representation of these individuals. We thank you for
I
the
can't.
powerful
I just
testimony that you
can't.
gave and the way you gave it and the way you've conducted yourselves. And with that, without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written
Yeah,
questions
okay,
for
all right,
witnesses
all right.
or
Thanks.
additional
Thanks,
materials for the record without objection.
Jimmy Jam. Jimmy Jam. Jimmy Jam. Blech. These people disgust me, GA. They disgust me too. This is why we can't have nice things. Gates setting the stage for terrorist license plates to be protected. Yeah. And here's the thing. Can I just put something spicy out there? I totally understand the rush to condemn the two-party system in this country. I do understand that. I really do. However, I feel like we have a lot of examples all over the world of countries with multiple parties, and we don't see them being any more efficiently running elections and representing their countries and creating a serenity or whatever, or a unity. That doesn't happen just because you have more parties. It just makes the politicking more complicated. And it, to me, actually opens up opportunities for weird shit to happen. Yeah, Idiocracy is now a documentary. Right. I know, and I'm not really well versed on political models, obviously, or political science and all that. So, but I just feel like we have enough examples of where that particular answer is not the be all end all answer. Does that make sense? And that perhaps it's more about finding ways to hold our politicians accountable and removing dark money from politics and approaching it that way instead of saying burn it all down and start over or throw in more complicating factors that are labels and not ideology, right? So I guess that's my problem when we all start talking about, oh, there's all the politicians are horrible and there's no good. That's not actually true. So it's not accurate. And as evidenced by the fact that we have held off a certain amount of authoritarianism in the last 3 years, I think that's not true. That's objectively not true. However, I understand that inclination. What I'm asking is that you consider, yes, you consider that we are in a unique time. This is unlike any other political time in our history as a country. We have external forces and internal forces who are working either in collaboration or just have aligned ideals that are trying to make us question the validity of all of the institutions that have grown over the hundreds of years we've been a country. And while I am the first to say those institutions are very definitely fraught with problems, I am not willing to burn them down and leave it to libertarians and others to come up with what replaces them, because guaranteed you will replace them in some way, shape, or form. So that's why when I see in chats and conversations around that conversation, I don't engage because I just get frustrated that we're not seeing some parts of the puzzle that would change the way you might feel about the current political environment. And I don't appreciate being painted as someone who is unwilling to consider the other side when I have always been a person who's willing to consider other ideological moves, but I am not willing to consider an alternative set of facts. I will not accept that. And all too often, I see that happening in spaces. I see it happening on chats and panels and all the rest of the bullshit social media. Is that people just, I don't know. It just is it's very frustrating. Anyway, I have to do something really important and I have a deadline. Gary is the Steve Buscemi. Yeah, but it's almost like bad. How do you do, fellow kids? The other side is a clown show. Yeah, never forget the right already has a replacement constitution. That's right. I mean, it's just like, I think we need to stop assuming that the people's worst intentions aren't being followed, right? Like we assume, oh no, they couldn't possibly be trying to undermine this because that's just not, like, we as Americans don't undermine this. Well, guess what, kids? They're counting on you to believe that so that when they do undermine it, it's like, well, who are you going to believe? Your lying eyes? So I don't know. I feel like I don't want to be like too Cassandra, but I just feel like it's kind of dumb. I don't know. So I'm a little frustrated. I'm also probably a little high. I'm probably on, like, I think this is the afterglow day of the shroom trip. Probably. Yeah, I took too many shrooms. I'm going to microdose from now on. Actually, I should do that. I should do that right now before the day goes too far. Because I have to do something creative. Does everyone know live chat has moved? Because my finger doesn't, and it's getting real annoying. Oh, shit. Where'd it move to? Where'd it move to? Okay, this is magic. The magic mushrooms. You want to hear what? You want to see what kind of mushroom I'm taking? You want to see how? You want to see how much? What kind of mushroom I'm taking? I don't want to say it. Let's see. Oops, can you see it? I don't even tell. They call it commons. Penis envy. All right. More music coming. Friday show. Saturday show. I'm not out in Dino yet, and I apologize, but I just had to get my restreaming platform set for mobile, and I need to test it. And then tomorrow I have an appointment during the day, so I couldn't go out in the Dino costume during the day tomorrow. And today I have to get something done on deadline, so I have to do that. Stop playing. So I'll do that, and but yeah, I'll be on the screens. I'll be on the screens. Yep. 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 Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, Gal Suburban. Where do you get them? Wait, what? Where did I get what? Oh, I got them from a delivery service called Dope Girls LA. Dope Girls LA, and they are amazing. And it's a women-owned shroom business by Rip, and they deliver in Los Angeles, and they're very nice. I love them, and I love supporting them. Bye GA, bye AE, bye everybody. But yeah, check out the Twitter link to this feed on my profile, because Gal has put a fucking encyclopedia set of information on the thing. Okay, I love you very much, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye. Too much GOP propaganda. Yeah. Bye, propaganda theater. Bye.